Week 1 is here. We have a full day of football ahead of us. I will be live basically right up till kickoff. I cannot wait to get going on this stream. There is a lot to talk about in week 1. A lot of very interesting storylines, a lot to discuss with fantasy football, and of course, with betting in week 1. What's going on, guys? Love to see some people already in the YouTube chat. We are live on TikTok and YouTube. To start see questions rolling in on the TikTok live. It's an honor to be here for my third season now, doing these live streams every single Sunday morning. I'm here to get you guys up to speed, giving you all the information you could possibly need to make sure you have the best fantasy lineup set, and you're really just making optimal decisions with everything to do with the NFL today. It's a great day. There are a lot of good games today. You'll see at the bottom of the screen, you'll see scrolling my top 10 running back position just like last year. I also have my picks against the spread for each game, and I do want to go game by game today. But before we do, first Sunday, let's go, Noah. This is Christmas Day for me. This is as close as it gets to Christmas Day for me. I am, before diving into some quick thoughts around the league for each game, let's just quickly recap Thursday night, because it was a pretty interesting Thursday night game. First of all, as a Patriots fan, I mean, the Patriots are going to get absolutely decimated by the Bills every single time they face them. Luckily, that's not going to be till later in the season. Bills clearly the Super Bowl favorites, but Cam Akers, man, from a fantasy football perspective, he's looking like dust. I think he's basically unusable in fantasy football for the foreseeable future. I won't be shocked if we see Cam Akers on the waiver wire in the next month. Luckily, I did not get any Cam Akers. I am also very intrigued after what we saw from Cam Akers on Thursday night. How's James Robinson going to look today? Because James Robinson's coming off an Achilles tear. We a running back come back from an Achilles tear and be good. We haven't seen it, really, in the history of the league. James Robinson's up next at bat, and we're probably going to see I think we could see him start slowly. He's definitely on my do not start list today, though, of course, I am rooting for him to come back healthy. It's week 1. It's Sunday. We got a lot of games to go through. I want to start with probably the game that I am most excited for today, and that is the Cardinals versus the Chiefs. This is a later game in the day. The Cardinals are 6.5 point underdogs. They're missing a lot of offensive players. Obviously, Hopkins suspended for the first 6 weeks, but Rondale Moore also picked up a late injury, and he's not going to be playing today either. Zach Ertz is playing today, but he was questionable. It's to be seen how much explosiveness, how many plays Zach Ertz plays. And Marquise Brown, guys, is going to have a massive workload today. He's definitely a guy you need to be starting in all formats. I've never been more hyped for week 1. Me neither, Michael. I'm very excited for week 1. I need one running back and one flex between Juju, Etienne, Pollard, and A.J. Dillon. Who do I start? It's between those first two guys. As much as I love Pollard and A.J. Dillon, Juju and Etienne, I think, are locked in. And I think you probably just go with those two guys. I like Juju a lot this week. The Cardinals secondary is not very good. I am taking the Cardinals plus 6.5, but that's only because the Chiefs really struggle to cover historically. I still think the Chiefs win this game, and I think the Chiefs put up a lot of points. Patrick Mahomes probably goes over 300 yards today. I do really like starting Travis Etienne this week too, because just like I already mentioned with James Robinson, James Robinson's playing, but he's likely going to be eased in as the season goes on because he's coming off one of the worst injuries you can have in sports. Just look at how Cam Akers looked the backstretch of the playoffs last year and this first game on Thursday night. That's the same injury that James Robinson had. So I think Travis Etienne's going to have his biggest workload potentially at the very beginning of the season. So if you drafted Travis Etienne, I think you should be starting him this week with a lot of confidence. He's going to get a lot of targets this week. We see the start-sit questions rolling in. I do want to give a quick shout to how you can make it more likely to get your start-sit question answered. And the best way to do this is first just going and tossing the WalterPicks app a 5-star review in the iOS or Google Play App Store. You can see Brendan here at the end of his comment. He put 5 stars, letting me know he tosses a 5-star review. It took him about 5 seconds to do this. Helps us out so much. Really do appreciate it, Brendan. I will do my best to get to your start sit. And of course, I will get to as many start sits as I can today, but I also have a lot of content to get through, especially at the beginning part of the stream. And I'll be live basically right up till kickoff. So I'll do my best to get the questions, but also I'll have my top 10 at each position scrolling at the bottom of the screen. and I'll probably touch on a lot of start sits sort of as well. So this one, Darnell Mooney, T. Higgins, Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson, Russell Gage. This one's pretty easy, Brendan. It's got to be the second and third guy here, T. Higgins and Mike Williams. I really do like Darnell Mooney. Deontay Johnson definitely has an interesting ceiling. I mean, Russell Gage is not in consideration here, though. I would probably go T. Higgins, Mike Williams as the highest upside bets, and honestly, maybe the safest floor bet here as well. All right, I want to talk about, so you can see my top 10 wide receiver rankings scrolling at the bottom of the screen here. You'll see as we get towards these wide receiver rankings, it gets pretty interesting. I have Marquise Brown at number 7 today. Again, AJ Green is his top target competition. Maybe James Conner is Antoine Wesley is going to be starting likely for the Cardinals today against a Chiefs team that's going to score a lot of points and a Chiefs secondary that has not much to be concerned about. So I have Marquise Brown ahead of AJ Brown. I have Marquise Brown ahead of Michael Pittman, and this is not where he was getting drafted, but in week 1, given the matchup, given the injuries to the Cardinals, Marquise Brown is going to go absolutely nuclear. I think in the first 6 weeks in general. All right, I'm looking at the TikTok Live. Let's get to a couple TikTok Live questions. If Michael Thomas plays, do we start him? Yeah, so let's start here. You should be starting all of these guys with confidence, in my opinion. And this isn't guys that you necessarily need to start, but I think if you are starting them, you should be starting them with confidence. Chase Edmonds is a guy that I think is a top 24 running back option this week in PPR leagues. I think he's going to do very well against the Patriots in the Dolphins zone running scheme, but I also think Chase Edmonds is going to have a pretty big role as a receiver. He's been one of the most efficient receiving backs in the league over the last 2 years. He's been top 10 in yards per touch over the last 2 years, and he's going to see a much more significant workload today. I also like Chris Olave and Michael Thomas. I think you can start both of these guys. And earlier, I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday, I was more so leaning towards benching Michael Thomas. Like, let's see Michael Thomas do it for a week. Let's see him on the field actually playing at full speed, then start him with confidence. I've sort of walked back on that already because when you really look at the matchup this week, he's going against the Falcons, guys. I mean, this is one of the best matchups for opponents in the league. The Falcons have nothing on the defensive side of the ball. They have a very, very, very weak secondary. This is a week where if Michael Thomas is playing, you probably want to start him because who knows how many times he's going to play. So when he's playing the Falcons, you kind of need to put him in your starting lineup, especially in PPR leagues. I also do like Chris Olave, though, this week. He's probably the only rookie wide receiver I have like confidence in today. I can almost guarantee you at least one of these rookie wide receivers, though, Chris Olave, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, even Jahan Dotson. I think at least one of these rookie wide receivers is going to surprise people as soon as week 1. But I think the best bet to do it is Chris Olave. He was the most polished route runner in this class, and he does something for the Saints that none of the other receivers can do. He can run every single level of the route tree. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are more so ponies, while Chris Olave can do it all. And I think Chris Olave is going to have a really important role for the Chiefs this season as soon as week 1. For the Saints this season as soon as week 1. Some deep tight ends that I like. I know a lot of people struggling with the George Kittle news. George Kittle's not playing today, so get George Kittle as far away from your starting lineup as possible. Cole Kmet, David Njoku, probably two of my favorite streaming tight ends. Robert Tunyon's also playing today. He was questionable sort of all season most of the offseason to see if he's going to play week 1. It sounds like he is going to play, so he's not the worst dart throw either. But when it comes to tight ends, after like the top really like 4-5 guys, you're just praying your tight end falls in the end zone, and I think Kmet and Njoku have a pretty decent chance to do that today. Last but not least, Trey Lance, starting with confidence, guys. There's been a lot of concern for Trey Lance very recently. He got a lot of hype sort of earlier in the offseason. The Jimmy Garoppolo re-signing has a lot of people spooked. I'm not spooked at all with Trey Lance, and you should be starting him against the Bears. The Bears defense is nothing to write home about. They are maybe a little bit better than people realize. I actually am playing the Bears defense in DFS a little bit this week, but I'm still not spooked off of Trey Lance in week 1. If you drafted him as your top quarterback, you should be starting him as your top quarterback this week. He could have over 10 carries in week 1. And if he does, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. It's pretty much that simple because no other quarterback's going to come close to 10 carries outside of Lamar Jackson. Jalen Hurts probably isn't even going to come close to 10 rushing attempts. So you got to start Trey Lance with some confidence. And then I said last but not least with Trey Lance, but last but certainly not least, Sammy Watkins. It's week 1. It's week 1. It is Sammy Watkins' favorite week of the year. I put this in a TikTok comment earlier this week, but Sammy Watkins, he's been in the league 8 years. He's played in a lot of games, over 60 games, I think, in the NFL he's played. and over 10% of his career fantasy points have come in week 1. Like, this is not a fluke. And Allen Lazard is also out this week, so you got to be starting Sammy Watkins with some confidence. I am starting him in one league. I'm starting him over Drake London, and I'm starting him over Devontae Smith. That's probably suboptimal. I wouldn't recommend that to everybody, but I'm in on week 1, Sammy Watkins. All right, let's run through some guys I really think you should be benching this week. First 2 guys, these guys aren't playing, so definitely get these guys out of your lineup. Allen Lazard, George Kittle, they've both been ruled out. Don't start them. James Robinson is playing, but I would not start him in basically any single situation. The James Robinson situation could really, really end up being a lot like what we saw Cam Akers on Thursday night. It's not a for sure thing. Like, James Robinson might recover from his Achilles better than Cam Akers did, but he is definitely not going to be the starting running back. Travis Etienne's certainly going to be the starting running back in week 1. So I'm not trusting James Robinson this week. We got to see it from him. I would definitely put him on your bench in week 1. Situation. All of a sudden, I mean, he really, really great. If you drafted Chris Godwin, you should be absolutely stoked, because if everyone knew he was going to be playing week 1, he probably would have been drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round before Mike Evans. But he's not at full strength yet. We don't know he's going to see his normal allotment of targets, his normal allotment of snaps. So I would recommend benching Chris Godwin at least for week 1. Jalen Tolbert, there was some rumors he might be a healthy scratch in week 1. He was picking up some steam. He's a rookie wide receiver for the Cowboys, who have absolutely nothing after CeeDee Lamb, which is why I absolutely love Tony Pollard's receiving prop today, over 21.5 receiving yards. That's just almost an auto lock, over 21.5 receiving yards for Tony Pollard, where he could get 5 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets in this game against the Buccaneers, especially if the Buccaneers can put up points tonight against the Cowboys. I'm also benching Drake London. He's coming off an injury. I feel a little bit worse about benching Drake London. He definitely has a higher ceiling than some of the other guys on this list, but he is a guy that missed basically the entire preseason after the first preseason game, and I'm not feeling great about him in week 1. Garrett Wilson, I'm not sure where he's going to fall on the pecking order. He could see as little as 2 to 4 targets in this game, so I'm not starting Garrett Wilson. And Damian Harris is another guy that I'm not trusting at all this week. Guys, if you're watching live on TikTok, smash that like button. All you got to do is tap the screen. This is a relatively new feature on TikTok. It does help me out. Do appreciate that. And if you're watching live on YouTube, hit the like button and hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. I'll get to as many start sits as I can. I see a lot of them in the chat, but I will get to as many as I can throughout this live. Would you bench Godwin in a 32-man league? No, I don't think I would, Arjun. I think you got to start basically everybody in a 32-person league. The vast in the WalterPicks 32 creator league, the vast majority of players on the bench will score 0 points. So, like, you kind of have to start him, because you're just swapping in someone that's going to score 0 points in most circumstances. See, I'd probably start Godwin in a person league. Hey, Weatherman Sam, I know it's a little early, but do we have any weather reports for today's games? Yeah, I absolutely love to see this question, because I honestly am not going to lie. I got to look this up right now, because I have not given it much thought today, because obviously we don't have too much weather this time of year, but there is a little bit of weather, it looks like, to be aware of. And just as a quick recap, Weatherman Sam, every Sunday morning, I'm live basically from when I wake up. So about 30 minutes, I started this live. I'll be live basically right up till kickoff. And every single week I will touch on the weather. And and I've done some studies on this, all we really care about, say it with me, is wind over 25 miles an hour. That's the biggest thing to look out for. When there's wind over 25 miles an hour, it does have a significant impact, negative impact on NFL offenses. And this isn't that surprising intuitively, but there's data to back this up as well. But the other interesting thing in the research I did is basically nothing else matters. Like, people overrate the snow, they overrate the rain. It's really wind. They overrate the cold. It's really wind. And obviously there's extremes at every level, but it's wind that we should be most concerned about. Looks like the worst weather today is actually in the 49ers Bears game, but the wind is only 10 miles an hour. Nothing to be concerned about. There is a small likelihood of rain in that game, but it doesn't look like it's going to be anything crazy. I'm not too worried about the 49ers Bears weather, and it looks like that's the worst of the day. Jaguars versus the Commanders, a small chance of rain in that game as well. Wind 8 miles an hour, nothing to be concerned about. In the Patriots-Dolphins game, it's going to be extremely, extremely hot. 97 degrees potentially before the humidity is accounted for. It's probably going to feel like over 100 degrees in the Patriots-Dolphins game. And I'll tell you one thing, that's not good for the Patriots. I'm extremely nervous for the Patriots today, guys. And I'm extremely nervous for them this season. I am taking the Dolphins at -3.5 versus the Patriots. I don't think this is a good matchup for the Patriots, who lack a decent amount of speed on defense. They lose J.C. Jackson this offseason. Now they're going against Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Chase Edmonds in week 1. All these guys very fast, good receivers. Don't think that's good for the Patriots. I also think Tua is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. The 2 quarterbacks that I'm most excited to watch today and that I think are going to surprise a lot of people this season, at least one of these guys is going to shock people this season. It's Tua and it's Trevor Lawrence. Both guys, young quarterbacks, both guys coming from much worse situations into much better situations this year. One of my locks today is that the Jaguars cover the spread against Washington, +3 against Washington. I think the Jaguars beat Washington today. I think Trevor Lawrence goes over 300 passing yards today. Evan Ingram is one of my favorite dart throws for today because I have Evan Ingram, guys, in a disgusting amount of my DFS lineups. Probably over 90% of my DraftKings lineups today have Evan Ingram in it. And I'm not necessarily recommending you go with that very high risk, obviously, strategy, but his over-under is 23.5 receiving yards or something really low. Maybe it was 30 receiving yards. I think he's easily going to go over that. I think he's a very good chance at a touchdown. The Washington secondary was dead last against quarterbacks last year. They were bottom 3 against receivers last year, and they were near the bottom of the league against tight ends last season too. There's no quarterback getting a better coaching upgrade than Trevor Lawrence this season. Trevor Lawrence was splitting snaps with Gardner Minshew, or I think it was Gardner Minshew, back when he was first starting with the Jaguars. And that was a big part because Urban Meyer had no idea what he was doing. So he didn't even get a normal preseason in his rookie season. He spends over half of his rookie season with Urban Meyer kicking around. And he doesn't end the season with Urban Meyer, but it's really tough. A totally new coach halfway through the season in your rookie year. This year, he's a full offseason with Doug Peterson, who's shown that he can get the most out of his quarterbacks. And he really, if you go back and you watch the film on Trevor Lawrence, most of his bad plays, and you go back and watch them, and it's like, what was he supposed to do in this situation? 0 of his receivers were separating, and the offensive line was basically just laying down. That's not going to be the case for the Jaguars this season. I'm very bullish on Trevor Lawrence in week 1, too, given this matchup. I have a lot of Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, and Christian Kirk stacks in my DraftKings lineups today. Actually, let me pull up my DraftKings lineup for you all. This is my favorite DraftKings lineup for the day. There's no Christian Kirk in this lineup, but I like all these guys. And I have Christian McCaffrey in a lot of my DraftKings lineup as well. Didn't put him in this one, but I do like the Saquon Barkley Giants defense stack a lot. Saquon's price way too low on DraftKings. I have him. Let me pull up my running back rankings here. I have him as my number 8 running back. I think he's priced outside the top 15 on DraftKings in terms of running backs. I also do like, if I don't play Christian McCaffrey in a DraftKings lineup, I'm probably playing DJ Moore. I'm probably not going to play both of them, but I think at least one of them is going to have a massive day today against the Browns. I also do really like the Devontae Adams, Austin Eckler stack. You want pieces of this Raiders-Chargers game. That honestly, I said I'm excited for the Chiefs-Cardinals. Be more excited for the Raiders-Chargers. I mean, this division is going to be so much fun to watch all these games. I think the Chargers win this game, but I'm not super confident about who's going to be able to pull this one out. And I am really excited to see Devontae Adams. And I think this isn't the worst week 1 matchup for Devontae Adams. J.C. Jackson, the top corner for the Chargers, who they acquired this offseason, he's not playing in week 1. He's probably not going to play in week 2 either, because I think the Chargers play on Thursday night next week. That's great news for Devontae Adams. And Devontae Adams, guys, he could have over 10 targets easily in this game, playing with one of his best friends, one of his brothers, Derek Carr. So I like playing Devontae Adams in daily fantasy this week. I think he's the highest priced wide receiver. I don't care, because I can pay down for Evan Ingram. I can pay down for Trevor Lawrence. I can pay down for Giants defense. So I do like this DraftKings lineup a lot. MT or DK at flex. That one's really interesting. I see that from the TikTok live. I think you go Michael Thomas over DK Metcalf. Metcalf probably has a slightly higher ceiling, but like I was saying earlier with Michael Thomas, I've sort of already changed my mind about this over the last 3 days. Like 3 days ago, I was saying, yeah, we probably want to see it for Michael Thomas before we start him in our fantasy lineups. But then at the same time, he's playing the Falcons this week, and who knows how many games he's even going to play. So what, we're going to bench him in one of maybe his best matchups of the season? No, I think you got to start Michael Thomas in week 1, assuming he's playing, which it does look like he's playing, which is also very exciting. If I knew this whole offseason that Michael Thomas would be suiting up and playing most of the snaps in week 1 against the Falcons, I think I would be drafting him in the 6th, 7th, 8th round every single time. But we weren't so sure of that sort of towards the end of the preseason, but it does look like he's playing today. And that's great news if you drafted Michael Thomas. I think you should start him if you drafted him. I do like Michael Thomas this week. All right, let's take another look at a question here on the YouTube Live from Bennett. I do appreciate the 5-star review, Bennett. for the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Android app stores. Helps me out, Bennett, so much. So I really do appreciate it. Pollard, Monty, Bateman, or Elijah Moore flex, full PPR. Yeah, it's one of these last two. Definitely in a full PPR league, it's Bateman or Elijah Moore. I like both guys. Obviously, they're going up against each other today. Bateman plays the Jets. Much better matchup than Elijah Moore versus the Ravens. But guys, Elijah Moore was the real deal down the stretch last season. He was averaging almost 16 fantasy points per game in the back half of last season. I do really like Bateman, but I also think the Ravens could be extremely run heavy in this game. I think I would lean Elijah Moore over Rashad Bateman this week. It's certainly close, though, and both are really good options. But I would play both those guys over Tony Pollard and over David Montgomery. Hey, Sam, I wanted to let you know I have the app, but I have a question for my RB2. Joseph, thanks for trying out the WalterPicks app. I do appreciate that. We got Dameon Pierce, A.J. Dillon, Michael Carter, or Josh Jacobs in a PPR league. Yeah, Michael Carter and Josh Jacobs, two guys that I don't have a ton of confidence starting in week one. We got to see what their roles look like. And these guys do not have clearly defined roles heading into week one. They could be really big roles. They also could be surprisingly small roles in these offenses. Definitely Michael Carter too with the Jets, big underdogs against the Ravens. I don't trust Carter at all this week. I do think he's an underrated player, and he could have an underrated role, but definitely not in week one. Josh Jacobs is a really interesting one. I have a lot less confidence in Jacobs than most people. I would lean towards Dameon Pierce or A.J. Dillon in this one. I actually think that the Texans have a chance to upset the Colts in week one. It's one of my favorite sleeper picks against the spread this week. I am taking the Texans against the Colts against the spread. I think it's a 6.5 or 7.5 point spread. Yeah, they're 7-point underdogs against the Colts. I don't hate Dameon Pierce. I think I like A.J. Dillon a little bit more as a safe option. Pierce's ceiling is probably pretty high if he does get sort of an every down role. But I don't think he's going to get an every down role. This is the thing why I think I would probably lean A.J. Dillon here. Rex Burkhead is the third down back on the Texans, almost definitely. There's been no indication that Dameon Pierce is going to get a lot of receiving work. So this is a PPR league. A.J. Dillon's going to get more catches than Dameon Pierce today. A.J. Dillon also, I would argue, has a better chance at a touchdown today. I would lean A.J. Dillon in this one, but it's not like any four of these options are terrible. Did you hear, I wanted to go back to this, that Lamar Jackson rejected a $250 million deal? And yes, I did hear this. And I tweeted out after I saw that there was no agreement reached with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I thought there was a big mistake by the Baltimore Ravens, and I still stand by this. And this might also be a relatively big mistake by Lamar Jackson. I'm willing to admit that. But I also am much more on the Lamar Jackson side here than I am the Baltimore Ravens side. Why would Lamar Jackson accept anything less than what Deshaun Watson got? Lamar Jackson is more valuable than Deshaun Watson. He has a unanimous MVP under his belt. Obviously, he's got to get the playoff monkey off his back. But if I'm the Ravens, I would rather have Lamar than Deshaun Watson. And I think Lamar should feel the same way. And that's how the quarterback market works. When a quarterback gets paid and he is less valuable than you, then you should expect to get paid more than he did, or at least get a better structure than he did. And I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to settle for anything less than that. Though I do think this might have been still a pretty big mistake by Lamar, because football is an extremely volatile sport. He runs the ball a lot. He is at risk of injury this season. And if he does get injured this season, it's tough to see him getting a better deal than what they offered him. And that's probably why the Ravens offered what they did. But yeah, I'm fully rooting for Lamar Jackson. I think he's one of the most underappreciated quarterbacks of our generation, never mind of the current year. So yeah, I like Lamar Jackson a lot. Hey, Sam, I dropped a 5-star review. Thanks, man. Who would you start, Mike Williams, Juju, or MT for my full flex, full PPR? Yeah, it's got to be Mike Williams or Juju in this situation. And again, I am starting Michael Thomas in a lot of situations, but I wouldn't start him over Mike Williams, and I wouldn't start him over Juju. I honestly would probably lean Mike Williams. I think Mike Williams' ceiling is astronomically high in week one. You want pieces of this Chargers-Raiders game. You want pieces of it. You want Mike Williams. You want Keenan Allen. You want Devontae Adams. You want Austin Eckler. You even maybe want Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller. Even Gerald Everett's not the worst punt at tight end. I'm a little more skeptical about Josh Jacobs in this matchup, even though the Chargers did have a really bad run defense last year. I do think it will be improved this season. But yeah, I would go Mike Williams, I think, over Juju, over MT. I do like Juju a lot too, though. I think Juju is a really safe bet this week to go over 10 points. Against Cardinals defense that really their secondary was so weak last season, and they did very little to improve. Ben's asking Olave or Bateman. Ben, I'd go Bateman over Olave. I do like both guys, but I would definitely lean Bateman over Olave. And in general, Ben, when you have a good option next to a rookie wide receiver, like let's see what the rookie wide receiver looks like in week one. It is a really good matchup for Olave in week one. Just in Michael Thomas to suit up today. Yeah, he's playing, and it's been trending this way for quite some time. I can't wait to watch this. This might be one of my favorite things to watch this week because Michael Thomas, guys, he was a top 5 fantasy wide receiver for basically 6 consecutive years. Like this isn't anything to scoff at how good Michael Thomas was. That was over 2 years ago now, though. So we got to see what it looks like for Michael Thomas in this new offense with Jameis Winston, with Chris Olave, with Jarvis Landry, and obviously Alvin Kamara is going to have a massive, massive opportunity share as well. So I'm excited for Michael Thomas. I think he could really surprise a lot of people, especially people that have just started playing fantasy in the last 2 years. They're like, who's this Michael Thomas guy? And oh, wait, all of a sudden he's a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy. Like that's very possible. It is very possible for that to be the case. We really have never seen him be anything but a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy football. But obviously there's much different circumstances today for Michael Thomas than there was 2 years ago. Very excited for him though. And again, I think in a lot of situations you can start him. He's playing the Falcons, one of the weakest defenses in the NFL. Do you trust Jalen Waddle? I don't have an insane amount of trust with him, but I think the Dolphins offense is going to move the ball against the Patriots defense today. So yeah, you got to start Waddle, like definitely as a wide receiver too. And obviously you're starting Tyreek Hill as well. Who are the defenses you are streaming this week? Yeah, my 2 favorite like really dart throw defenses that are available in over 90% of leagues. And these are the 2 defenses I'm playing the most on DraftKings too, because they're extremely low priced. And low price defenses on DraftKings week 1, it is one of the biggest edges you can get in daily fantasy across the board. Like pay down for these defenses. Defenses are extremely random. Obviously you want to be playing the matchups, but they're extremely random. You just need your defense to fall into the end zone, get a couple sacks, and all of a sudden they can return value for you. So my favorite 2 defenses, and they might sound a little gross, it's the Giants and it's the Bears. I think the Giants have a really good chance to upset the Titans today. I am taking the Giants +5 versus the Titans. I think the Titans could be a lot worse than what people expect this season. I'm very intrigued to see how Treylon Burks looks today, though. I think Treylon Burks has the biggest potential to surprise the most people in week 1. He's got so much hate this offseason for so many different reasons, but Treylon Burks is going to, I think, be very involved for the Titans. But at the same time, the Giants defense, I think, is going to be able to put a lot of pressure on Ryan Tannehill. I don't know if the Titans are going to be able to be as run heavy as they want to be this season as they were last season. The Titans led in so many games last year. And if all of a sudden Brian Daboll's offense is able to improve the Giants offense, the Titans might be playing from behind today. And that's going to be good for the Giants defense. With Ryan Tannehill, no A.J. Brown, Treylon Burks and Robert Woods are the top 2 receivers for the Titans. And their offensive line, I think, is weaker than people realize. I also do like the Bears defense against the 49ers. 49ers allowed a lot of sacks last season. Trey Lance obviously getting his start in week 1. There could be some volatility there as well. I wouldn't be shocked if Trey Lance throws an interception or 2 today. And I do think the Giants defense is going to get some sacks. The Bears defense is going to get some sacks. So I do like the Giants and Bears as like super deep dart throws. But the defenses I'm playing in all my fantasy leagues, because I drafted defenses in the last round, I'm playing the Broncos and I'm playing the Browns. The Browns have an amazing first 4 weeks. So if they're available, I would definitely add them for season-long fantasy purposes. And also the Broncos. Like, guys, I've already said twice now, the game I'm most looking forward to today is blank. But the game I'm most looking forward to this week, for sure, is the Broncos versus the Seahawks, and that's tomorrow night. And I've been placing wagers on the Broncos this entire offseason in week 1 specifically. I got them at +3, -3, -3.5. I took them at money line. I took the Seahawks, a long-term bet that they wouldn't win a game this season. I'm pretty low on the Seahawks, and I'm very high on the Broncos. So one of my locks this week is the Broncos over the Seahawks. I don't know how I could possibly see a situation where the Seahawks, who have a bottom 5 offensive line, they have a bottom 5 quarterback, they have a bottom 5 play calling, they want to be a run-first team, they have a bottom 5 defense, bottom 5 secondary. Like there's nothing to get excited about the Seahawks other than sort of the talent surrounding the offense. The wide receivers and the running backs are very talented, but that's just not a way to build a winning team in the NFL. So yeah, I'm not in on the Seahawks. I'm very in on the Broncos. Should I start A.J. Dillon or Zeke? You got to start Zeke. You have to start Zeke this week. If you drafted Zeke, I mean, why'd you draft him if you're not going to start him in week 1? Obviously, it's not a great matchup against the Buccaneers, but you're definitely starting Zeke over A.J. Dillon. Hey, Sam, I have the app. Thanks for trying out the app. Yeah, guys, if you haven't checked out the app yet, WalterPicks app on the iOS and Android app store. It's completely free to download. We also made the app more free this season. You can do infinite start-sit comparisons for free. You won't see the boom and bust probabilities. That is a premium feature. Premium features start for as little as $10 a month. Those also come with a 7-day free trial. But you can do infinite start-sit comparisons. You can do as many trade analyzers as you want, and you can also do infinite who do I draft comparisons. Obviously, draft season is now behind us. But we got a question here, Monty or Zeke. Yeah, same situation. I'd go Zeke over Monty for sure. Pittman, Higgins, or Bateman, pick 2. Yeah, you're not benching. Do not bench. Do not bench Michael Pittman this week. You just can't. You can't be benching Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, I think he was in my top 10. Let me pull my receivers again. I think he was maybe number 10 in my top 10 wide receivers. And if he wasn't on there, then he was very close behind. Probably number 11. Yeah, he is. He's my number 10 wide receiver this week. Do not bench Michael Pittman. I also do like T. Higgins more than Rashad Bateman as well. Both guys I like a lot. But T. Higgins has had some monster days against the Steelers, who have mostly been able to shut down Jamar Chase, but I wouldn't be betting on that either this week. Tony Pollard or Michael Carter? Thanks, big dog. Yeah, I'm going Tony Pollard over Michael Carter this week for sure. My favorite player prop today, and this is the free prop of the day, it's Tony Pollard over 21.5 receiving yards. I don't think they fully understand, the people setting this line fully understand what the role might look like for Tony Pollard. This isn't a guaranteed thing, but it's certainly within the range of outcomes that Tony Pollard gets 5, 6, even 7 targets this week. And if he only needs 2 catches to go over 21.5 receiving yards. So if you're playing in a PPR league, I do like Tony Pollard over Michael Carter. I do like Tony Pollard over like sort of that 3rd, 4th, 5th tier running backs. I'm not playing him over any entrenched starters. I'm not playing him over Zeke, for example. I'm not playing him over Chase Edmonds, for example. Chase Edmonds is like right around that line for me where I'm playing Edmonds over Pollard because Edmonds is also going to have a big receiving role. But I do like Tony Pollard a lot. Today, I do like him a lot this season. Pollard or Sanders? Yeah, Miles Sanders is not a guy I'm trusting in week 1, even in a really good matchup against the Lions. The Lions' run defense is not going to be able to stop this Eagles rushing attack. But guys, Miles Sanders scored 0 touchdowns last season. Can we just see him fall in the end zone once before putting him in our starting lineup, especially in a PPR league? I think I would lean Pollard there as well. Hey, Sam, hope you're having a great first NFL Sunday morning. I am, man. I'm so pumped for football. I'm on coffee number 2. I'll probably hit number 3 by the end of this stream. So it's a great day to be alive, man. Can you pick 2 half PPR? Mooney, Elijah Moore, Ayuka, the Bazooka, or Rashad Bateman? Yeah, you're definitely starting Elijah Moore out of these 4. And I think in a half PPR league, I might go down on Mooney number 2. All 4 of these guys, really good young players too. They're gonna have some big seasons out of these 4 players. But yeah, I would probably lean the first 2 over the latter in this situation. Is certainly extremely close though. And I would also recommend checking out what Walter thinks in the WalterPicks app. Walter's the AI algorithm that powers the WalterPicks app that I've helped build over the last 3 years. And you can do infinite start-sit comparisons there as well. So I would check that out. Also, Juju or Nick Chubb at flex. Yeah, you can't bench Nick Chubb. Don't bench Nick Chubb. Sam, bro, Antonio Gibson or DK at flex. Yeah, I'd go DK over Gibson at flex as well. Hey, Sam, WalterPicks has been helping me. Love to hear that. T-Law or Winston. This one's super interesting because I actually think both guys are in smash spots in week 1. I think Trevor Lawrence, he's going up against what was the worst defense against quarterbacks last season. Meanwhile, Jameis Winston's going up against what could be the worst defense against quarterbacks this season. Obviously, that's what's more important than last season. Both guys, I think, have really high ceilings. I like both guys a lot on DraftKings. I am really in, though, on Trevor Lawrence today. Almost all of my DraftKings lineups have some sort of Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, or Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk stack. I think Trevor Lawrence is in such an improved situation from last season that he's almost destined to surprise and outperform his expectation. I would lean towards Trevor Lawrence. I think there's a little bit more of a chance for the Saints to be more run heavy with Alvin Kamara in a good offensive line if they get a big lead against the Falcons than there is for the Jaguars to all of a sudden turn run heavy with Travis Etienne. And the Jaguars are also underdogs. They're 3-point underdogs. I think they're going to cover the spread against the Washington Commanders, but it makes me more confident that Trevor Lawrence will be throwing a lot today. I think Trevor Lawrence goes over 30 pass attempts today. Is well within his range of outcomes. I've been saying all offseason, I think the Jaguars could pass attempts this season. So I like both guys, but I would lean Trevor Lawrence slightly over Jameis Winston. Hey, Sam, who do you like at wide receiver 2, Michael Thomas or Adam Thielen? This one's super close for sure. Let me pull up my quarterback rankings. By the way, I don't know if I've had those up yet. You'll see Trey Lance is in my top 10 quarterbacks this week, by the way, guys. If you drafted Trey Lance as a starting quarterback for your team, start Trey Lance. Don't get spooked off Trey Lance just because Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be standing on the sideline. Like, that does not make sense to me, especially in week 1, to be at all concerned about Jimmy Garoppolo stealing any work from Trey Lance. And Trey Lance could lead the entire quarterback group in week 1 in rushing yards. It's probably going to be Lamar, but Trey Lance could be number 2. Going back to this question, though, yeah, I would probably lean towards Adam Thielen over Michael Thomas, but it's definitely close. And again, Michael Thomas is a guy that's going up against the Falcons secondary, and that shouldn't be overlooked. The Packers secondary is way better than the Falcons secondary, but I am a little bit more optimistic about Adam Thielen than Michael Thomas in week 1. It certainly is a close one, though. And thank you for tossing the 5-star review in the iOS or Android app store for the WalterPicks app. Really do appreciate that. We got a deep one here from Xavier, and I will get to as many comments as I can. I also will talk a little bit more through game by game. I see a TikTok comment saying Romeo Dubs or Rashad Bateman. That's got to be Bateman, man. You got to go Bateman. As much as Dubs, Romeo Dubs, and maybe even Christian Watson are going to get bigger run today with Allen Lazard out. But Sammy Watkins is still the wide receiver 1. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon will still be very involved. Robert Tonyan is playing today. Romeo Dubs and Christian Watson, they have intriguing ceilings today, like maybe tournament DraftKings options, but they also have a floor of basically 0 points. Like, it won't be that surprising if Romeo Dubs or Christian Watson, probably at least one of them, this is going to be the case, that they have like less than 3 catches today. And so, yeah, you can't start either of them in season-long fantasy leagues without a lot of risk. But going to this question from Xavier, A.J. Green or Julio Jones, the battle of the veteran Hall of Fame level wide receivers who are now in age 30-plus season in really both intriguing situations. You have Kyler at QB, 5-star app for sure. Thanks, man. I would probably lean towards A.J. Green. Chris Godwin is also supposedly playing, albeit on a limited snap count, tonight against the Cowboys. I think that does add a lot lower of a floor for Julio. And A.J. Green, he could easily score a touchdown today. It's not like the Chiefs secondary is very scary. And yeah, I mean, Rondale Moore's out. A.J. Green could see close to every down roll in week 1 against a Chiefs team that is going to put up points today. This is another game that you just want pieces of. You want pieces of the Chiefs-Cardinals game. You want pieces of the Raiders-Chargers game as well. These are, I mean, two games that if you can get pieces of, you probably should be going with it. So yeah, I would probably go A.J. Green. I think A.J. Green's floor is significantly higher than Julio Jones' floor, and his ceiling is pretty comparable at worst. So yeah, I would probably go in that direction. All right, I want to run through the games again really quickly. Let me pull up my picks against the spread at the bottom of the screen. Ravens versus Jets. I mean, Lamar Jackson is going to go absolutely nuclear today. I do have my quarterback rankings, I think, were just on the screen. But yeah, I'm very bullish on the Ravens this season. And Joe Flacco starting week 1 against the Ravens. I think this spread should be closer to 10 points for the Ravens. So I do like the Ravens to destroy the Jets today. I think Lamar too is going to go over 100 rushing yards. He has a decent chance to do that. Lamar Jackson adds 15 pounds of muscle this offseason. He loses his top receiver in Marquise Brown. He doesn't get a contract extension. And his week 1 is up against the Jets, who are starting Joe Flacco, who Joe Flacco was he was getting rave reviews in training camp. You guys remember this in training camp. Joe Flacco was lighting it up, and people were all excited about Joe Flacco. And I read this the exact opposite way. Joe Flacco lighting up your defense in training camp is not a good sign for Joe Flacco. We know Joe Flacco is a bottom 5 starting quarterback in week 1. That no training camp report is going to change my opinion on that. But the fact that Joe Flacco lit up the Jets defense in training camp, that's a really bad sign. Defense, a really bad sign for the Jets defense, because we saw Joe Flacco then go out in the preseason and look like what we would expect from Joe Flacco, a bottom 5 starting quarterback in the NFL today. Obviously, he had a pretty good career in the past, but he's way past his prime, playing on a Jets offense with a bottom 5 offensive line. I'm not optimistic at all about the Jets offense today. I'm excited to see Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Elijah Moore get their first run. But Elijah Moore is really the only player on the Jets that I'm starting with any sort of confidence. And I think the Ravens could beat the Jets by 30-plus points today. This could be the biggest blowout of the day. That's going to be great news for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts? Yeah, I'm starting Lamar Jackson over Jalen Hurts. And they're actually both in my top 3 quarterbacks. I have Lamar Jackson number 2. And I have Jalen Hurts at number 3. So if you guys have quarterback start sit questions, by the way, check out my top 10 quarterbacks. They're scrolling at the bottom of the screen below. Dameon Pierce or Sammy Watkins. That one's really close, man. In a PPR league, I see that question in the TikTok live. That one's really close. I really am in on week 1 Sammy Watkins, though. I actually might lean Sammy Watkins if that's a PPR league. Do you think running backs, big contracts, are smart? No, they're definitely not smart. Running backs are the most replaceable position in the NFL. What's your favorite player prop of the day? From Walter, if you don't mind me asking. Yeah, so my favorite player prop that I gave out on the stream actually isn't from Walter. This is from me. I don't think Walter identified this one, which is Tony Pollard over 21.5 receiving yards. My favorite player prop from Walter, I'll give us one more here as well. It's probably, I think this line has moved a little bit, but I do really like the Kyle Pitts one. I think it started at 55.5 receiving yards. Now it's over 60.5 receiving yards. We have Kyle Pitts projected for 80 receiving yards against the Saints. We have him projected basically as an elite wide receiver 1, and that's what I think he's going to be like this season. Yeah, Walter has Pitts projected for 82 receiving yards today, so I do really like Pitts over 60 yards as well. But those are two of my favorite props of the day. I don't hate stacking both those together. You got to start Marquise Brown. You have to start Marquise Brown this week. Again, let me pull up my top 10 wide receiver rankings. But you can't be benching Marquise Brown against the Chiefs, who have not had a very good secondary over the last year. But they also are going to be in one of the biggest shootouts of the day. I think this game has the highest over-under of the week. And the Cardinals secondary is not very good either. The Chiefs are probably going to put up 30 points this week. Plenty of passing coming for Kyler Murray with his new target Marquise Brown, who they do already have a previous relationship and connection together from playing together in college. I like Marquise Brown a lot this week. I think his ceiling is the wide receiver 1 overall. Like, that is within Marquise Brown's range of outcomes. If he scores 2 touchdowns, he probably also has 150 yards. Like that you're getting from Marquise Brown. I like Sutton and Waddle a lot as well. Don't get me wrong, but I'm starting Marquise Brown over both of them. I'm very bullish on Marquise Brown. I have him ahead of Tyreek Hill. I have him ahead of AJ Brown. I have him ahead of Michael Pittman this week. Given the injuries to the Cardinals, Rondale Moore is out. DeAndre Hopkins is out. He's suspended. We have the number 2 receivers, AJ Green, the corpse of AJ Green, who I did just recommend someone start, but that was over the corpse of Julio Jones. Who do I start on my flex? Ayuka, the Bazooka, Tony Pollard, or AJ Dillon, full PPR. This one's, again, really close. In a full PPR league, I don't hate going Ayuk, but I think Ayuk does have a little bit more risk. There is a chance the 49ers really blow out the Bears today, and that could be a really run-heavy approach from the 49ers, which wouldn't be that surprising. I think Tony Pollard in a full PPR league is probably my favorite pick here. I do like AJ Dillon a lot too, though. These guys are probably all within 10 spots in my flex rankings. But yeah, I would probably lean Tony Pollard. I do think he's going to have a big receiving role against the Bucs tonight. Again, start Marquise Brown, definitely over Michael Thomas. Again, I have Marquise Brown ranked number 7 in my wide receiver rankings today. Drake London or Breece Hall in the flex. I see that one in the TikTok live. That's a very, very interesting one. Obviously, both rookies. I don't think you can start Breece Hall in week 1. He's not a guy that I have any faith in week 1. Though I do have a lot of faith in Breece Hall in the long term. And I think Breece Hall is a guy that he could start relatively slow. I'm going to be sending a lot of trade offers for Breece Hall if he starts slow, because I don't have him on any teams because I wasn't willing to pay the price it took to get him in drafts. But I'm really bullish on the talent of Breece Hall. I think he's by far the most talented running back in this rookie class. I think he's probably already a top 15, top 20 talented running back in the NFL. But he is going to be behind Michael Carter most likely in week 1 on a Jets team that's probably going to get crushed by the Ravens. So, yeah, I wouldn't start Breece Hall over Drake London in week 1. I would go with Drake London there. Who would I start, DJ Moore or T. Higgins? Both really, really good options. I don't going either way with this one, but I'd probably go T. Higgins over DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore's floor maybe is a little bit safer because you never know if it's going to be a massive Jamar Chase day and T. Higgins is sort of left by the wayside. But more likely than not, T is going to return value for you today. Hey, Sam, I love your videos. Thanks, man. The man. Thanks, man. Pick 2, PPR, Waddle, Judy, Juju. Yeah, I'd probably go Waddle and Juju over Judy. And Judy's a guy, let's see what the role is for Judy, too. We know Waddle and Juju are going to feast. Are you worried about Mooney with the weather in Chicago looking like it is? Half PPR, my other options are Boyd and Pickens. I'm not that worried about it. Weatherman Sam gave the report a little bit earlier, but the Bears game does look like have the worst weather today, but it's not weather that I'm concerned about. There's supposed to be a little bit of rain, 57 to 70% chance of rain, but I don't care about rain. We've done studies on this. Rain doesn't really impact anything at the NFL level, unless it's extreme rain, which it does not look like that's going to be the case today. The only thing that I'm most worried about when I look at the weather is wind, and there's not very concerning wind. There's up to 10 miles an hour of wind in this game. That's nothing. Anything over 25 miles an hour, that's where I really get concerned and where I would definitely recommend you bench a guy like Mooney in this game. But yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I think Mooney's still going to get close to 10 targets in this game. I think they will still be able to throw the ball deep despite some light rain, despite some light wind. That shouldn't impact the game enough. Hey, Sam, currently at Ithaca. Wow, Josh, love to hear that, man. Shout out to the Ithaca Bombers. Pick 2, full PPR, AJ Dillon, Michael Thomas, or Ayuka, the Bazooka. Yeah, I think I would start Michael Thomas in this situation. Again, he's playing the Falcons. There's some risk to Michael Thomas this week. Don't get me wrong, but he is playing the Falcons. He is playing, and who knows how many games he's going to play this season. So I would probably play Michael Thomas and AJ Dillon in this situation. I'm so ready for week 1. I could not be more ready for week 1. We got another 3 hours on this live stream. What is your biggest lock bet for the day? Yeah, so I have a couple locks today. My favorite player prop is actually tonight, Tony Pollard over 21.5 receiving yards. I'll pull up my picks against the spread again, though. Those will scroll at the bottom of the screen here. My favorite pick today, though, is actually the Jaguars over the Washington Commanders. They're 3-point underdogs. I think they win the game. So I like them money line and against the spread. I do like them a lot. And I also, my other favorite week 1 team against the spread is the Denver Broncos destroying the Seahawks. I think that game's going to be disastrous. So we have Commanders.WalterPicks, Avery in the chat saying, whoa, 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 we got a lock against the Commanders. But I do think, honestly, this has more to do with what I think of the Jaguars than it does what I think of the Commanders. And the Commanders could surprise teams, surprise people this season. Their defense was really bad last year, though. They were the worst defense in the league against quarterbacks. They were the worst defense in the league, or bottom 5 defense in the league against receivers. And they go up against Trevor Lawrence this week, who I think maybe the most underrated team in the league heading into week 1 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think their defense is any. If they do lose, it's probably because their defense allows 30-plus points to the Washington Commanders. But the offense is going to surprise a lot of people this season. I think that Trevor Lawrence probably goes over 300 passing yards today. I think he's going to throw over 30 pass attempts as well. Much improved weapons. Christian Kirk. I have Evan Ingram, like I mentioned earlier, in a disgusting amount of my DraftKings lineups today, which is obviously very high risk. But I do think Evan Ingram is going to surprise people this season as well. So I do like the Jaguars offense to go head-to-head with the Commanders offense. I think this should be more like an even spread. Obviously, it's in Washington, which is why they are getting 3 points on the road. Pick 2, Elijah Moore, Elijah Mitchell, Cortland Sutton, or Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, this one's easy. It's Elijah Moore, and it's Cortland Sutton. I would probably go with those two guys over Elijah Mitchell, who, by the way, Elijah Mitchell, I think he picked up like a late injury as well. He is going to be playing today, but supposedly he could see less touches after he returned to practice from a hamstring injury. He returned to practice last Sunday, I think, a week ago. So, yeah, he's fully healthy, but he was battling a hamstring injury. So wouldn't be shocked if Jeff Wilson gets a decent amount of run today as well for the 49ers. Sammy Watkins or Amari Cooper. I love week 1 Sammy Watkins as much as anyone, but I'm not starting him over Amari Cooper. Winston or Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I'd probably go Kirk over Winston. So hyped for today. Me as well, man. Should I play Mahomes or Jackson? Also, why not play Damian Harris? Yeah, let me touch on the Damian Harris thing in a second. But, I mean, you got my number 1 quarterback and my number 2 quarterback, right? Like, why do you have both these guys? Tyler, what are you doing drafting Mahomes and Lamar Jackson if it's not a 2 QB league? I think that was a big mistake. But yeah, I would play Mahomes over Lamar, but, I mean, both guys are going to go absolutely bananas today. I mean, and why I'm not starting Damian Harris, I don't think the Patriots are going to win this game. Damian Harris is not going to be a factor in the receiving game. If the Dolphins get a lead, Damian Harris, like if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to score less than 7 fantasy points, almost definitely. Meanwhile, Ramondre Stevenson, like he has a much better role in this backfield for when the Patriots are losing, and they could be losing a decent amount this season. So yeah, I like Ramondre Stevenson over Damian Harris in week 1. I'm pretty nervous about Damian Harris. He's going to be extremely touchdown dependent. He obviously scored a lot of touchdowns last season, but I'm not feeling great about a touchdown against the Dolphins today for Damian Harris, and that's why I'm pretty nervous to start him. I wouldn't be shocked if Mondre out-touches Damian Harris as soon as week 1. But even if he doesn't, he's going to get a lot of the backfield. We could even see Ty Montgomery, who I don't know if they've officially ruled him in or out yet, but I think he was questionable last time I saw, or Pierre Strong. It wouldn't be shocked if a third running back gets involved for the Patriots either. So, yeah, I'm out on Damian Harris in week 1. Breece Hall or Tony in the flex, half PPR. Yeah, I'm benching Breece Hall in week 1. These are some guys that I'm benching this week. Breece Hall's not on this list, but we can add him to this list. I wouldn't be starting Breece Hall. The first 2 guys on this list, by the way, Allen Lazard, George Kittle, they're not playing at all. They're injured. So definitely get those guys out of your starting lineups. I think James Robinson, Chris Godwin, they're close enough to being injured that you don't want to start them either. Like James Robinson, again, there's a lot of parallels to the Cam Akers situation with him because he's also coming off an Achilles injury. We've never seen a running back come back at full speed after an Achilles injury. I'm hoping James Robinson can be the first exception to that, but I'm not betting against a long history of running backs coming back like these injuries. I don't think James Robinson is going to get a big workload. Chris Godwin's also supposedly playing this week. He's well ahead in his recovery timeline. If you drafted him, you're in a great spot this season, but I wouldn't start him in week 1. Jalen Tolbert, there was a report he could be a healthy scratch in week 1. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case, but he could get 0 points this week. So you definitely don't want to start Jalen Tolbert. I do have Drake London on this list. I think Drake London is the best player on this list, though. So if you are in a pinch and you do want to start Drake London, I think I was just saying I would start Drake London over I forget who I said I would start him over. But I would start Drake London in some situations. I'm actually starting Sammy Watkins over Drake London in one of my high-stakes leagues because I believe in Week 1 Sammy Watkins, but I think we have Drake London projected more points than Week 1 Sammy Watkins. So Drake London does have an intriguing ceiling, though he has been hurt pretty much the entire preseason after the first preseason game. So I do want to see what he looks like at full strength, or if he is at full strength, before putting in my starting lineups. Garrett Wilson, definitely have no faith in Garrett Wilson in Week 1. He was my favorite rookie wide receiver heading into the draft. He's not my favorite rookie wide receiver after the draft, though I do think he's still more talented than people realize. I'm not starting him in Week 1, though. I think he could be behind Elijah Moore and Corey Davis. And then last but not least, I just told you why I'm not starting Damian Harris. Here's some guys, though, that I think you can start with confidence in Week 1. Best holiday of the year is Week 1. I agree, man. Big man Steve-O in the TikTok live. I benched MT. Smart idea. Yeah, so I'm starting MT with confidence. This week, I have already, I think, told a lot of people to bench him in different situations. Like, I'm not starting him over Marquise Brown. I'm not starting him over Chase Edmonds even. I would start him over Chris Olave, though. And I do think, like, over a guy like Brandon Ayuk. I would start Michael Thomas over Brandon Ayuk, the bazooka, for sure. I've changed my mind about this just in the last 3 days. Originally, I was thinking, maybe we do want to see Michael Thomas, like in a real game scenario before we trot him out in our starting lineup. But then when you really think about it, he's playing the Falcons. The Falcons could have the worst secondary in the NFL this season. This is a game where you want to be starting Michael Thomas in. So just given the matchup, and who knows how many games Michael Thomas is going to end up even playing based on his last 2 years. So yeah, I think if we know Michael Thomas is playing, which it does sound like we know, then we should be starting Michael Thomas in fantasy. We have let me read through any more recent reports here. Michael Thomas will play today. That is official. Some of the overnight news, again, Drake London is going to play. Zach Ertz is likely to play, but he could be a little bit limited with his calf injury. Chris Godwin is expected to play, but I'm not starting him in any fantasy leagues this week. I don't think he's going to see his normal amount of snaps. George Kittle, he's not playing. Alan Lazard, he's not playing. CeeDee Lamb thoughts today. Yeah, I have CeeDee Lamb ranked well high up in my top 10 wide receiver rankings. He's at number 4. I have him as my 4th best receiver today. After Justin Jefferson, after Devontae Adams, after Jamar Chase, it's CeeDee Lamb. And he could easily end up being the number 1 receiver in fantasy this week. He obviously plays tonight against the Buccaneers, who have been okay stopping top receivers. But I'm not betting against CeeDee Lamb. He's going to get so many targets this season. So yeah, I'm in on CeeDee Lamb this week for sure. All right, let's get back to some of these start today questions. Hey, Sam, who are you starting, Robert Woods, Godwin, or Dameon Pierce? Yeah, I'm not starting Chris Godwin. I refuse to start Chris Godwin in Week 1. It's surprising that he's playing, and that alone is enough to tell me that he might not play that much, or maybe he's just going to be decoy in Week 1. And the Buccaneers do have relatively good depth at receiver too. They're not gonna rush their top receiver for the future back in Week 1. So yeah, I'm out on Chris Godwin. Dameon Pierce versus Robert Woods is definitely really close. I think Dameon Pierce has a much safer floor than Robert Woods. I'm really intrigued to see how these receiver targets break out, though, for the Tennessee Titans, because this is something that's been debated all offseason and is really unclear still heading into Week 1. Definitely something to watch really closely. How much is Treylon Burks running routes? How much is Treylon Burks getting targeted versus Robert Woods, and which targets are more valuable deep down the field, Robert Woods or Treylon Burks? I think it's going to be Robert Woods in Week 1, but I'm not 100% on that. So I'd probably lean Dameon Pierce in this situation. Why would you start A.J. Dillon over Ayuka, the bazooka? I think A.J. Dillon's going to be involved as a receiver today. I think he's a pretty good chance at a touchdown today in one of the higher scoring games of the week. And I'm a little nervous about Brandon Ayuk against the Bears because I think the 49ers could destroy the Bears. And they're going to have an extremely potentially run-heavy approach too. So there's a pretty low floor for Ayuk in Week 1. The ceiling is there. He could have a pretty valuable role in this passing attack. But if Trey Lance only throws 20 passes, I mean, there's not much upside to go around, and there's definitely a really low floor. I think the floor for A.J. Dillon is better. I would argue the ceiling maybe for Ayuk is slightly better. So if you really want to chase the ceiling, Josh, like if you went up against Josh Allen or Steph Diggs or Cooper Kupp, then maybe you go Ayuk. But otherwise, I think I'd go with the save points in A.J. Dillon. He's going to get probably 50% of the carries for the Packers. I think he's going to get close to 40% of the targets out of the backfield too, and he could easily carve out a red zone role too. So I do like a lot of different routes for A.J. Dillon to score fantasy points this week, where Ayuk, obviously, if the 49ers are up 14-0 in the first quarter against the Bears, who have one of the worst offensive lines in the league, one of the weakest defenses in the league as well. I am playing the Bears defense a decent amount in DFS, so hopefully they are able to surprise people with some sacks today. But yeah, I think the 49ers are going to potentially just run right over the Bears, and that's not going to be good for Ayuk. It's not going to be great for Deebo Samuel either. Gibson or Montgomery. Yeah, this one's super close. All of a sudden, Antonio Gibson is like a pretty valuable asset in fantasy with the Brian Robinson news. I think I would actually go Antonio Gibson over David Montgomery in this one. Good morning, Sam. Love the app and following your account for a while and love it. Thanks, man. I appreciate the positivity from you, Justin. How you feel about Christian Kirk, Juju, Sammy Watkins, or Brandon Cooks? Can only start one. Apps for sure, a 5-star. Thanks, man. Yeah, I would probably lean one of these first two guys, and I'd probably go with Juju. Brandon Cooks, I think, has the highest over-under, though, of all these guys. I think his over-under is around 60.5. He's definitely in play here as well. I wouldn't start Sammy Watkins over any of these three guys, though. Again, I'm starting Sammy Watkins in one league, but over Drake London, and that's like the line for me with Sammy Watkins. And I do like week one Sammy Watkins, don't get me wrong. But I think of all three of the guys that you should consider here, Christian Kirk, Juju, and Brandon Cooks, and this is a full PPR league, Juju probably is the safest floor, and I would argue Christian Kirk has the highest ceiling. So I would ask yourself this: are you trying to just lock in at least 10 points, then go with Juju against a weak Cardinal secondary? Are you trying to shoot for the massive ceiling, then go with Christian Kirk against the Commander secondary? But both guys really good options. I personally, though, I'd probably lean Juju over Christian Kirk. Morning, Sam. WalterPicks champion subscriber here. Thank you so much, Zach. Seriously, the number one way you could possibly support the WalterPicks brand is doing one of the premium subscriptions in the WalterPicks app. Darnell Mooney or Chase Edmonds today, half PPR. I have Fields at QB. Love the app. This one's close. I would probably go with Chase Edmonds, though, in a half PPR league. You're locking in a minimum of 10 touches for Edmonds today. He is a favorite against the Patriots, and I think that the Dolphins could destroy the Patriots today. It's certainly possible. And the Patriots defense also lacks a little bit of speed. That's not going to be good against Chase Edmonds. He's going to see some targets. So I do like Edmonds, I think, in that situation. Sam, I'm in dire need. Start Ayuka the Bazooka, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, or Sammy Watkins, full PPR. Yeah, this one's between Ayuk and Watkins. I wouldn't start Scantling by any means. And Scantling, like, you're just praying for like one deep play. Not that it's that much different for Sammy Watkins, but we know Sammy Watkins is going to be the top receiver for Rodgers today, or at least we can have a decent amount of confidence in that. Rodgers has been telling us all offseason, and you guys might be surprised I'm so confident that Watkins will be the top receiver, but if you just listen to what Rodgers has said this entire offseason, from the very beginning of preseason, Rodgers has said our starting receivers are Sammy Watkins, Allen Lazard, and Randall Cobb. And Allen Lazard's out this week, which thrusts Sammy Watkins into the top receiver position for the Packers. It's not going to be Randall Cobb. I would be shocked. I do think Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, they will get some chances today, but they also could finish this game with zero points. Like that's also possible for them. I like Ayuk, though, probably a little bit more than Sammy Watkins. I would probably go Ayuk. But certainly Watkins is in consideration here. But I would not be considering Sammy Watkins. And Jackson, I would see what Walter thinks about this one. It's probably pretty close. And again, you can do infinite start day comparisons in the WalterPicks app, 100% completely free in the app. Chase Edmonds or ETN, full PPR. Yeah, I think I'd lean ETN in this one. I do like Chase Edmonds a lot, Muhammad, but if you drafted Travis Etienne, this is the week that you got to be starting him. He's going up against a pretty bad defense. At least they were relatively bad last year. They actually were really good against running backs last year. They actually allowed the least total yards per game to running backs last year. That probably won't be quite the case this season. But actually in the WalterPicks app, we have the Washington defense last season ranked number 1 against running backs. But they were last against quarterbacks and receivers. And that was part of the reason they were so bad against running backs, is that they didn't need to stop running backs because they were just letting so many yards to receivers and to quarterbacks, which is why I do like Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram a lot today. But yeah, I think if you drafted Travis Etienne, you got to start him in week 1. This is probably going to be the least workload that we see James Robinson get the whole season. So yeah, this is the week I think you got to be starting Travis Etienne, especially in PPR leagues. What's up, Sam? Full PPR, we got Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson, and Jacobs versus Dillon. Yeah, I'm going Christian Kirk over Deontay Johnson. And there's so many questions about the Steelers offense. I feel like this is the first question maybe we've seen about any Steelers players, which is pretty fascinating. But yeah, Deontay Johnson, I haven't seen any George Pickens questions yet either. I would be starting George Pickens in only the most dire of situations. I would start Sammy Watkins over George Pickens this week. But I am pretty interested to see what the target distribution looks like for the Steelers. The Steelers want to be a run-heavy team, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to be a run-heavy team. Obviously, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, they are going to be involved. Deontay Johnson has been a clear alpha receiver, though, in this offense. For the last 2 to 3 years, he's had over a 20% target share in almost every single game. And as much as I've been saying I'm a little nervous about Deontay Johnson, this season because maybe his play style matched Big Ben's play style a little bit more than it will Mitch Trubisky's. At the same point, you do earn targets, and Deontay Johnson has clearly earned his targets over the last couple of years, and he's been one of the most consistent fantasy producers in the league. Guys, Deontay Johnson last season, he had only one game under 10 fantasy points. In that one game, he scored 9.8 fantasy points. He was a top 32, top 34 receiver in almost every single week in fantasy. So, like, he does have, I think, a better opportunity than maybe we've been giving him credit for. But I think I would still go Christian Kirk, though, over Deontay Johnson. All that being said, and I would go both these receivers in full PPR over both these running backs. I'm going AJ Dillon, though, over Josh Jacobs. I'm nervous about Josh Jacobs in week 1. I think if he doesn't score a touchdown, you're going to be in some trouble. All right, let me pull up my top 10 tight ends because, guys, the tight end position, it's so bleak already in fantasy. It happens every year, but this year's absolutely no different. Let me show you my top 10 tight ends. You'll see at the end here, like, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. I like Cole Kmet a decent amount. Irv Smith, Robert Tonyan, both coming off injuries. Unclear how much exactly they're going to be involved. David Njoku, I do think, could see a lot of targets. I would play Irv Smith over Gerald Everett, though. Nico in Houston. Yeah, I can't wait to see Nico Collins ball out today as well. I do think the Texans have a real chance to beat the Colts today. That wouldn't be that shocking. I think the Texans are relatively underrated across the league right now, but I am taking the Colts, I think, to win that game. I do think I took the Texans, though, against the spread. Montgomery or Pierce, I would probably lean towards David Montgomery over Dameon Pierce. I would play Dameon Pierce over Breece Hall, though, in week 1. And I'm definitely starting Zeke. Kylo, start Zeke over Miles Sanders. This one's easy. Hey, Sam, been a subscriber for a while now. Thanks, man. We are looking between Kareem Hunt, Ramondre Stevenson, or Breece Hall, and then Robert Woods or Chris Olave. I'd go Olave over Woods in week 1. I would definitely go Ramondre Stevenson over Breece Hall and over Kareem Hunt. I'm really fascinated to see how this Browns offense operates. The Browns have had one of the worst week 1 success rates over the last decade, which isn't that surprising when you think about how bad the Browns have been over the last decade. But I don't know exactly how much run Kareem Hunt's going to get. I'd assume it's going to be close to what it was last season or over the last 2 years where we've seen Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb together. But that gives him a relatively low floor if Nick Chubb's going to get the goal line work and Nick Chubb's going to get 60% of the carries. I would go Ramondre Stevenson. Again, I think that even though I think we spelled his first and last name wrong here, Brandon, Ramondre Stevenson is how we spelled it. But Ramondre Stevenson is in a pretty good spot today against the Dolphins, who I think are going to beat the Patriots. They are 3-point favorites against the Patriots. I don't think the Patriots defense matches up well at all against this Dolphins offense. The Patriots defense, one of its big weaknesses is speed. And who are they up against in week 1? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Chase Edmonds. That's a big problem. In my opinion, I also think Tua is being largely slept on across the league as an accurate quarterback that really can run this offense really well. So I'm nervous for the Patriots. And that makes me more confident about Mondre in PPR leagues too, because if they are trailing, it's Mondre that could easily lead this backfield in touches. It's Mondre that could also carve out an interesting red zone role. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see how the Patriots backfield plays out. Obviously, if they get a lead, that benefits, I think, Damian Harris a little bit more. But I still think Mondre will be involved. So he sort of will be involved no matter what happens in the game. With Damian Harris, if the Patriots fall behind, he could just be completely left out of the game plan. Besides command prompt, what other Windows utility that can be used to run IP config? Yeah, this is not the question for me. But this is an absolutely hilarious question, so I did want to pull it up. Hey, Sam, I'm so excited for week 1, but was just wondering if you could choose 2. Bateman, Mooney, Penny, or Ayuka, the bazooka, and pick one Renfro or Penny. Yeah, this is the first Rashad Penny question we've gotten, and I do like Rashad Penny this week. And I don't like the Seahawks at all in week 1. I'm nervous for DK Metcalf, although I do think he has a pretty high ceiling. I'm nervous for Tyler Lockett. I do think he has a pretty high ceiling. I'm not that nervous for Rashad Penny, though, because Kenneth Walker is almost definitely not going to play. They did list him as questionable, but he hasn't practiced all week. He hasn't practiced in weeks since his hernia injury. And we've seen Rashad Penny have some massive, massive, massive games over the backstretch of last season. If you just look, I know it's a small sample for Rashad Penny, but he's probably going to get 20 touches this week. And if he does, he could be a top 5 running back. Like, that's within his range of outcomes. The only time we've seen Rashad Penny get over 20 touches, he's had 32.5 fantasy points and 25 fantasy points. Both were top 5 at the running back position in fantasy those given weeks. And we could see something similar this week. I do think the Broncos will destroy the Seahawks, though, so he could sort of get phased out of the game as well. But guys, Rashad Penny went over 130 yards, total yards, in 4 of his last 5 games last season, and he has no competition for carries or targets in week 1. Kenneth Walker, he's doubtful for week 1. Chris Carson retired this offseason. It's like him and Travis Homer. He has no competition. So yeah, I do like Rashad Penny a lot. I would probably take him in a lot of situations. I do like Renfro a lot too, though. If this is a PPR league, I'd probably lean Renfro. If it's not a PPR league, I'd probably lean Penny. And this is why I do recommend asking your start-sit questions also in the WalterPicks app, in the iOS and Android app store, which you can download completely free, because you can do infinite start-sit comparisons this season in the app. And it takes into account your custom settings. And a lot of times these comments, like, I don't know if this is PPR, half PPR, non-PPR, and that does have a really big impact. And the app will know that stuff. You can tell the app that stuff. So I would probably lean Renfro PPR, Penny if it's not PPR, and then Mooney, Penny, or Ayuk, and Bateman. Yeah, I'd probably go with these first two, Bateman and Darnell Mooney. And I'm not worried about the rain in the Bears game. Not a start sit, but Jameson Lee Crowder looked pretty elite on Thursday when he was looked at. Agreed, man. I would be so pumped for Jameson Lee Crowder to win a Super Bowl. It seems like he's going to have a decent chance to have a pretty big role for the Bills. He is a good veteran presence for them. And yeah, he did look #elite for the Bills this other night. So glad to see Jameson Elite Crowder still kicking. Do you think Ryan Tannehill will get a rushing TD or go under 194.5 passing yards? Yeah, both these I think are well possible. I wouldn't bet on a rushing TD though for Tannehill, and I would probably take the over at 194.5. That seems pretty low to me. But I also we don't know how this passing attack is going to look, and if the Titans do get a lead, they're just going to run and run and run and run. In which case he could easily go under 200 passing yards. So this one's both really close. I'm more confident that he doesn't score a rushing TD though, that he does go under 194.5. passing yards. All right, let me pull up my picks against the spread again to see some people asking about that. Penny or Judy? I would probably lean Penny over Judy. That's obviously a Monday night question, but Judy does have a really high ceiling too. I just think the Broncos could destroy the Seahawks, in which case they might not need to pass that much. So I would probably lean Rashad Penny as the safer option than Jerry Judy in week 1. Higgins, Pittman, or Marquise Brown. I like all three of these guys, but I'm playing Marquise Brown in every single scenario, basically. I have him as my number 7 wide receiver this week. I have him ahead of Michael Pittman. I have him ahead of Tyreek Hill. I have him ahead of A.J. Brown. I have him ahead of whoever that third, I think T. Higgins. I don't think T. Higgins is in my top 10. I think he's close to number 11 or number 12. So, yeah, I'm starting Marquise Brown. There's no Rondale Moore. There's no DeAndre Hopkins. They're playing the Chiefs of all teams, who are going to put up a lot of points against a weak Cardinals secondary, and the Chiefs secondary isn't anything to write home about. So I'm definitely feeling good about Marquise Hollywood Brown in week 1. A.J. Dillon or Travis Etienne, again, pretty much all these Travis Etienne questions. This could definitely be a swing and a miss for me in week 1, but I think the logic here makes sense. Like, you got to start Travis Etienne. If you drafted Travis Etienne, you probably drafted him in the first 5 rounds of your fantasy drafts. There's potentially not going to be a week where we're more confident about his workload than week 1, where James Robinson is almost definitely going to be eased in. I'm certainly benching James Robinson in all formats. I think Travis Etienne's it's sort of an auto start in week 1, especially in PPR formats. Hey, Sam, you are the GOAT. Thanks, man. Rashad Bateman, Tony, or Michael Carter at flex, full PPR. Guys, by the way, we are live on YouTube and TikTok. You see me pulling up a lot of these comments on the screen. If you're watching live on TikTok, you can come to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. I will answer comments on both, but I do like being able to pull up the comments from YouTube, which I'm not able to do from TikTok. So you can hop in the YouTube live as well if you want to try to get your comment pulled up on the screen. I would probably go Bateman in this situation at full flex PPR. I actually think this one's pretty easy. I got a comment in the TikTok live I think is an interesting one. Cortland Sutton, Nico Collins, or Amari Cooper. I just love that Nico Collins is even in consideration here. But yeah, you got to go Cortland Sutton, I think, over Amari Cooper and over Nico Collins. Happy football, Sam. This is Christmas morning for me, man. This is Christmas morning. This is the best, maybe the best day of the year. Pollard or Edmonds, half PPR. I'm going Edmonds over Pollard. I think Edmonds has a more clear path to touches than Tony Pollard does. I really like Tony Pollard this week. He's actually my free player prop today, which you can't find in the WalterPicks app. You can only find on this live stream. It's Tony Pollard over 21.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to be much more involved as a receiver than people are expecting this season. There's been reports left and right this whole offseason, and this happens every year. But with Tony Pollard, I think this is true because he's a better receiver than Noah Brown. He's a better receiver than Jalen Tolbert. And these are the top 2 receivers after CeeDee Lamb on the Cowboys right now. So, yeah, I think Tony Pollard's going to see some run in the slot. I think he's going to go over 21.5 receiving yards, but I'm still starting Chase Edmonds over Tony Pollard, especially in a half PPR league where those receptions count as less, because I think Edmonds will be involved as a receiver too. And I think Edmonds is going to be more involved as a runner than Tony Pollard as well. Michael Thomas or Darius Toney, yeah, I'd lean Michael Thomas in this situation. I think you want to be starting Michael Thomas in a game where we know he's playing, and he's playing the Michael Thomas, guys. Like, his career against the Falcons is absolutely astronomical. Like, he maybe has number 3, like top 3 overall wide receiver up against the Falcons historically. Obviously, he's in a much different situation this season and in this week. He has a lot of risk, but the upside's there. I think you've got to be starting Michael Thomas in most situations. Hey, Sam, love catching your lives on Sunday before football. Thanks, Jacob. Need 2 of these following in the flex spot: Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton, Edward Slayer, Chase Edmonds. Full PPR. Thanks, dude. I got you, Jacob. And I do really appreciate if you could toss a 5-star review for the WalterPicks app in the App Store. It takes you like 5 seconds. But yeah, I would probably go with these first 2 guys in this situation. I would rank these guys, by the way. I would go Mike Williams 1, Cortland Sutton 2, or Cortland Sutton 1, Mike Williams 2. Those guys are definitely close. Sort of similar options, honestly. And then I would probably say Chase Edmonds 3, Clyde 4. I am intrigued to see how Clyde does in week 1. I'm rooting for Clyde. I have him in an insane amount of best ball leagues. I think he was a top 5 running back drafted for me in best ball leagues, but I was getting him in like round 9, round 8. So I'm not starting him over any of these guys. But yeah, I would go Mike Williams and Cortland Sutton. I think both guys have really, really high upside this week. Thanks for tuning into the live, by the way. I really appreciate everyone, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. And we're just getting started. It's only 10 a.m. Eastern time. I got another 2.5 hours on this live. So if I haven't gotten to your question yet, I'm gonna do my best to get there. I will talk about every single game on this live too. Let's see if there's a game we haven't talked much about. There is. We haven't talked very much about this Eagles-Lions game. Eagles are only 5-point favorites in Detroit today. I'm assuming it's in Detroit just because they're only 5-point favorites in this game. I like the Eagles to beat the Lions, but the Lions are a lot like one of people's favorite sleeper teams this year. They should be improved pretty much across the board. Defensively, offensive line, they have a probably top 5 offensive line in the league, but their run defense I don't think is going to be able to hold up. Rushing attack and Jalen Hurts with the addition of A.J. Brown. I'm not feeling good about the Lions' chances this week. I think you do need to start A.J. Brown in basically all situations. I do have Marquise Hollywood Brown ahead of A.J. Brown this week, but I do still think I'm starting A.J. Brown in basically all situations. I have A.J. Brown as my number 9 receiver. I have Jalen Hurts as my number 3 quarterback. So, yeah, you got to be starting all of those guys. I don't feel great about Miles Sanders, who scored 0 rushing touchdowns last year despite almost having 1,000 rushing yards. Absolutely ridiculous for Miles Sanders last season. They just hate giving Miles Sanders fantasy points. But the other thing that I'm concerned about with Miles Sanders is he's literally already said, he told us this offseason. And this is, I don't think I've seen this in my history of covering fantasy football, which is pretty long at this point, pretty extensive. We've never really seen a player just outright come out and say, yeah, stop drafting me in fantasy football. Do not start me in fantasy football, coming straight from Miles Sanders' mouth. He literally told us, don't draft me. Like, I'm not getting a big enough workload to be usable in fantasy football. Stop yelling at me on the streets about fantasy football. Just stop drafting me. Miles Sanders hates fantasy football, and I can understand why. Because he is the most talented running back, very clearly. Most talented running back for the Eagles. He's probably a top 15 talented running back in the league. I mean, this dude's been extremely efficient on the ground since he's entered the league. But he doesn't get very many targets, and he doesn't get the goal line work. Boston Scott is probably going to steal targets, and he's probably going to steal goal line work, and we're like not going to be that surprising. If we see Boston Scott get some run today, it's not going to be that surprising when we see Kenneth Gainwell get some run today. I think both guys are going to steal work from Miles Sanders. I don't think Miles Sanders gets even half the touches in this backfield today. So, yeah, I'm not trusting Miles Sanders very much today. Hey, Sam, been subscribed since less than 100 subs. This is true OG, Zach. And make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. You can still be a true OG of the WalterPicks brand if you subscribe to our YouTube and follow us on TikTok, because we're really still just getting started. Like, this is year 3 for me, but we're in still the beginning of what's going to be a long stretch of fantasy dominance for the WalterPicks brand. Michael Thomas, Elijah Mitchell, or Deontay Johnson, full PPR. This one's really tough. I'm not going to lie. My heart's telling me Michael Thomas, but my brain is telling me Deontay Johnson in this situation again. Let me just read you off this stat, and this might be all you need to really make this decision. And again, I like Michael Thomas against the Falcons. This is a game we know Michael Thomas is playing. Who knows how many games Michael Thomas is going to play? But there's definitely a lot of risk with Michael Thomas, a lot more than Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, he had only a single game, one game. He played every game last year, except maybe he missed one game last year. I think he missed week 7. Maybe that was his bye week. I don't know. But he only had one game under 10 points last year in PPR leagues, only a single game. And in that game, he scored 9.8 points. So that barely even counts as under 10 points. He was a top 40 wide receiver in every single game last year. Like the consistency from Deontay Johnson over the last few years, he's had over a 20% target share in almost every single game that he's played in. So there's a really high floor, I think, with Deontay Johnson. I would probably go Deontay Johnson in this situation, but I do think Michael Thomas has the highest ceiling of these three guys. And because it's the PPR league, I think you got to think receiver over running back in these PPR leagues in the flex spot. If you're trying to win the flex spot, you got to go receiver over running back in PPR leagues. And it sort of completely flips as you go down the scoring spectrum. Like if there's no points for receptions, then you should probably go running back over receiver because the carries are more valuable than targets in that format. Thoughts on Trey Lance? Yeah, I think you really should be starting Trey Lance with confidence in week 1 against the Bears. I'm not spooked about Trey Lance. A lot of people getting spooked about Trey Lance. Oh, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's still on the team. That's a little spooky. It's not that spooky. It really isn't. They've been saying all offseason, this is Trey Lance's team. Look what we've seen from Trey Lance. It's a really small sample size, but we do have some sample from Trey Lance, and it is pretty exciting, guys. Trey Lance, he could be number 2 at the quarterback position this season in rushing yards only after Lamar Jackson. That is very, very, very possible. We've seen him really play like 3 games, and in those 3 games, he has rushed a lot. He had 41 rushing yards in his first game against the Seahawks. He had 89 rushing yards in that next game where he threw the ball 29 times. He still had 89 rushing yards. We could see 100-yard rushing performances from Trey Lance this season, and that will make him easily a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. I have him ranked number 9 in week 1, and I think if you drafted him as your starting quarterback in fantasy, you got to be starting him against a Bears defense that really isn't that scary. So yeah, I am not spooked about Trey Lance yet, and I think he is the best bet to be this year's Jalen Hurts. But I think the funny part about trying to find this year's Jalen Hurts is it might actually be Jalen Hurts again this year. And I know Jalen Hurts was getting picked much later last year, which is why I think Trey Lance is the better fit for this year's Jalen Hurts in fantasy, at least, because he's getting drafted right where Jalen Hurts was getting drafted last year. But Jalen Hurts, guys, like when I say this year's Jalen Hurts, it's a guy that we know he has rushing upside, which is huge for quarterbacks in fantasy football. But it's also a guy that we know can improve as a passer. And yeah, Jalen Hurts fits that again. This year, we know he can rush the ball. He's probably going to be top 3, top 4 at the quarterback position in rushing yards per game. But then he adds A.J. Brown. All reports this offseason, too, have been that Hurts has looked like an improved passer. Some reports even that it's like the most improvement anyone's ever seen from a quarterback passing the ball. I think that might be a little bit of a stretch. But Jalen Hurts was already a top 6 fantasy quarterback last season. He adds A.J. Brown. He could easily be top 5 this year. I have him as number 3 in week 1. Obviously, Josh Allen already played. Matt Stafford already played as well. Stafford wouldn't have been ahead of Jalen Hurts, but obviously Josh Allen would have been. Lance or Dak? I'm going Lance over Dak, 100%. I don't have Dak in my top 10 quarterback rankings. It's tough to put Dak in your top 10 when you look at his receiving options. Obviously, Dak is a very good quarterback, but he doesn't run the ball, and he is only really throwing to CeeDee Lamb. After that, it's Dalton Schultz, not terrible. I like Tony Pollard as sort of the third receiving option there. But yeah, I'm pretty nervous for Dak in week 1. I would be starting Trey Lance over Dak Prescott in week 1. Russell or Tua? I would lean Russell Wilson over Tua as well. I have Russell Wilson as my number 8 quarterback, 1 spot ahead of Trey Lance. I don't hate Tua, though, and I think Tua is really being slapped down across the league. I think Tua and Trevor Lawrence, I started the stream talking about this, but the 2 quarterbacks I think are most slept on heading into the season, Tua and Trevor Lawrence. Both guys are in substantially better situations than they were last year. Both guys did show some interesting flashes of really promising upside last year and they're in such a better spot. Trevor Lawrence, I mean, like this is basically Trevor Lawrence's rookie season. He wasn't even getting all the first team reps in the beginning of his rookie season. I think it was Gardner Minshew. I could be wrong about who it was. I think it was Gardner Minshew, though, that he was splitting reps with because Urban Meyer was kicking around. So I feel very confident about Trevor Lawrence today. I'm actually playing Evan Ingram in basically all of my DraftKings lineups. Let me pull up my DraftKings lineup again. I don't necessarily recommend tossing Evan Ingram in all of your DraftKings lineups. It's definitely a high-risk move, but I do think he has a lot more upside than people are giving him credit for as an every down player for the Jaguars team against a Washington Commanders team that allowed the most passing yards per game to quarterbacks last season. Start Debo or Hollywood. That one's definitely tough. I think I have Debo ahead of, I do have Debo Samuel ahead of Marquise Brown. So yeah, I would go Debo in that situation. There's only really 6 receivers I'm starting over Marquise Brown, though, and he's one of them. I'm starting Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Debo Samuel, and Mike Evans over Marquise Brown, but that's it. I mean, there's only 6 guys. So you should probably be able to find a spot for Marquise Brown. Again, here's my DraftKings lineup of the day. I do have other lineups running today too. Almost all of them have Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram in them. I'm making that bet in week 1 that I think that they are going to surprise people this week against Washington. But the other sort of consistent theme I have in a lot of my DraftKings lineup, Saquon Barkley and the Giants defense stack. I think the Titans offense could underwhelm, and I think the Giants defense could get some pressure on Ryan Tannehill, especially if they're able to get a lead, which I think is very possible. And I'm excited to see what Brian Dable is able to do with his Giants offense, because they cannot be worse than they were last year. It's basically impossible for the Giants offense to be worse than they were last year. I know that's not necessarily saying that much, but it is something at least that we know they're going to be better than they were last year. All right, let's get back to some of the comments. We are about an hour and a half into this live. Lance or Brady? I think I have Brady probably ahead of Lance in my QB rankings. Let me pull up my QB rankings again. And yeah, I do have Tom Brady 2 spots ahead of Trey Lance. I'd probably go Tom Brady. Edmonds or Amari at flex? Amari Cooper is a very interesting week 1 option. He is really the only target for Jacoby Brissett, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm confident about Jacoby Brissett and his ability to throw the ball, but Amari Cooper is just so clearly the top target that I don't think you'd be crazy for going to Amari Cooper there. I am starting Amari Cooper in a couple leagues this week. Amari Cooper is one of these guys. I didn't go into a single draft hoping I was going to get Amari Cooper. I don't think anyone went into drafts hoping they were going to get Amari Cooper, but then we're sitting around in the 7th, the 8th round, and Amari Cooper, the clear top target for the Browns, who also in the fantasy playoffs is going to be catching passes from Deshaun Watson. Like, I think Amari Cooper might have ended up being an absolute snag in fantasy drafts with where he ended up going, even though he really wasn't that exciting of a pick. But I think at cost, Amari Cooper could end up being a steal in fantasy drafts. Michael Thomas or Christian Kirk? I'd go Kirk over Michael Thomas this week. ETN or Deontay Johnson PPR? This one's, again, really close. I'd probably go Deontay over ETN, but it's certainly close. Philip, great to see you back in the live, man. I appreciate you as well. Pick 2, Amon-Ra, Pollard, and Mooney, half PPR. I'd go with the first and third options here, Amon-Ra and Mooney. I think they have the highest ceiling here. I do like Tony Pollard. Again, I like him. I would bench Tony Pollard, but then I would go snag the Tony Pollard over 21.5 receiving yards prop, because I think that's absolute cash. I think he's going to go at least 30 receiving yards. I think you could do this with even just 1 catch, but all he needs is 2 catches. And I think he's going to see 4-5 targets at least tonight against the Buccaneers. But I think Mooney and Amon-Ra, they have a much higher receiving ceiling than that. And we know Zeke's going to get probably the goal line work and the vast majority of the carries for the Cowboys. So yeah, I'm out on Pollard over Amon-Ra and over Darnell Mooney, but I am starting Pollard in some sort of dire running back situations. Like, for me, the line with Tony Pollard at the running back spot, I'm starting Chase Edmonds over Tony Pollard. Then I think we can start sort of considering Tony Pollard. Dotson or Pickens, full PPR. Nick, finally someone asking the tough questions. Thanks for tuning in, by the way, Nick. Do appreciate it. I think this is a really good, really interesting question. I personally would probably go with Dotson over Pickens, but I think almost every other person in every other site, and even the WalterPicks app, would probably tell you Pickens over Dotson. I don't think anyone's even thinking about just Jahan Dotson this week. And I do have him in some of my Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram stacks on DraftKings for this exact reason. I think Jahan Dotson is going to see close to a 90% snap share for Washington. I think the Jaguars are going to put up points against Washington. This game all of a sudden could become a shootout. It has one of the lowest over-unders of the week. I don't hate the over in this game either. I think Jahan Dotson could score a touchdown today. I think he could easily get 50-plus receiving yards as well. I think he's a little bit safer than George Pickens. I think George Pickens, though, probably has a higher ceiling than Jahan, because Pickens is just all around a better player than Dotson. I think he has a little bit more exciting ceiling, but he has much, much, much more competition. Like, after Terry McLaurin, it's Jahan Dotson. After Deontay Johnson, I'm not so sure it's George Pickens. It might be Chase Claypool. It might be Pat Freiermuth. It could even be Najee Harris. So if George Pickens to compete with, that's what I'm most concerned about here. So yeah, I would actually go Jahan Dotson, but I'm definitely out on a limb there because I feel like nobody's talking about Jahan Dotson this week. I think he's going to be extremely low owned. Sam, love to see you back. You as well, Tad. Thoughts on starting Breece Hall? Yeah, I'm out on starting Breece Hall in week 1. And I'm sort of playing like both sides of the coin here, which might not seem fair, but you got to hear me out on this one. Breece Hall, all indications are Michael Carter is going to be starting running back, and that he's going to get at least half of the backfield. And this isn't like increasingly more worrisome because we know Michael Carter is also a good receiver. So it's not like Michael Carter is just going to get the carries and Breece Hall is going to get the targets, because I would be fine starting Breece Hall if that was the case. But Michael Carter was actually a really good receiver out of the backfield last year too, so he could get maybe half or more of the targets as well. I think Breece Hall is extremely talented. I'm holding on to Breece Hall in fantasy football if I have him. I didn't draft him in very many leagues because I thought the price was a little high, but I also thought that Breece Hall might get off to a slow start. And I think that's what's going to happen. So when Breece Hall gets off to a slow start, again, I'm not starting him this week if I have him, but I'm sending a lot of trade offers for Breece Hall after this week, after week 2, after week 3, because Breece Hall was clearly the most talented running back in this draft class. He's been one of the most exciting prospects at the running back position that we've seen in the last 5 years. He has the athletic profile of Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley. He has no injury history, and he was a beast in college, 24 straight games in college with a touchdown. That is a college football record, and it wasn't like he was playing no name teams. He was scoring touchdowns every single week for 24 straight weeks. That's over multiple seasons, and some of those games were against top 25, even top 10 college football teams. So yeah, I'm in on Breece Hall, the talent. He's also a very good receiver. He's extremely good in the open field. I'm out on the Jets offense in general, though, and I think that he could start really slow with Michael Carter getting a lot of the work. So yeah, I'm not starting Breece Hall in week 1, but I'm keeping my eye pretty close on Breece Hall, and I'm very intrigued to see how he does in his first game, because if he does start slow, I'm sending offers definitely for Breece Hall. Wentz or Tua and Ertz or Komet. Yeah, you can't start Zach Ertz this week. He's battling a calf injury. He's getting up there in age. There isn't very much target competition because Rondale Moore is out, DeAndre Hopkins is out, but I am nervous that either something could pop back up with his calf injury for Zach Ertz, or they could just limit his snaps, and that's not good. So I would go Komet over Ertz. I do like Komet a decent amount. I think I have Komet as my number 7 tight end actually this week, so he's actually a really good option. Komet is checking a lot of boxes for fantasy this season. I drafted Cole Komet a decent amount. If I punted the tight end position, my tight end strategy in fantasy, I was pretty transparent about this all offseason. It was I want one of the top 3 guys, Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, basically in round 1, 2, or 3. If I missed on those guys, I was shooting for Dalton Schultz in like round 6. And if I missed on all of them, I was just completely punting the tight end position. A lot of times that meant snagging Cole Komet in like round 10 or 11, or even Evan Ingram in the last round. Yeah, I would go Komet over Ertz. I would go Tua over Wentz as well. I'm nervous. I'm wearing a Pats jersey. I'm rocking my Julian Edelman jersey because my only other Pats jersey I have is N'Keal Harry. Obviously, I can't be rocking that these days. So I'm going to be rocking my Julian Edelman jersey for most of the season. I think I got to get a new Pats jersey. But yeah, I'm nervous for the Pats this week. I'm probably the most pessimistic Pats fan you'll find. It feels like there's more and more and more of us recently, the pessimistic Pats fans, but the defense is not matching up well against a very fast Dolphins offense. And the offense is also in a pretty scary situation as well, with the offensive line sort of in shambles. So yeah, I'm betting on Tua, and I'm betting on Komet in this situation for sure. Hey Sam, 2-year holder of the app. Love it. Tyler, thanks, man. Man, if you've been in the WalterPicks app for 2 years too, it's pretty cool to see how much it's changed and improved over the last 2 years. Like 2 years ago, the app was entirely different and really entirely worse than it was now. And we're going to keep delivering on that. We're going to keep improving it. I'm hoping 2 years from today, Tyler, we look back at the WalterPicks app and be like, wow, that was actually much, 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 much worse than what the app is today. We're going to keep improving it for sure. So really do appreciate you sticking around. Gibson or Dameon Pierce, keep up the good work. Thank you for the positivity, Tyler. I would probably lean Antonio Gibson over Dameon Pierce. I've been one of the biggest Dameon Pierce deniers, though, this offseason. So definitely take my Dameon Pierce takes with a small grain of salt, because they could be seeping in to me having 0 Dameon Pierce in any fantasy leagues. I thought his price got completely out of control. But let me explain why. I don't think he has a receiving role in this offense. He's getting drafted next to guys. He's getting drafted ahead of Chase Edmonds, who I think has a pretty clear receiving role for the Dolphins. And so in PPR leagues, I'm sort of out on Dameon Pierce. I do think he's talented. I think Antonio Gibson's talented too, though. So I would probably go Gibson over Pierce this week. I'm very intrigued, though, to see how Dameon Pierce looks in his first game in the NFL. Juju or Judy? Yeah, I can't believe it. But here we are in week 1. And I've been in the Judy over Sutton camp, like just slightly. I don't feel super confident about Judy over Sutton for the season, but I have been in that camp for pretty much the entire offseason. And almost nobody else is in that camp with me heading into week 1. But I'd still start Juju over Judy, because I'm not naive enough to think, even though I like Judy as a separator more than I like Sutton. Jeudy was number 1 in the NFL last year in target separation, and he was close to dead last in target accuracy. Like those two things combined, then you add Russell Wilson, one of the most accurate deep passers in the league. Like Judy's going to break out, I think, this season, but I still feel better about Juju in week 1 against the Cardinals. The Cardinals secondary was so bad last year, guys. They did very little to improve this offseason. I think Juju's going to eat in the slot today, and I think he's one of the safest bets in PPR leagues especially. It would be really surprising to me if Juju doesn't score at least 10 fantasy points. I think Judy has a maybe a higher ceiling. It's probably pretty close, but Juju has a much safer floor. So I would go Juju over Judy. And I can't believe how many people I'm telling to bench Judy this week because, again, I'm really bullish on Judy over the course of the season. Bateman or Elijah Moore. This one's close. These guys are playing each other. Two really talented year 2 wide receivers. By the way, Brad, if you drafted Rashad Bateman and Elijah Moore, like you know what you're doing in fantasy football because these are the exact type of receivers you want to be targeting in fantasy. Year 2 wide receivers, the most common breakout year for receiver is year 2. Guys that showed a lot of promise in the rookie season, but Elijah Moore showed us a lot more than Bateman in their rookie season. So I would go Elijah Moore in this situation. I feel a lot better about Lamar than I do about Joe Flacco. But Elijah Moore, he was averaging almost 16 fantasy points per game in the backstretch of last season. He was balling out, and a lot of those games were with Joe Flacco, were with Mike White. So I feel okay with Elijah Moore. He is a worse matchup, a worse quarterback, and I'm still playing him, I think, over Rashad Bateman this week. But definitely 2 good receivers for you to have throughout the course of the season. Xavier's back. Do appreciate the 5-star review. Walter says Irv over AJ Green, over Jalen Tolbert. Yeah, I think I would probably go AJ Green over Irv Smith. I hate starting 2 tight ends, man. Like, you're really putting yourself in a corner by starting 2 tight ends. Tight ends are so bleak. AJ Green, I think, is a little bit safer than Irv Smith. So I'd probably go AJ Green over Irv Smith. We got an Irv Smith, Andrew Yun in the YouTube live asking Irv Smith or Mo Alley Cox. I would go Irv Smith over Mo Alley Cox, but I do think Mo Alley Cox is pretty intriguing this week. How do you feel about David Montgomery? Sabrina is asking in the YouTube live. I don't feel amazing about David Montgomery. I'm a little nervous. Khalil Herbert could be more involved. David Montgomery's been one of these guys in fantasy who has seen huge workloads in the past, and this has really propped up his fantasy value. He was number 9 in the league in carries last year, but he had the second highest snap share. He had 75% of the snaps for the Bears last year. I wouldn't be shocked if we see both those numbers go down a little bit. He was also number 5 in red zone touches last year. I won't be surprised if that goes down a little bit this year either. But overall, I still think the back end running back too, and can be started in a lot of situations. Mooney or Kirk? I like Kirk a little bit more than Mooney this week, but it's definitely close, and they're really similar options. Both guys, the entrenched receiver on their team, both guys going to be running very deep routes, getting very deep targets, valuable targets on their teams. But I like Kirk just a tiny bit more than Mooney because I like Trevor Lawrence a tiny bit more than Justin Fields and his ability to throw the ball deep and have a good day, especially Washington secondary that was last in the league against quarterbacks last season. So yeah, I do really like Kirk this week. I have a Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram, Kirk stacks this week. Been here for an hour and 30 minutes. Thanks, man. I really do appreciate that. And I do appreciate you tossing a 5-star review. The picks up as well. Marquise Brown, Waddle, Amon-Ra, or MT. If you've been here for an hour and a half, you know I'm starting Marquise Brown this week in all situations. I have him as my number 7. Let me pull up my wide receiver rankings again. I have him as my number 7 wide receiver. And again, if I'm not getting to your start sit question, look at this thing scrolling at the bottom of the screen because this will help answer a lot of start sits. But also definitely check out the WalterPicks app as well for your start sit questions where you can ask infinite start sits this season for free. But yeah, I would go Marquise Brown 100% here. I would probably go with these first 3 guys, honestly. Marquise Brown, Waddle, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I do want to get as much out of Amon-Ra St. Brown early in the season as I can before Jameson Williams returns. So yeah, I would probably go with these first 3. I definitely would go with the first 2, though, Marquise and Waddle. And then I think MT versus Amon-Ra is really close. I do want to start MT against the Falcons, but I think Amon-Ra is just so much safer. So I would probably go with him. And then Derek Carr or Prescott. Thanks, bro. Yeah, I'd go Derek Carr over Prescott. Like I said earlier, and let me pull up the quarterback rankings here, you want pieces of this Chargers-Raiders game. And I think this is probably the best tiebreaker to do when making start-sit decisions. It's just like looking at the game and asking yourself, is this going to be a high-scoring game or low-scoring game? In this Chargers-Raiders game, it's going to be a high scoring game. It has the highest over under of the week. So yeah, you want pieces of that game. I'm thrilled with Derek Carr with his first week with Devontae Adams and J.C. Jackson is out for the Chargers too, their top corner who they picked up this offseason. So yeah, I'm in on the Raiders offense. Kittle is out. Yep, Kittle's out. Really, really tough L for all the teams that drafted George Kittle. You hate to see it, but hopefully he is able to come back pretty soon. Probably by week 3, we're going to see George Kittle back. Robert Tonyan or Albert gave a 5-star review. Thank you for that. I would probably lean towards Tonyan over Albert O. I think you'll probably get a lot of different answers if you ask a lot of different people this one. But I think Robert Tonyan and just the situation for the Packers. One sec. Let me turn my AC off. I'll be right back. It's getting chilly in here. I do think that Robert Tonyan and just the offensive situation for the Packers is better than the Broncos situation. Look at the target competition for Robert Tonyan. It's Sammy Watkins, it's Randall Cobb, and then it's 2 rookies in Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. We also have A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. We know they will be involved, but at the same time, I feel better about Tonyan's chances of a TD than Albert O's. And this is at this point, when your top tight end is out and you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for Tonyan or Albert O, you're just praying one of them falls into the end zone. Because if they don't fall in the end zone, they're both probably going under 6 fantasy points. Like, that's how bleak it is. Just ask everyone that started Dawson Knox on Thursday night. He had 1 catch, didn't fall in the end zone. He finished under 2 points. This is what it's like at the tight end position after the top guys. This is why it makes sense in fantasy to invest in early pick in the top guys, which you did, but you're eating an L with the George Kittle injury, obviously. So I would lean Tonyan, but Albert O, like, really comparable option. It's certainly close. Ayuka the Bazooka, Bobby Trees, or Zeke Elliott. Yeah, it's got to be Zeke. Start Zeke, guys. If you drafted Zeke, week 1, you have to start Zeke. Like, there's no way around it. You need to be starting Zeke when we know he is fully healthy. I do really think you got to be starting Zeke in basically all situations. We got a Gerald Everett versus the Mo Alley Cox. I would go with Gerald Everett over Mo Alley Cox, I think, as well. I just like the game environment more than I do for Mo Alley. Again, you want pieces of this Chargers-Raiders game, even if that means you're tossing and he falls down. I like that bet a little bit more than Mo Alley Cox. Again, though, I mean, you're scraping such the bottom of the barrel with these questions that it could really, really easily go either way. It's all about which guy ends up falling into the end zone. Otherwise, they're both going to score under 6 fantasy points. Hey, Sam, I only have Akers and Saquon on my roster. Yikes. Should I trade Bateman for Breece Hall? Jonah, I would hold off. You hold on until we see what Breece Hall does. Because if Breece Hall starts slow, you might not need to give Bateman to get Breece Hall. But yeah, you're going to have to make some moves. Because, guys, Cam Akers is dust. Cam Akers is, like, I'm sounding the alarms with Cam Akers. I've actually been pretty surprised how not everybody seems to be sounding the alarm with Cam Akers. A lot of people, somehow still have some hope for Cam Akers this season. I have no hope for Cam Akers this season. And actually, I was out on Cam Akers the second I saw he picked up a hamstring injury in training camp. I stopped completely stopped drafting Cam Akers. We have never seen a running back return from an Achilles tear and be relevant in fantasy football. It's never happened. We have like a 10 running back sample size over the last 10 years, and it's never happened. I do think medicine's getting better. I do think maybe James Robinson, maybe he's going to be the first guy that can come back and be relevant in fantasy. But I'm not betting against this really bad trend for running backs coming off Achilles injuries. I'm fully out on Cam Akers. I'm not going to be surprised if he's on the waiver wire in a few weeks. So yeah, I'm fully panic mode on Cam Akers if I have him. Luckily, I didn't have him in any leagues because of those early injury reports in preseason. I was fading him. But yeah, you're going to want to make a move. And I actually do like the idea of trading for Breece Hall, though. So I don't hate Bateman for Breece Hall, especially if you have good receivers. But I think after the first few weeks, you might be able to get Breece Hall for less than that. Broncos or Saints. I'm assuming we're talking about defenses here. I would go with the Broncos defense over the Saints defense because I am much lower on the Seahawks offense than I am the Falcons offense. And I know that's actually saying a lot because it's not like the Falcons offense is anything to get super excited about. Though I actually am weirdly excited to see how Marcus Mariota does in week 1 and how he's used and how this offense looks. But guys, the Seahawks offense, they have a bottom 5 offensive line. They want to be a run first team with a bottom 5 offensive line, with a bottom 5 quarterback. They have really talented receivers. They have a really talented running back, but that is not a successful way to build an offense in the NFL with a bottom 5 offensive line, a bottom 5 quarterback, and you want to be run first. Like, it's just not going to work for the Seahawks. I don't think. I'm really heavy on the Broncos this week too. I've been placing wagers on the Broncos this whole offseason for week 1. I got them at only 3-point favorites, 3.5-point favorites. I think they're up to 6 or 6.5-point favorites now. You got to start the Broncos. And Broncos actually have a really good week 2 matchup too. So they're probably the best defense to have in fantasy right now. Thoughts on MT this week? Yeah, I do have some thoughts on Michael Thomas. Actually, we got back-to-back questions about Michael Thomas here. Obviously, a lot of Michael Thomas questions. Thoughts on if Dobbins will come back? T-Money in the TikTok Live. I do think Dobbins will come back. But not for a while. I don't think he's going to be full strength for a while. Michael Thomas or Bateman. This one's super close. And let me talk about Michael Thomas for a second, because earlier, like literally just 3 days ago, I was of the mindset of you probably want to bench Michael Thomas in week 1. Like, let's see Michael Thomas be on a field in a game for real and see how he looks before starting him. But I've come around on that as I've thought about it more. I actually think you should be starting Michael Thomas this week because he plays the Falcons, and the Falcons are one of the best matchups he's going to have this whole season. And also, it's Michael Thomas. Who knows how many games he's actually going to end up playing? He is basically the Ben Simmons of the NFL, and I hate to say that out loud for Michael Thomas, but that's basically what he is. Maybe he's a better version of Ben Simmons slightly because he was more dominant than Ben Simmons was. But Michael Thomas is a guy that when he's playing, and when he's playing the Falcons, and we know he's playing, you're going to want to start him. His ceiling is extremely high. I do like Rashad Bateman a lot, though, and I think Bateman's a much safer bet than Thomas. So if you're looking for the safety, you can go with Bateman. But again, you look at the 2 games today, the Ravens could completely steamroll the Jets. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if the Ravens are up multiple scores in the first quarter. And maybe even the defense for the Ravens scores a touchdown with Joe Flacco leading the Jets offense behind a bottom 5 offensive line. So there might not be that much throwing for Lamar today. He maybe will be under 20 pass attempts. He could easily go over 100 rushing yards, though, which is why I have him as my number 2 quarterback this week. But yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better about the game environment for Michael Thomas. And again, you drafted Michael Thomas. He's playing week 1, which is amazing news if you drafted him, because that was not a lock to happen when you likely drafted him. And he's playing the Falcons. Start Michael Thomas this week. Those are my general thoughts, but I will start a lot of guys over him still. Like, for example, Brian's asking a question here. This one's a layup. You got to make your layups, by the way. Brian, you have to make your layups. This is like just a rule in all sports, and it's a rule in fantasy football. This one's a layup, in my opinion. You got to be taking Hollywood Brown over Antonio Gibson, especially if it's a PPR league. Again, let me pull up my wide receiver rankings, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. I have Hollywood Brown as my number 7 wide receiver this week. That's the highest I've seen him in any rankings, and I did that intentionally because Hollywood Brown is in an absolutely nuclear spot to start the season. He's playing the Chiefs. The Chiefs are probably going to score 30-plus points against a pretty weak Cardinals secondary. The Chiefs secondary hasn't been very good over the last year, and Rondale Moore is out. DeAndre Hopkins is out. Kyler Murray is a better deep passer than Lamar Jackson, too. And we've seen Hollywood Brown, he was better than people realize. Last season, he was top, I think, 12 in the league in air yards, and that could be even more so this season, especially in the first 6 weeks without DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, I really like Marquise Brown this week. He was 9th in the league in targets last year, 11th in the league in air yards, 8th in the league in deep targets. All of those could go up in these first 6 weeks. So, yeah, I do really like Marquise Brown. I'm starting Marquise Brown in basically all situations. There's only 6 wide receivers, as you can see in the rankings below, that I'm starting over Marquise Brown. Top running backs rankings. Yeah, let me pull up my top running back rankings. I feel like I haven't shown those in a while. Obviously, number 1. Hey, we haven't talked about this game at all. Can we talk about this game? Let me pause in the start sits for a second. I will get back to them. Don't worry. Dobbins inactive. Xavier. Is this? Let me read the report. Let's read the report. This is officially the case. J.K. Dobbins starting his pregame workout. Still a game time decision. I see that 22 minutes ago. I haven't seen the inactive report yet. Let me pull up the news again. I'm not seeing it on the TV. I am seeing a report, though, that he's unlikely to play. And it has been trending this way. So it is relatively safe to assume, I guess, at this point, J.K. Dobbins will be inactive. I feel like J.K. Dobbins owes Ian Rappaport a Schefter just said he's out. He's out. All right, we trust it. Sleeper says he's out. Yeah, so he's out. Dobbins inactive. Obviously, get Dobbins out of your lineup. Let me update the WalterPicks app right now, too, with the Dobbins injury. Make sure we didn't have him projected for anything as well. But I do think that we did have him projected for 11 points. That was definitely too many, given the injury status, obviously. So that will be updated right now. I feel good about Kenyon Drake. I don't feel good about Mike Davis. I'm not starting either of those guys because who knows? Guys, who knows which one it's going to be? And also, we know who the real top rusher for the Baltimore Ravens is going to be today. And it's you guessed it, Lamar Jackson, the best rushing quarterback in the history of the NFL. And that's not something I say lightly. He's the only quarterback in the history of the NFL with multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. He is the only rushing quarterback in the history of the NFL to win a unanimous MVP. He's only one of 2 players in the league ever to win a unanimous MVP. It's him and it's Thomas the GOAT Brady. So like I'm feeling very good about Lamar Jackson today. I think he could easily rush over 1,000 yards. Over 100 yards against the Jets, not 1,000 yards. But I don't feel good about Kenny Drake. I don't feel good about Mike Davis still with this news. Obviously, though, get J.K. Dobbins out of your lineups. And he should have been out of your lineups already, given the injury. We knew he wasn't going to get too much run. He is going to come back, though, guys. And he will be back at some point this season, definitely by the fantasy playoffs. Like he could be a guy that wins leagues. He was number 1 in the league in yards per carry his rookie season. So I'm not sleeping on him, but he obviously is hurt. And we can't be having hurt guys in our lineup. Brandon Ayuk or Antonio Gibson, keep up the work. Sam, last starts that I'm going to get to before I talk about this Browns and Carolina Panthers game, which somehow we haven't talked about at all, really. Brandon Ayuk or Antonio Gibson. Yeah, I'm going Ayuk at the bazooka, I think, over Antonio Gibson, but it definitely is close. I'd say Gibson maybe has a safer floor, though. All right, to this Browns-Panthers game. Probably one of the more exciting games just because of the storyline. Baker Mayfield playing against his old team, the Cleveland Browns. And you could make an argument that this is the best supporting cast Baker Mayfield has ever had. The offensive line is not fantastic. It was probably better in Cleveland, but DJ Moore might be the most talented receiver that Baker Mayfield has played with in quite some time. Christian McCaffrey, though, is certainly maybe the best player that Baker Mayfield has ever played with. I expect Christian McCaffrey to have a massive day. I cannot wait. I cannot wait, guys, to watch Christian McCaffrey, a fully healthy Christian McCaffrey play, though I'm also terrified because I feel like I'm going to be holding my breath. Every single time CMC touches the ball, I'm just going to be holding my breath, praying he doesn't get injured. We saw this past week. We saw this past week that CMC, he scraped his shin in practice. And I mean, the news just blew up about it instantly. Like even if Christian McCaffrey gets a scratch, like it's news. That's how bad it is with the CMC injury stuff. So yeah, I would hate I'm not gonna be able to, like, I'm already getting sick just thinking about it. It's just the victory laps people are going to be taking when Christian McCaffrey inevitably gets hurt, just like most running backs in the NFL will inevitably get hurt at some point this season. But yeah, I'm holding my breath about CMC, but I'm also really excited to see how he does with Baker. And I am taking the Browns in this game, though. I think the Browns let me pull up my week 1 against the spread again, which will scroll at the bottom of the screen. I think the Browns have the most talented roster in the league, maybe only after the Chargers, with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, without Deshaun Watson, I don't think they're in the top 5 talented rosters. But like the skeleton of the team, the offensive line is pretty strong. Running backs obviously pretty strong. Receivers aren't great, but they do have Amari Cooper. The defense, though, is really good, I think, this season. I think the defensive line is really good. I'm starting the Browns defense in a lot of situations. They have a really good first 4 matchups, too, so I did draft the Browns defense in a lot of spots. But with Deshaun, I think they have a top 2, maybe top 3 most talented roster in the league, and I think they're legitimate Super Bowl contenders with Deshaun if, obviously, they can get some wins out of Jacoby Brissett to start the season. I do think they're going to get a win today, though. But I'm rooting for Baker, man. I'm rooting for Baker Mayfield. I would love to see him beat the Browns. And I'm rooting against just the Browns in general because I don't want to be rooting for Deshaun Watson this season. Hey, Sam, been here for a couple hours. Drake London or Claypool or Hardman? Pick one full PPR. Yeah, Malik. I think this will be the first question I've answered today this way. But I would go Drake London, I think, in this situation. Hardman, like, he's an interesting dart throw, but he also could get close to 0 points. Chase Claypool, sort of similar situation, especially if George Pickens ends up having a bigger role than Chase Claypool, which is definitely possible. And like that situation is like, I'm okay starting Deontay Johnson in week 1, but both Claypool and Pickens, I think, have a ton of risk because we just don't know which one's going to get more targets through the course of the season in week 1. Drake London, though, he's the clear top receiver for the Falcons. He is coming off an injury. But yeah, I would lean towards Drake London in this situation. I'm actually starting Sammy Watkins over Drake London in one of my high stakes leagues, but I wouldn't recommend that, I don't think, to other people. We got Keith Durant. No relationship, I don't think, to Kevin Durant, but we're not positive about that. Higgins or Marquise Brown. Yeah, I'm starting Marquise Brown in basically all situations. Again, let me pull up my wide receiver rankings again. But I Marcus Brown make number 7 today. Lockett or Mondre for flex. Yeah, I'm going Mondre over Lockett. Higgins or Michael Thomas. I'd go T. Higgins over Michael Thomas for sure. This is a question I was hoping I would see in the TikTok live. A.J. Dillon or Tony Pollard. This one's so close. And these are two of my most drafted players in fantasy football. Really, really quickly. There was 4 players I got in most of my drafts. I did 8 season-long fantasy drafts, 6 of which were high-stakes drafts. And in those drafts, my most player was actually Jameson Williams because I was getting him in like round 12, round 13, straight stashed on the IR. He'll come back and win fantasy leagues hopefully for me later in the season. My second most drafted player was Michael Gallup. Again, stashed straight to the IR. Hopefully he comes back in the first month of the season, which it looks like he will. But my third and fourth most drafted players were Tony Pollard and AJ Dillon. And they're from winning leagues, but I think both guys are going to carve out roles in week 1 as well. I feel a little bit better about Tony Pollard in week 1. I think he's going to have a big receiving role with Michael Gallup out. He's my free prop of the stream today is over 21.5 receiving yards for Tony Pollard, but they're both really close. I think AJ Dillon maybe has a slightly safer floor because he's going to probably see more carries than Tony Pollard, but it's really, really close for me with both these guys. I'm leaning Pollard though in PPR over AJ Dillon. If it's not PPR, I'd probably lean AJ Dillon over Tony Pollard. Love the stream, Sam. Godwin or Penny, full PPR, safer floor at the flex. Safer floor. I mean, Philip, it's definitely Rashad Penny. I'm not starting Chris Godwin this week. Let me pull up the guys again. You got to bench these players, in my opinion. Drake London's the one exception on this list that in some situations, I think you can start. We were just looking at a situation like that. Like I'm starting Drake London over McCole Hardman. I'm starting Drake London over, I forget who the other guy was on the list. Maybe it was Chase Claypool. But yeah, all these other guys, like I'm 100% basically benching. Definitely Lazard and George Kittle. Obviously, these two guys are out. We can add J.K. Dobbins to this list as well. He's not even going to play today. He should have been on this list even if he was playing. But Chris Godwin's on this list too because we don't know how much he's going to play, guys, in week 1. Like he could just be on the active roster and not play at all. He could just be mostly decoy out there. It's really tough to know. He obviously would be a must start if he was fully healthy and we knew he was going to play his normal allotment of snaps, but we do not know that. And the Buccaneers actually have a pretty deep receiving group with Russell Gage and Julio Jones. So yeah, I'm out on Chris Godwin this week, but you got to be really feeling good about getting Chris Godwin where you got him in drafts with the fact that he's even going to be playing this week is truly incredible. Mike Williams or Hollywood Brown. I'm going Hollywood Brown basically every situation. Again, he's my number 7 receiver. You can see my receiver rankings scrolling at the bottom of the screen. You can see Marquise Brown is ahead of Tyreek Hill. I have him ahead of AJ Brown. I have him ahead of Michael Pittman. There's no Rondale Moore this week. There's no DeAndre Hopkins this week. It's going to be a shootout against the Chiefs. You want Marquise Brown in your lineups this week. Let me pull up some guys I think you should be starting with confidence. Chase Edmonds or James Conner, the battle of the old teammates. I would probably lean James Conner over Chase Edmonds. I think James Conner's a really safe bet. Again, really high-scoring game. There's not very many options for Kyler Murray today. I think James Conner could have a pretty big receiving day. I expect him to score at least 1 touchdown. I like James Conner a lot. I think he could probably will go over 50 rushing yards as well. He could have over 100 total yards and a touchdown today pretty easily. So yeah, I like James Conner a lot. Why are you sitting? Why are you benching Kittle? Kittle's not playing. He's not playing. So yeah, get him out of your lineups. He's injured. He hurt I forget what he hurt. It was his calf. What he hurt. But he's out. And he's probably going to be out next week too. So not a great start if you drafted George Kittle. But I do have some dart throws at tight end that you maybe could pick up, or maybe you have on your team already. Cole Kmet. I think Njoku's available in over 50% of leagues. He's probably going to be the number 2 target for Jacoby Brissett is going to be Njoku. We know Jacoby Brissett also, like he doesn't really push the ball down the field very much. That could be good for Njoku with a low average depth of target from Jacoby Brissett. I think Njoku is going to see pretty much an every down role for the Browns this season. I like Cole Kmet more than him though. Flex spot, Edmonds or London, full PPR. Yeah, I'm definitely going Edmonds over London in a full PPR league. Guys, we're only a few hours away from the first Sunday of the NFL season. I hope you guys are getting as excited as I am. This happens every single Sunday morning, by the way. I do this live every Sunday morning. I'm also live every Thursday night for the Thursday night game, helping with any of those Thursday night decisions. But as these lives go on, I basically start this live like a few, maybe 30 minutes after I wake up. I prep all weekend for this live. I wake up usually around like 7:30 a.m. on Sundays Eastern, and then I go live basically immediately after I eat breakfast, and I'm live until kickoff. And every single time I get progressively more and more and more excited as the live goes on. Hopefully you guys can see that. I usually start relatively tired because I literally just woke up, but I'm on coffee number 2. And we're only a couple hours away from NFL Red Zone, from 10 games that we're going to get to watch today. Some really, really exciting games. Again, we got Baker Mayfield playing for the Carolina Panthers against his old team, the Browns. I'm excited for Baker today. I'm definitely rooting for Baker, though I am taking the Browns to win that game against the spread. Again, I can pull up my picks against the spread at the bottom of the screen here. We got a Kyler Murray or Trey Lance question in the chat. I go Kyler over Trey Lance. I have Trey Lance as my number 9 QB this week, so I'm not starting him in all situations. I'm starting Mahomes over him, Lamar Jackson over him, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray. Those are the clear top 5 in my opinion. Even Kyler without that many weapons, I think has a really, really high ceiling in this potentially shootout against the Chiefs. Joe Burrow, Brady, and Russ, I'm also starting over Trey Lance. Then I'm starting Trey Lance. I start Trey Lance over Derek Carr, though, who is also in a really interesting spot this week. How do you feel about Pitts this season? Finally, we get a Kyle Pitts question, and it's not surprising we haven't got any Kyle Pitts questions because nobody's thinking about benching Kyle Pitts because Kyle Pitts is entrenched as a top 3 tight end in fantasy football. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later that we start talking about Kyle Pitts as the number 1 tight end in fantasy football. He's actually one of my favorite props. Today is Kyle Pitts over 60 receiving yards. I think he has an absolutely massive season. I think he goes over 1,000 receiving yards again, but I think he's going to score significantly more touchdowns than he did as a rookie. And I would much rather be too early than too late on Kyle Pitts because really it's only a matter of time until Kyle Pitts is in the conversation as the top tight end in fantasy football. Guys, Kyle Pitts, he has 99th percentile speed. He's 6'6", 245 pounds with 99th percentile speed. He is a wide receiver. He's built bigger and better than most wide receivers. He's faster than most wide receivers, and he gets to line up against linebackers. Like Kyle Pitts is going to be, basically you get to start a top-end wide receiver in your tight end slot. That's why I was so aggressively drafting Kyle Pitts. This season I have him on so many best ball teams, so many of my season-long teams. If you drafted Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round, I think that was a fantastic decision. Those are my thoughts on Kyle Pitts this season. I'm very, very bullish on Kyle Pitts. I pretty much as bullish as you can get on Kyle Pitts, and I do like his prop today as well. Hey, Sam, can you pick one? Brian, I can do my best. And the WalterPicks app can also help you pick one. But I would probably go Zeke. I've said Zeke basically every single start sit question I've seen Zeke in. You got to go Zeke. You drafted Zeke probably in the first 5 rounds of your fantasy draft, and he's fully healthy. And it's week 1. Like this is similar to the Travis Etienne thing. This is the week we can feel most confident about starting Zeke of any week. Like the workload is going to be there for Zeke, especially without Michael Gallup in the lineup yet too. Like you got to be starting Zeke. It's not a good matchup. The Buccaneers run defense has been really good over the last 2 years. Edelman returned to the Pats. Thanks for answering my questions. App is awesome. Xavier, man, I wish we could definitely use some a veteran presence like Julian Edelman. No, Edelman's done, man. I am rocking the Julian Edelman jersey today though, because it's really the only Pats jersey I can rock because I have a N'Keal Harry jersey, which I do wear to humble myself because I had a N'Keal Harry ranked as my top receiver back in that draft class. And most people aren't willing to admit, but actually most people had N'Keal Harry ranked as their top receiver in that draft class. Obviously, though, the N'Keal Harry jersey just doesn't hit anymore as a Pats fan. Swift or Hollywood Brown in the flex. That one's super close. See that one in the TikTok live. I mean, you really want to start both guys. Swift has the better floor, though. I'd probably lean Swift over Hollywood Brown. Happy football. Gibson or Thielen in a PPR league. I have Godwin, but scared to for the game time decision. Yeah, you can't start Chris Godwin. Don't start Chris Godwin. Even if Chris Godwin plays, and it actually feels like it's trending towards he's going to play, but probably on a limited basis. And maybe he's active but doesn't play. Like that, we've seen that happen in the past too, where he's just there sort of in an emergency situation. That's very possible. The Buccaneers have a very deep wide receiver group with Julio Jones and Gage in the mix now. So yeah, I'm definitely out on Chris Godwin this week. And with Gibson versus Thielen, this one's also really, really close. I would probably lean Adam Thielen though. Adam Thielen is in an offense that's expected to pass more this season. All reports about him so far up to this point throughout the offseason have been really positive. He's probably going to play basically every single snap. And the Packers are a team that could turn into a potential shootout. I am a little bit scared, though, I'm going to be honest, of the Packers secondary. I think the Packers secondary is really good. Obviously, Justin Jefferson, though, is going to attract most of the attention. I'm okay starting Thielen in this situation. I'm definitely starting Elijah Moore, though, Ray, in this one. I feel like the two guys I've said basically every single time in almost every question. I'm starting Zeke like 100%, and I'm starting Elijah Moore in basically all scenarios too. And I know that it's a little scary with Joe Flacco it's a little scary with just the Jets in general. The offensive line's probably bottom 5. They're starting Joe Flacco. That's a bottom 5 situation. But we've seen Elijah Moore feast in bad situations. He was averaging almost 16 fantasy points per game through the back half of last season. He's only 22 years old. He's in year 2, the most common breakout year for receivers. So yeah, I'm in. I'm on Elijah Moore this week. I think you really got to be starting Elijah Moore. Where do you rank T. Higgins for wide receiver PPR? I think I even ranked 11th or 12th. Like he's not in my top 10, but he's really close. He could have been in someone's top 10. I think you pretty confidently have to start T. Higgins basically every single week. Start Sutton with confidence. Yeah, you do have to start Sutton with confidence. Hey, Sam, how are you? I'm doing well, man. Thanks for asking. Cooks or Amon-Ra St. Brown? Yeah, man. The Brandon Cooks situation is really interesting. I feel like I keep telling people not to start Brandon Cooks, but I was telling people all offseason to draft Brandon Cooks. I feel a little bit conflicted about Brandon Cooks. I'm not going to lie. But let's see really quickly. Let me pull this up. I do feel safer about Amon-Ra than I do Cooks, but I don't know if that is actually the right thing to be feeling, because Brandon Cooks is the more clear top target than Amon-Ra St. Brown is. Let me pull up the projections really quickly. I'm interested to see where I have Cooks in these projections. And yeah, I think you got to go Brandon Cooks over Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think I've been too low so far on the stream on Brandon Cooks, but you haven't projected over 14 points. He is really entrenched as the top target for the Texans. I actually think the Texans low key could upset the Colts today too. I'm in on Cooks over Amon-Ra. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown a lot too, though. All right, let's pull up my top 10. Let's go back to the running backs here. Someone was just asking about Swift versus Marquise Brown. I have Marquise Brown ranked as my 7th receiver, ranked as my 9th running back, but I still think I would still go DeAndre Swift over Marquise Brown, because the floor for the running backs is almost always higher than the floor for the receivers. Jacoby Myers or Michael Thomas? That one's definitely Michael Thomas. Definitely Michael Thomas. Mike Davis or Josh Jacobs? Shout out Mike Davis versus the Josh Jacobs question in the TikTok live. That one I would go Josh Jacobs. I think that's the first time I've said Josh Jacobs today. But yeah, I'm not starting Mike Davis, guys. And I'm not starting Kenyon Drake. And will one of those probably backfire? Maybe. They're playing the Jets. One of those guys could easily fall into the end zone, but both guys could easily also score fewer than 5 fantasy points. Lamar does not throw very often to his running backs. And Lamar is also the best rushing quarterback of all time. It's not going to be surprising when it's Lamar that's the one that benefits from J.K. Dobbins being out, not Mike Davis and not Kenyon Drake. And by the way, one of the things that they liked most about Mike Davis, and I'm not trying to trash on Mike Davis. We love Mike Davis as a person. But as a player, the thing that the Ravens like the most about Mike Davis is his ability to pass block. That's not good for fantasy football. It might mean he gets out there for more snaps, but not snaps where he's actually going to get any touches. He's just going to be out there blocking for Lamar. So yeah, I'm out on Mike Davis. I'm definitely out on Kenyon Drake, who they literally signed a couple weeks ago. Will one of them maybe score a touchdown? Yeah, that's probably pretty likely against the Jets. I think they could just steamroll the Jets today. But yeah, I'm out on both guys, and I'm definitely starting Josh Jacobs over both of them. Zeke or Saquon? This is one where you got to start Saquon. There's really no scenario where you should be benching Saquon Barkley. I have him as my number 8 running back. I think I have Zeke in my top 15, but he's not in my top 10. I think he's like in the 11 through 15 range for me. So yeah, I'm starting Saquon for sure over Zeke. Michael Thomas or DK Metcalf? I'd probably go Michael Thomas in that one too. Kareem Hunt or CEH? Finally, a question I feel like I can answer. Clyde Edwards-Helaire too. I think I would go Clyde over CEH. I would go Clyde over. I think I would go Clyde in that situation. I'm really intrigued to see where Clyde Edwards-Helaire finishes this week and how much he gets involved. I've been drafted in best ball leagues. I sort of faded him a little bit in season-long leagues, though, because I've been burned really bad by Clyde in the past. But I still think a lot of the same reasons we were drafting Clyde in past fits true this season. But yeah, I'm starting Clyde over Kareem Hunt. We have him only a few spots behind. We have Hunt only a few spots behind Clyde in the WalterPicks app. But I more in the receiving game, and like Hunt's not the starter, and Clyde is. So I think that's a pretty good tiebreaker as well. All right, let's see if there's been any news updates. So usually the chat is pretty on top of the news. I found out that J.K. Dobbins was out before Twitter even told me. So yeah, Mike Davis is supposed to start, but there's going to be rotation in the Ravens backfield. We see that seems like pretty much all the news. And there's not much news that we're waiting on at this point. We pretty much know J.K. Dobbins is out. George Kittle is out. And there was one more player. Let me pull up my do not starts again. Alan Lazard. He's the other guy he's out today. So get all those guys out of your lineups. But also let me add J.K. Dobbins here. You got to get J.K. Dobbins out. I'm not starting Mike Davis or Kenyon Drake either. You also really should be very skeptical about James Robinson coming off the Achilles tear. Chris Godwin is another guy. He's playing, but he's injured to some extent. He's not 100%. And there's no reason to expect the Buccaneers to rush their star receiver, who they just gave a 3-year contract to, back in week 1, when they have a really deep receiver room with Gage and Julio Jones now. By the way, Russell Gage, and I'm really intrigued to see how the receiver snaps play out for the Buccaneers and the targets. But Russell Gage, I think, is one of the guys that's been slept on the most this whole offseason. He was a guy that Brady demanded they trade for. Brady was the guy that wanted Russell Gage. Gage was very good last season, and I think Gage fits the Antonio Brown role the best of anyone in the Buccaneers passing attack. Julio Jones maybe fits the Gronk role a tiny bit more, but with Julio, I feel like you're really banking on him scoring a bunch of touchdowns, and that's a little bit of a risky move in my opinion, whereas Gage, I think, is going to get significantly more yards than Julio Jones this season. I'm excited for Gage in the Sunday night game tonight. But yeah, I'm not starting Chris Godwin. Jalen Tolbert, definitely not a guy you can trust in your lineups. Garrett Wilson, not a guy you can start in your lineups. I'm also out on Damian Harris. The Pats are underdogs this week, and I think they're actually going to lose even against the spread. They're 3-point underdogs. I'm really nervous for the Patriots in this game against the Dolphins. Drake London is the only guy on this list that I think you can start in some situations. But like, I'm starting him over Chase Claypool, for example. I would start him probably over any of the Packers receivers not named Sammy Watkins, but I'm starting Sammy Watkins over Drake London in week 1 because I think Sammy Watkins is the top receiver for the Packers all of a sudden in week 1. Jerry Jeudy or Terry McLaurin, I'd go McLaurin in that situation as well. And again, I was in the Jerry Jeudy over Sutton camp pretty much the whole offseason, and I still am in that camp for the entire season. But in week 1, I feel a lot more confident about Terry McLaurin than I do about Jerry Jeudy. And a big part of that too is I think the Broncos could just absolutely annihilate the Seahawks, in which case we could see a lot of Melvin Gordon. We could see a lot of Javonte Williams on Monday night. And so, yeah, I feel like Jeudy is a pretty volatile option. I still think he's a really high ceiling, though. Again, Jerry Jeudy, number 1 in the NFL last year in target separation, and he was close to dead last in target accuracy. Think about what those two things mean together. He was separating better than anyone in the league, and he was getting horrible target accuracy. And now he has Russell Wilson. So yeah, I'm feeling really good about Jeudy this season. I still think there's a pretty decent chance he outscores Courtland Sutton in fantasy. It feels like everyone's in the Sutton camp over Jeudy at this point, but I think it's closer than people think. I don't feel so confident about that though, which is why I'm okay benching Jeudy in week 1 for guys that we know are going to have pretty big roles, like Terry McLaurin, who's one of the safest bets each week in fantasy to go over 10 points at least. Like, his floor is much, much, much higher than Judy's, and they probably have similar ceilings too. Terry McLaurin, last season, he averaged 12.6 fantasy points per game, and it was kind of a down year for him. But he was the 4th most in air yards last year. He was number 2 in the league in deep targets. McLaurin sees very valuable targets, and there is somewhat of an argument that he's playing with the best quarterback he's ever played with, but I don't think that argument has very much legs, because yeah, sure, maybe it's the best QB he's played with, but does that matter if his quarterback is still bad? No, I don't think that matters that much. But I still am in on Terry having a pretty good season this year, probably going over 1,000 yards again. Full PPR, Waddle or Montgomery in flex? Yeah, I'm going Waddle 100% in the flex in a PPR league. CEH or Christian Kirk? Definitely Christian Kirk for me for this one. I really like Christian Kirk today. I'll show you my DraftKings lineup. Christian Kirk's not in it, but he is in a lot of my DraftKings lineups because I'm very bullish on Trevor Lawrence today. That's my only lock against the spread today. We are 1-0 against the spread. I did take the Bills against the spread on Thursday night, but I was not confident about that one. I am pretty confident about the Jaguars against Washington this week. I think if there's any quarterback that's going to surprise people the most, it's either Trevor Lawrence or Tua. But in week 1, it might be Trevor Lawrence, who's going up against the Commander secondary that allowed the most passing yards per game to quarterbacks last season. They didn't do that much in a secondary to improve their defensive line. I think will be slightly improved this season though. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence, he's going from Urban Meyer kicking around to arguably the biggest coaching upgrade of the offseason, getting Doug Peterson. And he had his first real full offseason. He didn't even get a really normal full offseason last year because he was at Urban Meyer having him split the first team reps in the offseason in his rookie season, even though they knew Trevor Lawrence was going to start week 1. Plus he adds Christian Kirk. Plus he adds Evan Ingram. Plus he adds Travis Etienne. I really am bullish on the Jaguars offense today. I think they're going to go over 20, maybe even 30 points today against the Commanders. I think they win that game. And for that reason, I really like Christian Kirk as well. And my favorite prop of the day is Tony Pollard over 21.5 receiving yards as well. How many weeks until CMC gets hurt? Let's get the CMC negativity away from the comment section, please. Please. I was just saying earlier in this live that I there's probably not a player I'm more excited, but also more anxious to watch today than Christian McCaffrey, because every single time he touches the ball, I'm just going to be completely holding my breath, praying that we don't see a CMC injury. Literally him scratching his shin. He scratched his shin in practice. I mean, like a very everyday type of scratch. Like it wasn't like a deep scratch, like just a minor scratch on his shin from someone else's cleat in practice. And that made headlines and got a lot of traction on Twitter, a lot of news from the shin scratch from Christian McCaffrey. And that's what it's going to be like this season. And I just get sick thinking about how many victory laps we're going to see from people when CMC gets hurt. And guys, let me just tell you one more time. You cannot predict injuries very accurately. We do this every year. People think they know who's going to get hurt. And in reality, most running backs get hurt. So you feel like you were right in predicting injuries. But guess what? Last season at this time, we were seeing the same comments about Joe Mixon. How many weeks till Joe Mixon gets hurt? Because he had just come off a pretty injury-prone season. And Joe Mixon ended up being one of only 4 running backs to play in every single game. He saw at least 10 carries in every single game. And nobody talks about that now. Oh, we don't look back. This is when we thought guys were going to get injured. And guys, if you end up being wrong about the CMC injury thing, you're probably going to end up losing your fantasy league to someone that has Christian McCaffrey. That's how good Christian McCaffrey is. So I was willing to make that bet on CMC all offseason. I'm just so scared to watch him now, because every time he touches the ball, I'm going to be holding my breath. I do not want to entertain these victory laps about CMC injuries. But yeah, definitely it's going to be scary watching Christian McCaffrey for anyone that has him, for anyone that's been drafting him first overall, like I have been this entire offseason. Yeah, I am too, because I have him. We like Lance still in the rain in Chicago. Yeah, so Weatherman Sam is back, and he'll be back every single Sunday morning. I am Sam, by the way, and I'm also a part-time weatherman on these live streams. And yeah, we already talked through the weather. Let me just run through it again. There's nothing to be concerned about. That's the main headline with the weather, and people overreact to the weather so much in fantasy, which is why I think it's important to touch on the weather in each of these Sunday morning lives, which I'll be live every Sunday morning. By the way, I have been live every Sunday morning for the last 2 years. This will be my 3rd straight year, going live every single Sunday morning, every single Thursday night. The only thing that I really get worried about with weather, and I have done statistical studies on this, is wind. Wind over 25 miles an hour. It has a pretty negative, significant impact on passing offenses and offenses in general, which makes intuitive sense as well. Basically, everything else that was overrated from a weather perspective, based on the statistical research I did. Rain doesn't really matter very much at the NFL level. Snow doesn't really matter that much. Cold doesn't really matter that much. And wind that isn't over 25 miles an hour doesn't even matter that much. And so, yeah, today, 49ers versus the Bears, there is going to be a little bit of rain. There is going to be a tiny bit of wind, 8 to 10 miles an hour of wind. I'm not worried about it really at all. I don't think you should be worried about it really at all. Obviously, rain, though, and that's a very macro level, right? All this statistical analysis I was doing. On a micro level, maybe some players do worse in the rain. And this is something, to keep track of throughout the season. Like maybe, for example, this is a random example. Maybe Trey Lance is a little bit worse at throwing the ball in the rain, like just him specifically. That is possible. I wouldn't rule that out, but I'm not concerned about it for week 1 at all. Based on the research that I've done, I'm not worried about Trey Lance in the rain. And if anything, maybe it means he's going to run more, and that's only good for your fantasy teams. I'm starting Trey Lance with a lot of confidence this week. And I think you should be too. I have him as my number 9 quarterback in the rankings. Let me pull up my QB rankings again. You can see those at the bottom of the screen. But yeah, if you drafted Trey Lance as your starting quarterback, start him this week. There's only 8 quarterbacks that start over Trey Lance. Obviously, Josh Allen already played. You would have started him over Trey Lance as well. But yeah, I'm starting Trey Lance as a top 10 quarterback option this week. The only other game, and this is another one that I've been talking a lot about on the stream, is the Jaguars versus Commanders. It's a similar type of weather to the 49ers-Bears game. I think the actual temperature is pretty comparable, both around 70 to 80 degrees. There's going to be a little bit less rain, I think, in this game, but potentially some rain in the Jaguars-Commanders game. And there's going to be wind up to 8 miles an hour as well. Again, none of that concerns me. I don't think that should factor into anyone's start-sit decisions. And I do think that the Jaguars are going to be able to throw the ball very, very, very well against this Commanders secondary that was last in the league last year at quarterback passing yards per game. So yeah, I do like the Jaguars passing offense today. I'm still okay with the 49ers offense, despite the rain, despite the mild wind. Again, only wind over 25 miles an hour. That's when I start to get really concerned. That's when it does factor into our projections in the WalterPicks app. And that's when I would consider benching like members of the passing attack. But we're not anywhere near that. Again, only 10 miles an hour of wind in that Bears game, only 8 miles an hour of wind in the Jaguars game. So yeah, I'm not worried about it at all. AJ Dillon, that's your weatherman Sam tuning in this Sunday morning. AJ Dillon, Antonio Gibson, or McCole Hardman at flex with a lot of exclamation points and question marks. It's between these first two guys. McCole Hardman, don't get me wrong, there's a pretty intriguing ceiling with McCole Hardman, and there is with Marcus Valdes-Scantling, even Sky Moore. But it's so tough to know exactly which guy it's going to be that scores the long touchdown for the Chiefs. There could be multiple of them, but I think Juju and Kelsey are going to lead this team in targets. I think Clyde is going to be up there in touches as well. So you start to get to McCole Hardman, Marcus Valdes-Scantling, Sky Moore. I think there may be like slightly intriguing tournament DFS plays because one of them is probably going to hit, like one of them. But I have no idea which one it's going to be. It could be McCole Hardman. It could be Sky Moore. It could be Marcus Valdes-Scantling. I'm not going to make bets on any of them, though, in season-long leagues. I'd probably lean towards AJ Dillon, though, in the situation over Antonio Gibson, though. It is definitely close. Michael Thomas or Juju on DraftKings. Day, it depends, man. It depends the rest of your lineup. But if you don't yet have a piece of this Chiefs Cardinals game, I think you got to go with Juju. Like you need to get a piece of that in your DraftKings lineups. But otherwise, if you do already have a piece, especially if you already have a piece of the Chiefs offense, then I'd probably go Michael Thomas. That's some sort of game theory in way I think about things on DraftKings. But I would probably lean Juju overall. I think Michael Thomas, though, he'll probably be less owned and could be a better play if you're playing in like the big tournaments as well. The other thing you got to think about, if it's a tournament or if it's a head-to-head contest, the tournaments you're playing against hundreds of thousands of people, you got to take more risks in those. So like in a tournament, I might lean Michael Thomas more than Juju. But in a head-to-head contest, Juju's, in my opinion, he's locked in for over 10 fantasy points. Like that's what I'm going for in head-to-head contests where I'm only playing one other person. So there's some logic there that you should think about as well, depending on the type of contest you're playing. Again, let me pull up my DraftKings lineup. This is a lineup I'm playing in a tournament. So this is supposed to be a high-risk lineup. And I do really like the Trevor Lawrence, Evan Ingram stack. Are you still starting Zach Ertz? Nope. I don't really want to start Zach Ertz. I'd probably prefer Cole Kmet. I'd probably prefer David Njoku. I might even prefer Evan Ingram. Zach Ertz is 30 years old. He's dealing with a calf injury. He was not a lock to play today. It does look like he is going to play, but he could easily pick up an aggravated calf injury. He could easily just see limited snaps in general. So I am a little bit nervous about Zach Ertz this week. Sam, how do you feel about the Saints as a survival pool pick? If not them, then who? Love to see the survival pool questions in the chat. I always find survival pools very interesting. I'm not in one, but I'm always happy with them because I think it's a fascinating thing. And every year, like especially it feels like week one, like so many of the top options end up losing. And there's not spreads this week. I think the Ravens are the best bet. They're 6.5 point favorites. There are some bigger favorites than that. The Bengals are bigger favorites than that. The Colts are bigger favorites than that. I like the Ravens way more than the Colts, though, and way more than the Bengals today. Like, there's almost no way, guys, that the Jets, with a bottom 5 offensive line, starting Joe Flacco in week 1. I get that they're at home, but I'm definitely taking the Ravens in a survival pool with like a lot of confidence, even without J.K. Dobbins. The Ravens, guys, they were the most injured team in football last year. If you can recall back to a little over a year ago, there was like back-to-back practices where J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Marcus Peters all went down, and there was only more injuries to come from there throughout the season for the Ravens. The Ravens defense, guys, is going to be much, much better this season. And the offense still has Lamar, so they're going to be just fine as well. So yeah, I'm definitely in on the Ravens over the Jets. What was the team you had brought up? You brought up the Saints. The Saints against the Falcons. Yeah, I don't think I would touch that one. It's certainly, they should beat but there's just a lot of unknowns, I feel like, with those two teams. I do like the Saints over the Falcons just in general, but I would feel much more confident about the Ravens over the Jets. I also don't hate, I don't necessarily hate going with the Chiefs, but I don't love that one either. The two teams I think I would be between in survivor pools, it's the Ravens and it's the Broncos this week. Those are the two teams I think I would choose. Hey, Sam, I'm having some trouble deciding who to start. Quentin. First of all, I would check out what Walter thinks in the WalterPicks app. You didn't give the scoring settings here. And in the WalterPicks app, you can input the scoring settings. The WalterPicks app, I've spent the last really 3 years of my life helping build the app. It's so much improved this season because you can sync your leagues directly if you're a premium subscriber, but also you can, for completely free this year, this was not the case last year, you can do as many start-sit comparisons as you want in the WalterPicks app, and you can input your scoring settings. And that's another definitely good approach because we've had the best projections in that app than anyone we've compared ourselves against. Josh Jacobs or Tony Pollard, though, I don't feel great about Josh Jacobs. I know I keep saying you want pieces of this game, which makes me want to lean towards Josh Jacobs because, again, this could be a really high-scoring game. But we don't know what this backfield is going to be like. I do think Zamir White, Brandon Bolden, Amir Abdullah, none of these guys I think are better than Josh Jacobs talent-wise, but I do think they will get some targets in this backfield. I feel really good about Tony Pollard tonight, having a receiving role. He's my favorite player prop that I'm sharing on this screen, on this stream that you can't find in the WalterPicks app. You can find some other props in the WalterPicks app, though. But yeah, I think it goes over 21.5 receiving yards, which makes me feel a little bit better about him if this is a PPR league. If it's not a PPR league, I definitely go Josh Jacobs. Do I start DK or Penny? Monday night question. I won't be live Monday nights, by the way, so I will answer some Monday night questions on this stream. And yeah, I would go with Penny over DK. Again, I think Rashad Penny is a very sneaky, really good option this week, and I hate the Seahawks. No down on the Seahawks. I literally placed a wager that they won't win a game this season, which they're going to win a game this season. There's only been one team that hasn't won a game in the last 10 years, but it was 50 to win 2,000 or something. So I did put that down. But yeah, I do really like Penny. I think he could get 20 touches this week. And we've only seen 2 games in his career where he's gotten 20 touches. And guys, they were pretty good. He scored 32.5 points in one of them. He scored 25 points in the other. Both of those games, he was top 5 running back in fantasy. This is a dude that is so talented that even with a horrible offensive line, a horrible quarterback, a game where they're probably going to be trailing for the most part, I still think Rashad Penny should be pretty locked in to most fantasy lineups. There's no Kenneth Walker likely this week. He is questionable, but he hasn't played or practiced in over a month or close to a month now. And Chris Carson retired. It's him and Travis Homer back there. And I'm not very scared of Travis Homer. I think Penny's going to get probably 20 touches or close to that. Lance or Brady? I have Brady, I think, a couple spots ahead of Lance. It's close, definitely. And I think it's a fair question to be asking yourself. But personally, I think I'd go Brady over Lance. Let me pull this up. My QB. Oh, they're scrolling across the screen right here. Look, Brady at 7, Lance at 9. Yeah, so I would go Brady over Lance. It's certainly close though. And I'm not scared to play Lance this week by any means. Hey Sam, what's the move? Gibson or Zeke? It's Zeke. Zeke's the move. Greg, Zeke is the move. You drafted Zeke as probably in the first 5 rounds, probably much earlier than you got Gibson. Why not this week? If you drafted Zeke, why not this week? He's fully healthy. It's obviously not the best matchup against the Bucs. They've been really good against running backs, but he could still easily score a touchdown. He's still going to catch some passes. This is a week you need to be playing Zeke, even in a tough matchup. And yeah, I would be playing Elijah Mitchell, I think, over Gibson as well. Josh Jacobs or ETN, leaning Jacobs because we know his floor. Yeah, I don't think I would lean Jacobs in this one. I feel similarly to how I feel about Zeke. I feel somewhat similar to how I feel about Travis Etienne. And I'm not very confident in James Robinson this week. I think you have to bench James Robinson this week. Again, we have never seen a running back come back from an Achilles tear and be relevant in fantasy football. That's not something we've ever seen before. I think James Robinson, I'm hoping he does break that trend because I do like James Robinson a lot, but I don't think it's going to be this week. And I do think this is for that exact reason. If you drafted Travis Etienne, you got to start him this week. This could be the most locked-in workload he has the entire season, and he's playing a Commanders secondary that allowed the most passing yards to quarterbacks last season. They were actually really good against running backs last year. Actually, no team allowed less total yards per game to running backs last year than the Commanders, so that might not give you that much confidence, but that was also last season. We're going off last season's numbers. This season will be different, and Travis Etienne will catch passes today. He will run a lot of routes today. He will get more carries, I think, than James Robinson today. So for that reason, I'm going Travis Etienne over Josh Jacobs. And again, if you drafted Travis Etienne, then this is got to be a week where you start him. Because again, James Robinson, as he gets healthier and healthier, there's only going to be less and less confidence in Travis Etienne's workload. So week 1 is the most confidence we have in Etienne's workload, and you just drafted him with the top 5 pick, top
one of your top 5 picks, like I think you got to start him. PPR, Irv Smith or Hooper week 1. Austin Hooper, first question we've seen about him, Kyle, in this live. Love scraping the bottom of the barrel, man, at tight end. I would go Irv over Hooper. I have both these guys in some best ball leagues, but no season long leagues. I would go Irv though. Mike Williams or Sutton, both super similar situations, Cody. I feel a little bit better about Mike Williams than I do Sutton, just because I feel really confident in the Chargers-Raiders game being a shootout than I do the Seahawks Broncos game on Monday night. I think both guys have a really good bet at a touchdown. But yeah, I would go Mike Williams. Thoughts on Lance this week? Flood warning and puddles on the field. Going to be raining all day in Chicago. Should I go Dak instead? No, I don't think so. And I don't think I'm as worried about the weather as I am with than other people. I don't think it's going to be flooding on the field. I could be wrong about this. And let me look this up again, because I don't think there's going to be like actual puddles and floods on the field. But again, I didn't see that. Maybe that is the case. Let me actually, because I'll probably see something about it on there. But historically speaking, oh wow, this is wild. The rain is pounding in Chicago. I'm watching puddles on the field. I'm literally eating my words in live time as I see this. I think you remember Rappaport was 54 seconds ago, just reposted this. So yeah, this isn't good for Trey Lance's passing. Definitely is a little bit of cause for concern for Darnell Mooney. I think it's cause for concern a little bit for Brandon Ayuk. Again, I was saying early in the stream, Weatherman Sam, let me put my Weatherman Sam hat back on for a second. The thing that's most concerning with the weather for fantasy is wind. This game is not supposed to have wind over 10 miles an hour. But that's, like, all being said, that's like a big generalization. You obviously got to look at the specific situations each week, and the extremes can be detrimental. This does look like some pretty extreme rain based on the video I was just seeing, though apparently it is going to calm down a little bit as the game goes on. Regardless, though, I don't think this is a bad thing for Trey Lance. But the reason you're excited about Trey Lance is his rushing, not his passing. Obviously, this will hurt his passing. But if you take his passing and turning into carries instead, that's better for fantasy, because you get 6 points per rushing touchdown in most leagues. You get more points per rushing yard than passing yards too. So like rushing is really broken in fantasy at the quarterback position. That's why you drafted Trey Lance. That's why you got to start Trey Lance, I think, in this situation. I would start him over Dak still. I still think I would do that. Hey, Sam, love your work, and I'm back for a 3rd year. Thanks, man. I've been doing this for 3 years, so I really do appreciate that. Which 2 should I start? PPR, Jalen Waddle, Juju, Michael Thomas, or Kareem Hunt? I think it's the 2. I think you go with Jalen Waddle and Juju. I think you can consider Michael Thomas. I wouldn't consider Kareem Hunt, though, I don't think, out of these 4 guys. You definitely got to start Waddle, though. Waddle's, I would assume, the guy you drafted earliest. Then maybe Juju is next. I feel really good about the floors, though, for both Waddle and Juju this week. Hey, Sam, what are your general thoughts on Michael Thomas? Yeah, so my mind has really shifted over the last 3 days on Michael Thomas. My opinion has changed, and this will happen. My opinions are always very fluid. I don't really suffer too much from take lock. I know a lot of people, and this is one of the hardest things when you're doing what I'm doing and giving advice about fantasy, is not locking into takes. I've spent the last 3 months drafting fantasy teams. It's important not to lock into takes, and I'm not going to lock into takes even on a day-to-day basis, like as new information comes and as I think about things more. I hold the right to change my opinions. I think this is one of the most important things. Like if you're not reacting to new information, you're going to fall behind. And locking into takes is one of the easiest and fastest ways to sort of fail in the position of fantasy analyst. But yeah, I'm in on Michael Thomas this week. I do think you can start Michael Thomas, and you even should start Michael Thomas this week. Obviously, it depends on the situation. Like, I'm not going to start him over Marquise Brown. I'm not going to start him over DJ Moore. Just as a couple examples, I think I would start him over Darnell Mooney at this point with how bad the rain does look in Chicago. But the reason I've changed my mind on this is we know Michael Thomas is playing. Who knows how many games he's going to play based on his recent history of missing lots and lots of games. And he plays the Falcons, man. The Falcons, they might have the worst secondary in the NFL. That is possible. They weren't the worst secondary in the NFL last year, but I do think they could be the worst secondary in the NFL this year. We've seen an entire career out of Michael Thomas dominating the Falcons. So yeah, I think you can play Michael Thomas, and he's an upside play, a really low floor, high upside play in my opinion. Football Sunday, back, Bateman or McLaurin. I'd probably lean McLaurin there. Thanks for all the great advice. I got you, man. Coming at you with another hot one, half PPR. Need to pick one of these. Oh, we got we're scraping the bottom of the barrel with tight ends again. Love the tight end questions, man, because like these I'll give you my take on these two guys, but again, with the bottom of the barrel tight ends, you're just praying that one of them falls into the end zone. Like that's the whole game at these, like outside the top, even like 5 tight ends. It's such a steep drop. I mean, Dawson Knox, he was drafted as a top 8 tight end in fantasy drafts. He doesn't fall into the end zone in the first game, and he finishes under 2 points. Like this is what we're working with. Hunter Henry, Gerald Everett, they could do the same thing. I am also concerned about Ertz. I'm okay benching Ertz in pretty much all situations. Like, let's see. I'm okay waiting and seeing with a guy like Ertz, who's over 30 years old. He was questionable for this game. He does sound like he's going to play. The only reason that you might like want to just throw out Ertz is there isn't very much target competition this year. But yeah, I would probably go with Gerald Everett over Hunter Henry. I feel like Henry's probably ahead of Everett in all rankings. But again, at a minimum, I'm okay just like throwing darts into this Chargers Raiders game, because this could be the highest scoring game of the week. It's definitely possible. So I'd probably go Gerald Everett here. Tony Pollard or Devontae Smith. This one's really close. My biggest fear with Devontae Smith this week is that the Eagles steamroll the Lions. I think that the biggest advantage the Eagles have in this game too is their rushing attack versus the Lions rushing defense. I don't think the Lions rushing defense has any hope against this rushing attack for the Eagles, who could have the best offensive line in the NFL, or at least top 5. So I'm a little nervous for Devontae Smith for that reason, because if we do see the Eagles have a really successful start in the running game, I think this actually happened. Don't quote me on this, but you can go back and look. I vaguely remember last year when the Eagles played the Lions, like they just ran right over the Lions. And I don't think Jalen Hurts even threw 20 passes in that game. And that could happen again with Devontae Smith this week. I am bullish on Devontae Smith's career just in general. I think he's better than people realize. I think he's going to do really well this season. I think he's a really polished route runner, but I'm not so bullish on him this week against the Lions. Yeah, I think I'd be okay going Tony Pollard. But I think Pollard is locked into at least some touches this week. I'd be pretty surprised if Pollard had less than 8 touches in this game this week. And you cannot say the same thing about Devontae Smith. So yeah, I think I'd probably lean Pollard here. But I would argue that Devontae Smith maybe has a slightly higher ceiling. Debo, yeah. Debo Samuel is a guy that I'm still betting on. Regardless of this rain, I am still betting on Debo Samuel this week and for every week really to come. I'd play Jacoby Myers over AJ Green, Alex. Godwin or Devontae Smith. Yeah, Godwin's a guy you can't start him this week. You can't do it. He's coming off an injury. He's well ahead of schedule in his injury recovery, which is really exciting. Like if you have Chris Godwin, he probably is the steal of fantasy drafts heading into the season. He was going in rounds 5, 6, 7 in fantasy drafts. And had we all known that Chris Godwin would be playing in week 1, he probably would have gone in the 2nd or 3rd round. He probably would have got picked before Mike Evans, like he was the season before. But I'm still not so confident he's going to see his full allotment of snaps, his full allotment of targets. And I don't think there's any reason for the Buccaneers to rush Godwin in this recovery process. They have a deep wide receiver room. They brought in Gage. They brought in Julio Jones. They still have Mike Evans. They still obviously have Leonard Fournette. I think that there's no reason for them to rush Chris Godwin. So I'm definitely benching Chris Godwin this week because we just don't know what that workload is going to look like. I'm also make sure you get Allen Lazard, George Kittle, J.K. Dobbins. None of those 3 guys are playing this week. I'd also get James Robinson out for those same injury concerns. Like James Robinson coming back from an Achilles tear, we got to see it from James Robinson before we put him anywhere near our starting lineups. Jalen Tolbert is a guy that there's reports he might be a healthy scratch on Sunday Night Football. That's really, really not encouraging. He could get 0 points. His floor is 0 points. Drake London's the list that I think you can start in a lot of situations. He's the clear top receiver for the Falcons. He was questionable though coming into this game, and he didn't play at all since the first. He hasn't practiced at all really since the first preseason game where he tweaked his knee. Garrett Wilson, I just got to see where the pecking order is for the Jets. I like the talent for Garrett Wilson, but I'm definitely not starting in week 1. And then Damian Harris, I think the Pats, they could get destroyed by the Dolphins. This could be a really tough season for the Patriots. And you're not going to find a more pessimistic Pats fan. I am a Pats fan than me. It does feel like our numbers are growing, though. It feels like there's more and more pessimism out of the Patriots fan base as they hear how bad this offensive line has looked this whole preseason, how abysmal the offensive coaching is going to be this season. Let me talk about this for just 1 second, because I know it's gotten a lot of local attention with Patriots fans. I don't know how much national attention this story has gotten, though. And I think it is deserving of some national attention because the Patriots lose Josh McDaniels this offseason. Josh McDaniels was a part of the Patriots for all 6 of their Super Bowls. The Patriots have not won a Super Bowl without Josh McDaniels. That is definitely pretty telling. Josh McDaniels was a big part of the offensive success for the Patriots, who, by the way, the Patriots, they don't have one of the more talented rosters on the offensive side of the ball or on the defensive side of the ball. But the Patriots have sort of skimmed by under not much talent on offense. And then they lose one of the top offensive coordinators. He goes to the Raiders. And they replace him with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, both of which have never called offensive plays, never coached specifically offense before. They've both been head coaches. They both have been involved in the offense. But guys, this is not something that we have seen in the NFL. Like, this isn't to be underestimated of how bad this could be, how ugly this could be for the Pats offense. Is we have coaches that have never called offensive play calls in the NFL, and all of a sudden they are calling offensive play calls in the NFL. Like, we've never seen the leap from just going from defense to offense. We actually have seen something similar to this in the past, though. There has been an offensive line coach. Actually, I can't tell you exactly what his name was, but there was an offensive line coach. I think it actually might have been under Andy Reid. I could be wrong about this, but what the team, this did happen though. There was an offensive line coach who then became a defensive line coach, and he completely failed. Like, it was an abysmal type of switch, and it actually led to the head coach of that team getting fired. He was fired as well. Like, this, and that's the only scenario like this we've seen where a coach that was defensive or offensive switching to the other side of the ball. This is not an easy thing to do. Like, these coaches train their whole lives in these specific situations. It's not easy to just all of a sudden switch. So I'm very nervous for the Pats, and I'm very pessimistic about them. I can see no scenario where they come anywhere close to the Bills, obviously, but I think the Dolphins also are going to beat them today. They obviously have a chance. Bill Belichick's still the best coach of all time. That's certainly going to help them, but I'm pretty scared also about just the speed on this defense. So yeah, I'm out on Damien Harris basically for like all those reasons. I think Ramondre Stevenson also is going to get more pass catching work. Breece Hall or Carter in PPR. I would lean towards Breece Hall over Carter in PPR, but I mean, I don't feel very good about that one. It's definitely going to be pretty close. Does sound like Michael Carter's probably going to get more touches than Breece Hall. Let's see. Do you think Devontae Adams will be good this week? I think he's going to be great this week. Yeah, I think he's going to be great basically every week. I've been on the camp like all offseason sort of that like he probably won't be as good as he was last year and as he has been with Aaron Rodgers, but he's still going to be very, very, very good. He can be worse and still be a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football pretty easily, actually. But like, let's be real here. He's been the most used wide receiver in the red zone, and especially with inside the 5-yard line, that we've basically ever seen in the NFL with Aaron Rodgers. Like, that might not be how it goes with Derek Carr. It probably won't be. He probably won't be the most ever used red zone receiver with Derek Carr, but he's still going to see tons of targets. He could easily go over 10 targets in any given game. He could easily go over 100 yards any given game. He obviously can score a touchdown any given game. Like, he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver, I think, in fantasy football this year. And I have him ranked number 2 this week. Obviously, Diggs already played. In Cup already played. I probably would have both of them ranked ahead of Devontae Adams as well. But with both those guys already playing, it's Justin Jefferson, then it's Devontae Adams for me. Dameon Pierce, Elliott, or Penny, non-PPR, you got to start Zeke. You got to start Zeke, guys. Who would be your waiver wire replacement for Kittle this week? Yeah, I like Cole Kmet. I like David Njoku if either of those guys are kicking around on the waiver wire. But if they aren't, probably my favorite dart throw. Also Irv Smith if he's on the waiver wire, or Robert Tonyan if he's on the waiver wire. If all those guys are taken, though, which they might be, I like Evan Ingram, man. I'm playing Evan Ingram in basically all my DFS lineups this week, which, I mean, I've had a long life of betting on Evan Ingram and just losing every single time, but I still think there's talent with Evan Ingram, and I think he's in a far, far, far better situation than really he ever has been. I think he's going to be an every down player for the Jaguars, and I think the Jaguars could throw the ball more than 30 times today against a defense that allowed the most passing yards per game in the league last year in the Washington Commanders. So yeah, I don't hate. Am I crazy for starting Taysom at tight end, rushing TD? I think, yeah, you're pretty crazy. Like, overall, yeah, you're pretty crazy. It's not like the craziest thing, though. It's certainly possible that he scores a rushing TD. And like, if Taysom Hill even gets a single carry, like, he's instantly more valuable than the vast majority of tight ends, because no tight ends are getting carries, and that's a pretty valuable touch to be getting for Taysom Hill. But I'm not expecting him to score a rushing touchdown this week. You got to keep in mind too, Sean Payton's gone. So, like, is it possible he still has some sort of rushing role? Yeah. Is it likely? I don't know about that. So yeah, I'm not starting Taysom Hill. I would start any of those tight ends I just mentioned over Taysom Hill this week. with all the news about the weather in Chicago, thoughts on Elijah Mitchell? Are you starting him over Jacobs? ETN, I'd start him over Jacobs. I don't think I'd start him over ETN in a PPR league, but yeah, you can definitely consider him. Like Elijah Mitchell could easily go over 100 yards today, pretty easily. And I'm still very much in on Trey Lance as well. Defense, yeah, you want to be starting the Broncos or the Bears. Sorry, the Broncos or the Browns. Those are the only two defenses I'm starting in all my season-long leagues because I drafted them in the last round in all my leagues because they both start with multiple good matchups. So I'm going to be starting the Broncos or the Browns for each of the next 2 weeks in most of my leagues. And the Browns actually have 4 good matchups to start the season. But some like really deep defenses that I like that I'm playing in DFS that are probably available in all leagues. The Giants I like, and I do like the Bears too. I think both those defenses could surprise people. Sam, only 1 hour and 30 minutes till football Sunday. Wow, I can't believe it, man. We're getting close. I've been live for almost 3 hours. Now I go live every Sunday morning, basically from when I wake up, basically till kickoff. We have another hour-ish in this stream. I'll probably wrap up about 30 minutes before football starts because every week one, it's such a nightmare trying to figure out how to get NFL Red Zone back activated, how to make sure my TV setup is good, and I don't want to be stressing about that right when kickoff starts. So I'll probably wrap up the stream in about an hour. But guys, this is the true witching hour. This is, I know the NFL Red Zone, Scott Hansen says this is the witching hour when we're sort of at the end of the games in the 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock time slots. But this is the true witching hour right now for fantasy football because this is the hour and a half where we are going to make start-sit decisions that decide wins and losses. Right now is the time you got to be locking in your start-sit decisions. You got to have a lot of confidence in your start-sit decisions. And ultimately, that's what's going to decide whether you win and lose weeks. It can literally be the difference any given week of whether you win or lose your league. So you got to be making the most confident choices. With the news about Chicago, you're still starting Cole Kmet over Irv Smith, PPR. It's definitely a little bit more concerning. Like I wouldn't knock you for being a little scared about this extremely heavy rain. Let me actually read through this news report again because it sounds like let's look this up. Let me dive a little bit deeper into this rain because if the rain does like hold up a little bit, let's see, Bears 49ers hour by hour weather. We got some hourly forecasts here. 1 second. Yeah, I still think I'd go Cole Kmet over Irv Smith. It's definitely close though. And like it's again with the tight end position, even though these are 2 tight ends, I think they're a little bit above maybe the bottom of the barrel. They're all sort of in the same bucket, like after the top 5 tight ends. Like same thing, like both these guys were getting drafted behind Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox just had 1 point in the opening game. Both guys in like every tight end basically outside the top 5, they could score 1 point any given week. But I still like Cole Kmet a little bit more than Irv Smith. Javonte Williams or DJ Moore. Hey man, I've been using the app for 2 years and I love it. Thanks. Thank you, man, for trying out the app. Number one way you could possibly support me is by just going and trying out the WalterPicks app, which is as free as it's ever been. You can do infinite start-sit comparisons. You can analyze infinite trades. You can do infinite draft tool comparisons. The waiver wire advice we give out each week, 100% completely free. There are some premium subscriptions to the app that give you some more premium stats and insights. Plus, it unlocks League Sync. But even without League Sync, you can input your custom league settings. So I really do appreciate you checking out the WalterPicks app. And even if you don't end up subscribing to the WalterPicks app, another way you can really support me, especially if I am able to help you on this live stream, is just tossing the WalterPicks app a 5-star review. It takes you like 2 seconds on the iOS App Store and the Google Play App Store. Really do appreciate that as well. This is not an easy decision here between Javonte Williams and DJ Moore. I think this is the first Javonte Williams question I've seen today. We're about 2.5, maybe even 3 hours into this stream. You probably got to start Javonte against the Seahawks. And like this one could definitely break wrong because it could end up being Melvin Gordon that falls in the end zone 2 or 3 times and goes over 100 rushing yards. They said they're going to play the hot hand, and that could end up being Melvin Gordon. I think Javonte Williams, though, against the Seahawks, it's too good of a matchup. They're 6.5-point favorites. I think they're going to win by more than 6.5. I think they could win by like significant amount, and that's going to be big for Javonte. So I'm starting Javonte Williams, I think, in this situation. I do like DJ Moore a lot too, though. Start 2, PPR. Aaron Jones, Pittman, Hollywood Brown, T. Higgins. I mean, you got to start all these guys. This is probably a 6-person, 8-person fantasy league if you got all 4 of these guys. I think I would probably go with the I'd probably go with Aaron Jones and Hollywood Brown, though. I don't feel great about benching Pittman or T. Higgins. I'll show you. I have my wide receiver rankings that they've been on the bottom of the screen here for probably a while. I have Marquise Brown as my number 7 wide receiver this week ahead of Michael Pittman. Start Saquon Barkley or Penny week 1. You get everyone. Start Saquon Barkley. Start Ezekiel Elliott. Start Saquon Barkley. Like, you got to start these guys. You drafted them really early. Start them. And this is the best tiebreaker, by the way, for week 1, especially for week 1. This really doesn't matter the whole rest of the season. But for week 1, the best tiebreaker is which guys did you draft earliest? Like, why did you draft them earlier than these other guys if you weren't going to start them in week 1? That doesn't always hold true, but most of the time it does. So, like, go back and think about your draft, especially if you drafted really recently. Start the guys you drafted earliest. Like, have some confidence in your drafting ability. Woods or Watkins or Olave in PPR. I like all 3 of these guys as sort of sneaky starts, but guys, it's week 1 Sammy Watkins season. Sammy Watkins, he's been in the league 8 years. He's played nearly 60 games in the NFL, and over 10% of his fantasy points have come in week 1. 8 out of his 60 games account for over 10% of his fantasy points. Like, Watkins is in such a good situation. This week, there's no Allen Lazard. He's the clear top receiver. In my opinion, he's the clear top receiver for the Packers. And my opinion is coming straight from what Aaron Rodgers has been telling us all offseason. And Aaron Rodgers, guys, he's pretty blunt. Like, he is pretty to the point when he talks about this stuff. He's like, I don't trust everything everyone says for the quarterback. Like, I don't trust whatever Pete Carroll ever says. But with Aaron Rodgers, I do trust mostly what he says. And this whole offseason, look, with regards to the depth chart and who the top options are. And for the most part, all offseason, he said, yeah, it's Watkins, it's Lazard, and it's Cobb. These are our starting receivers. Allen Lazard's out. That's going to give Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson an interesting opportunity. Sounds like Robert Tonyan is going to play. But yeah, I like Watkins. I think Watkins has really, really high ceiling. Obviously, it's Sammy Watkins. He has a really low floor too. But yeah, I would go Watkins there, I think. I love the app. Do I start Devontae Smith over Mooney because of rain? Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think Mooney is in like questionable territory now all of a sudden because of this rain. I'm not going to overreact to downpour rain. I do think at the extreme levels of weather, whether it be rain, whether it be cold, whether it be snow, you should be a little bit concerned. But again, overall, the most important thing with weather is the wind. And there's a little bit of wind in this game, 10 miles an hour of wind, which does maybe add a little bit more level of concern with how bad the rain looks. But they're going to be able to throw in this game. It's not like this is going to be like the Patriots-Bills game, which, by the way, that game was all about wind. So I still think it's okay to go Devontae Smith over Mooney. Like, Devontae Smith's still a pretty good option. But I'm not going to recommend benching Mooney just like all together, no matter what. But yeah, I'm okay going Devontae Smith over Mooney. App looks amazing. Great job. Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. Start Breece Hall or CEH? Yeah, it's got to be CEH. Got to be CEH. Breece Hall is pretty much a must bench, I think, this week. I did tell someone to start him over Michael Carter, which maybe honestly was bad advice because Michael Carter's supposed to out-touch Breece Hall this week. But Breece Hall is not someone I'm sleeping on like for the course of the season. I'm definitely in on Breece Hall long-term, and I'm going to be sending some trade offers if he starts slow. Saquon or Najee PPR? Yeah, I'm going Saquon over Najee. DJ Moore, Brandon Cooks. I'd lean DJ Moore over Brandon Cooks. All right, we got another Chicago Darnell Mooney flex question. Yeah, no, I'm not starting any of these guys over Darnell Mooney. Melvin Gordon, maybe. Again, the Seahawks are going to get crushed, I think, by the Broncos on Monday night. So he has the safest floor, definitely, of everybody on this list. Like, if you really want to lock in the points, go with Melvin Gordon. But I wouldn't start Melvin Gordon over Mooney, personally, even with the weather. DK or Mooney or Elijah Moore. I like Mooney, but DK has good stats with Geno Smith. I honestly would go Elijah Moore, Zach. So not to put you in a real pickle here. If you're leaning DK, go DK. And also, if you took DK before these two guys in your draft, go DK. But Elijah Moore, he averaged 16 fantasy points per game over the back half of last season. And that a lot of that was with Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Zach Wilson. They're going to get crushed today by the Ravens. I do think the Ravens defense is pretty good. But yeah, I think I actually might lean Elijah Moore here. I actually do think this one, though, is between DK and Elijah Moore. I would probably rule out Mooney in this situation. Again, guys, you can answer all of your start-sit questions in the WalterPicks app as well. Let me actually just show you one quick example here of what it looks like in the WalterPicks app. This is actually from the draft tool. This is not our start-sit tool. So I actually think we have Sutton projected more points than Judy in the start sit tool, but you can tap on any two players as many times as you want and get infinite comparisons. And there also this does take into account your custom league settings too. This is in the WalterPicks app. You can find the link in the YouTube description or in the TikTok bio. I'm not going to be able to get to everyone's start sit question. It's almost impossible. It is impossible for me to get to every single start sit question. The start sit questions, guys, I've been live for 3 hours. They've been flowing steadily since I started this stream. So there's almost no way I can get to all of them. I do try to touch on basically every game though, to try to help everyone out. But for all the questions I don't get to, and even the ones I do, you should also check in the WalterPicks app. It will help you, and it will show you boom and bust percentages, not ceiling and floor, in the start sit tool. So that's obviously really helpful as well. Yeah, I'm benching Ertz. Where's Allen in top 10 QBs? He was number one, obviously, but he didn't play. Or he already played. So like this, all my rankings here for the players that haven't played yet. So you won't see Josh Allen, you won't see Steph Diggs, you won't see Cooper Kupp, all of which were top 3 at their position in my rankings. I think Kupp was number 1. Diggs might have been number 3 after Justin Jefferson. But yeah, like I just took those guys out because this is a Sunday morning live. These guys already played, so I'm just trying to be helpful for everybody. We have a question. Let me pull up my picks against the spread here because we do have someone asking about those. I did have around 55% accuracy last year against the spread. I pick every game against the spread every Sunday morning. My locks though were closer to 65%, which is really going to be tough for me to keep up. But I do have 2 locks this week, one of which is the Jaguars +3 against the Commanders, and the other is the Broncos +6.5 against the Seahawks. I did want to get back to the Mike Davis question. I did see someone ask about Mike Davis in the TikTok live. I did see someone ask about it in the YouTube live. And yeah, I am not starting. I'm not starting Mike Davis. Guys, we've been through this. Like, he's going to be the de facto starter for the Ravens today, which means maybe he's going to get 10 touches. But that could still easily be under 3, even 4. Like, he could score close to 0 fantasy points. I'm more confident that Mike Davis scores closer to 0 fantasy points than he does 10 fantasy points. That's not a guy you want in your starting lineup. And one of the things that the Ravens like most about Mike Davis is his pass blocking ability, which maybe is good for him getting on the field, but that's not going to be good for him scoring fantasy points. We also know Lamar barely throws to running backs, and we also know Lamar is a beast on the ground, so he could also score all the rushing touchdowns in any given week. So yeah, I'm not feeling very good about Mike Davis or Kenyon Drake. Ty Montgomery is active week 1 against the Dolphins. He's apparently not 100% healthy. Surprising that he is active because he got carted off the field. I think it was the second preseason game for the Pats. That is a small blow to Mondre Stevenson, but not a big enough blow for me to move the needle with the projections or for me to take him out of the starting lineup if I have him in there. Jacoby Myers, he's active. That's good to see. Tyler Algier is inactive week 1 against the Saints. That's not good for anyone that thought Tyler Algier was going to be anything relevant in fantasy football. He's headed to the waiver wire, probably in a lot of leagues after this week. You never like to see rookies be healthy scratches. This gives me flashbacks to Trey Sermon, who I drafted in a league last year, and he was a healthy scratch in week 1. You hate to see it. Yeah, RIP to Tyler Algier in fantasy. He's not going to be relevant at all. Damian Williams, all of a sudden, looks like the number 2 back. Cordell Patterson, guys. I mean, was there anyone that like last year, Cordell Patterson, he was my favorite last round pick in fantasy. This year, he's pretty clearly in line for the same role that he was in last year, which means 5 targets, 6 targets a game, 5 carries, 6 carries a game. Not the biggest workload, but he is a guy that can make the most out of those targets. He could score some touchdowns around the red zone too. I do think Damian Williams will be the number 2 back there. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We have Drake London is officially active. Michael Thomas is officially active. Guys, we're getting close. We got the official actives and inactives. This is how you know we're getting real close to kickoff. Steelers or Commanders D? I think I would probably lean towards the Commanders defense against the Jaguars. I don't feel great about starting a defense against the Bengals, who I'm really interested to see how much better. Look at this logo from Chase. Pittman, Brandon Cooks. I'm interested to see how much better the Bengals offensive line really is in this game. That's going to be really intriguing to see. Guys, if you are watching live on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, I'm getting to as many TikTok comments as well as I can. hit the like button and the follow button on TikTok as well. But also, if you want your comment potentially pulled up on the live stream, you got to come to YouTube because I can't do that on TikTok. And the link to the YouTube is right in the TikTok bio. Pittman, Brandon Cooks, Amon-Ra, Juju, Robert Woods. Yeah, this one's it's Pittman, it's Juju, and I think it's Brandon Cooks as well. It's between Cooks and Amon-Ra definitely for that last slot. Pittman 100% though needs to be started in this situation. Best anytime touchdown scorer today. Yeah, let me think about this one. I actually do really like Evan Ingram. I'm sure the odds on him anytime TD score are pretty good if you can even find them. I also do like the odds of some of these top running backs. I mean, like if you're looking for the safest bets, it's CMC, it's Jonathan Taylor, it's Austin Eckler, it's Derrick Henry, it's Alvin Kamara, it's Dalvin Cook. Like if you're looking for the safest bets, I mean, all these top 10 running backs, there's going to be a lot of touchdowns from these top 10 running backs today. But if you're looking for the best odds, I don't hate throwing the dart on Evan Ingram. Again, let me pull up my DraftKings lineup. I'm way too overweight on Evan Ingram today. And again, I would tread cautiously with my Evan Ingram optimism because for whatever reason, and there is a reason actually, he had a really good rookie tight end season, which we almost never see rookie tight end succeed. This is part of the reason I'm so high on Pitts this season. And Ingram has never really done much since then. It's been a long time that I've been making bets on Evan Ingram to outproduce expectation, and he just lets me down every single year. It's like a national holiday with Evan Ingram letting me down. But this year, man, I think it could be the year for Evan Ingram, who's going to be in a much different offense with much less target competition. And I think he's going to be near every down role with a quarterback that I think is going to take a massive leap and surprise a lot of people in Trevor Lawrence. So I Ingram as a really big dart throw this week. I'm not starting him in any season-long leagues, but I did like his price on DraftKings. Elijah Moore or Jalen Waddle? Got to be Waddle. You got to start Jalen Waddle. Start Tunyon or Muth. I think I would go with Muth over Tunyon, probably with Tunyon coming off the injury. Thomas or Etienne at flex. Again, with Travis Etienne, guys, in a PPR league, you got to start him. Like, you kind of have to start him, especially if you took him with one of your top 6 picks. I think you have to start Travis Etienne. He is going to be a factor in the receiving game. This is probably the least confident we can be in James Robinson in any given week. Like, as the weeks go on and he gets healthier and more acclimated back to football after the Achilles injury, it is possible that we see a smaller and smaller role for Travis Etienne. So I feel like week 1, you got to start him. Same thing with Zeke, like a healthy Zeke in week 1, you got to start him. With where you drafted him, you got to start him. I do think you can start Michael Thomas though this week. Like, it's not like it's you have to start Etienne over Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas does have a really high ceiling against the Falcons. I'm okay starting Michael Thomas this week, but I think I would start Etienne over him. Penny or Kareem Hunt. I'm definitely going Penny over Kareem Hunt. I would go Penny over Monty as well. I saw that question in the YouTube live. Guys, Rashad Penny has a really high ceiling this week. We have seen him get over 20 touches twice in his career. I think it was actually his last 2 games of last year. Both of those games, he was a top 5 running back in fantasy football. He has no competition for touches this week. Kenneth Walker is almost definitely out. He hasn't played since his hernia surgery. He hasn't practiced since his hernia surgery. He could be back in the next couple of weeks, though. Chris Carson retired. Like, there's no competition. I'm definitely starting Penny. Start Mike Will or McLaurin. Walter said McLaurin by a little bit. Yeah, I think I would go Mike Williams over Terry McLaurin. I think I disagree with Walter on this one. I think Mike Williams is just such a high ceiling that I want pieces of this Chargers game. You want pieces of this game. This is potentially a massive shootout. All these AFC West games, massive shootout potential. So yeah, I'm in on Mike Williams over McLaurin, but I would definitely argue that McLaurin's floor is higher. Like, McLaurin has a pretty safe floor this week against the Jaguars. So if you're going for the safety, I'd be pretty surprised if McLaurin goes under 10 points. I wouldn't be that shocked if Mike Williams did, but I think Mike Williams has a better chance at like 25 plus points, week winning type of upside. Zeke or Thielen, don't be nervous about Pollard. I get being nervous about the matchup, but Zeke's probably still going to get 20 touches in this game. You got to start Zeke. I know the matchup's scary. Back in week 1 of last season, there's the same matchup. Didn't go very well for Zeke, but he saw a lot of touches. He had some goal line carries too. I expect the same thing this week. And so the logic still holds. You got to start Zeke. Mooney or Dillon. Yeah, I'm a little bit more nervous about Darnell Mooney with this rain completely downpouring in Chicago. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. The field looks just atrocious. I mean, this honestly looks embarrassingly bad in Chicago. I don't know how an NFL is looking this bad just from rain. Like, this is pretty embarrassing. I don't know if you guys are seeing these videos on Twitter, but if you haven't, go check Twitter. Go check some of the top accounts. Like, the NFL should be embarrassed by how bad this field looks. Like, you're seeing splashes every step, like just massive puddles. I think you got to really strongly consider getting Mooney out of your lineups because of this. Robert Woods anytime TD, almost one more hour till kickoff. I don't hate the Robert Woods anytime TD. Robert Woods was actually my most drafted wide receiver in my best ball drafts. I did almost 500 best ball drafts this offseason. So I'm certainly rooting for Robert Woods more than the average person. But I was also drafting him in like the 10th and 11th round. Like, he was going really, really late in those drafts, especially early in the offseason. So I don't have that much confidence. I just really liked the price for Robert Woods. All right, really stuck on this one. You're talking great about both Penny and ETN at flex, PPR. Yeah, Ray, this is definitely a tough one. And I do feel good about both. This is definitely close. Let me actually see. Let's see where our projections roll out for this one. I think we actually have them back to back in our rankings. I think we have Penny projected just slightly ahead of ETN. I think I would probably go Penny over ETN. I think Penny's a little bit safer, just a tiny bit safer, because we've seen Penny produce with workload. We know the workload's going to be there this week. ETN's definitely just a slightly bigger question mark. We've never seen him play an NFL game. I'm very confident in his receiving ability. But yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay going with Rashad Penny. Playing it safe in week 1 with Rashad Penny, I'm fine with that. Ayuk or Breece Hall, definitely Ayuk at the bazooka over Breece Hall. Guys, you really should be benching Breece Hall in week 1. Hold on to him, but bench him in week 1. Dolphins or Titans defense? Oh, man. I'd probably go Dolphins, honestly, over Titans. I'm very pessimistic about the Pats, though. I'm the wrong person. I'm the wrong Pats fan to ask that question to, because there's no more pessimism from any other Pats fan than me. Romeo Doubs or AJ Dillon worth playing in DFS? I think I think they're both worth playing in DFS. In tournaments, definitely not head-to-head contests. Both will be really low owned, I think, in DFS. I'm okay taking stabs on all of the Packers receivers, honestly, in DFS. But Watkins is probably my favorite one to take stabs on. I think I like Dillon more than Doubs, because at least Dillon has somewhat of a floor. Romeo Doubs has no floor. Christian Watson has no floor. Both guys could score 0 points, and I wouldn't be that shocked. I wouldn't be, because one of them's probably going to be the odd man out. They probably all will rotate a little bit. I think the Packers are going to spread the ball around a lot more than what people are expecting this year. But still, I mean, one of them's the 4th receiver, maybe even the 5th receiver on this team. So, hey, Sam, 3-year sub. Wow. Finn, thanks so much, man. Penny or Edmonds and MT or Bateman. Yeah, these are not easy choices by any means. And I am like pretty in on Penny for how bad I'm expecting the Seahawks to be. I'm surprisingly high on Penny. I would probably play Penny over Edmonds. I do like Edmonds a lot in his receiving role potentially, but again, Rashad Penny is a guy that we've only seen him have monster weeks, in weeks where he saw 20 plus touches, and that's what I'm expecting from him this week. Even though I think the Seahawks are going to get destroyed, I think the Broncos destroy the Seahawks this week. I've been placing wagers on that for the past 2 months, but again, I'm still willing to bet on Penny in a pretty locked in workload. And then MT or Bateman, I'm okay going Michael Thomas over Bateman this week as well. And I'm more concerned about Bateman this week specifically, just because I think the Ravens could just run right over the Jets. Like just run right over them. Like Lamar Jackson throwing less than 20 pass attempts is very possible today. And Lamar Jackson's still my number 2 quarterback this week, because I think he could easily rush over 100 yards. Like, enough of this Mike Davis and Kenyon Drake talk, guys. Lamar is going to be the guy that benefits the most from all these running backs being out in terms of his rushing. So yeah, I'm okay with Lamar this week, but yeah, I'm okay going MT over Bateman. I'm okay going MT over Amon-Ra. But I don't think I can play MT over Juju, guys, in this game. This just as much as this Chargers Raiders game, you want pieces of that game. You want pieces of this Chiefs Cardinals game too. The Cardinals secondary was not good last year. Bottom 10 in the league. They did very little to add to that group this offseason. Juju, I think, is going to be a lock for at least 10 fantasy points this week. MT, I think, has a higher ceiling. Amon-Ra, I don't hate him either. But yeah, I'm okay with both these guys. I have Judy in a PPR league. Yeah, go with the Judy Russ stack, man. That's going to be a fun stack. I'm starting Russ in one league over Trey Lance as well. Let me pull up my quarterback rankings. Again, I have Russ 1 spot ahead of Trey Lance. It's really close. The rain in Chicago, if anything, makes me even more excited for Trey Lance and his rushing potential. Like, there's only 2 quarterbacks this week and really like most weeks throughout this season, this is going to be the case. There's only 2 quarterbacks that have a chance to rush for over 100 yards. It's Lamar Jackson and it's Trey Lance. No other quarterback really has a chance to do it. Like Kyler's going to run, Jalen Hurts is going to run, but they're not going to come even close to 100 rushing yards. So the fact in his range of outcomes is super exciting. If he rushes for 100 yards and a touchdown, he's probably top 10 quarterback in any given week. But I still would go Russ, I think. At home, at Seattle, man, Russ is going to cook. I can't wait to see Russ cook. I would go Russ. Pollard or Ayuk, I'd probably lean Pollard over Ayuk. Pierce or Metcalf, I'd go Metcalf over Pierce. Saquon or Swift. That one's really close. You got to really be starting both those guys, though. Like both. That's my answer to that one. I have Saquon one spot ahead of Swift, so I guess Saquon, but you're in a really shallow league if you're playing only one of those guys. These are my 2 defenses I'm starting the most. But I would go Broncos, I think, over Browns. I'm just so confident in Geno Smith being terrible that I would probably go with the Broncos defense. Thoughts on Lance and Eli with the rain? Yeah, it's only going to help both those guys, I think. From a fantasy perspective, it definitely makes me a little more concerned about Ayuka the Bazooka, about Darnell Mooney. I don't really get that concerned about the weather either. I'm mostly concerned when wind is a really big factor, but I don't think that you should not care about this rain. I'm watching the video literally right in front of me on Twitter, and like it is more rain than grass than you're seeing on this Bears field. And honestly, this is just embarrassment from Chicago. I know they're looking at a new stadium. I mean, maybe this will amplify those talks, because I mean, this is embarrassing. This is not something you would see on most NFL fields, even with this much rain. Like there's more rain than grass. Like it's really ugly out there. So it's only going to be good for rushing and bad for passing, I think. Hey Sam, it's CB Fishing. Thanks for coming back for another season, Colton. Great to see you in the live, man. London, CH, AJ Green, Watkins. You're always in deep leagues, Colton, which is very fun for fantasy. I would probably rank these guys from most confident to least confident. I'd probably say CEH, London, AJ Green. I'm actually myself starting Watkins over London in one league, but this is a risky move. Like London has a better floor, I think, than Watkins, but Watkins has a pretty exciting ceiling, in my opinion. But Clyde is the guy on this list that's locked into the most touches. He's a starting running back. And again, that should be pretty high scoring. I think I would go Clyde here and just lock in the touches. And this is how I usually feel with these running back receiver options like this. Like Clyde's going to get minimum 10 touches. You cannot say that about any other guy on this list. And obviously those are carries, not targets, a little less valuable, but he could also get close to 15, 20 touches. So yeah, I'd probably go Clyde, then Watkins, then London, then AJ Green. Hey, Sam. First year sub, Rob, thanks so much for subbing. Again, that's the number one way you can support me is subscribing to the YouTube. Subscribing to one of the premium subs in the WalterPicks app is the number one way you could possibly support the brand. Woods, Sutton, yeah, this is Sutton. It's got to be Sutton. I would go Sutton. Mooney or Metcalf PPR, yeah, I'm okay pivoting to Metcalf over Mooney. I'm fine with that. With the bad weather conditions, it does make me a little more scared about Mooney. It does make me a little bit more scared about Ayuk. It doesn't make me more scared, though, about Trey Lance. It doesn't make me more scared about Deebo Samuel either, or Elijah Mitchell. Like I'm not scared about any of those guys all of a sudden. Sam, this is a tough one. Adam Thielen, Brandon Cooks, DK Metcalf. Yeah, this is a very tough one. I think you probably should go with Brandon Cooks. I think I would probably go with Brandon Cooks here. Adam Thielen is definitely an interesting option. But yeah, I think our rankings go Brandon Cooks, then Metcalf, then Adam Thielen. I think that's how our rankings go. All three of them could have big weeks though. Yeah, but personally, I think I'd go Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks has a really safe floor for sure. All right, guys, we got about 30 minutes left in the stream. We're going to be doing something a little bit different this year in the end of these streams. I'm actually going to end the last 30 minutes of these streams are going to be exclusively on YouTube. So I've been on TikTok and YouTube this whole time. I do try to answer as many TikTok comments as I possibly can, but I'm going to end the streams, the last 30 minutes of these streams, going rapid fire in the comments, only on YouTube. This is a little easier for me to focus on one. So if you're watching live on TikTok, I'm going to be live for the next 30 minutes on YouTube. Link to the YouTube live is in the TikTok bio. And I'm going to be going rapid fire in the comments too. So if I haven't gotten to your comment yet, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to get to it in the next 30 minutes. Of course, again, if I don't get your comments, it's very hard for me to get to all of them. Definitely check out your Start Sit questions in the WalterPicks app. There's no better place to answer all of your Start Sit questions than the WalterPicks app. Again, so I'm about to wrap up the TikTok live, but I'll still be live on YouTube for the next 30 minutes answering rapid fire questions. So again, if you're on the TikTok live, come to the YouTube live. I'm going to be rapid fire in the comments. Hey, Sam, love your work. Thanks, man. Penny or Cooks full PPR. Super close. Full PPR league makes me want to lean towards Cooks. But again, we've seen Penny just dominate with big workloads. He's going to get a big workload this week. There's no Kenneth Walker almost definitely. And Chris Carson retired this offseason. I still think I might go Cooks, though. I still think Cooks in a full PPR league. Hey, Sam, 2-year sub, Godwin, MT, Dylan for flex. You can't start Chris Godwin. You just can't do it. We got to see him and what his role is going to look like with his injury. Like, just wait a little bit for Chris Godwin. He's already ahead of schedule. Him being back week 2 would be way ahead of schedule from where you drafted him. Like, you just got the steal of the draft with Chris Godwin, the fact that he's playing in week 1. But yeah, I'm not starting him in week 1. I would play Michael Thomas, I think, over AJ Dillon as well, especially if this is a PPR league. Again, the other nice thing about getting all your start-sit questions answered in the WalterPicks app is you can input your scoring settings. And I do appreciate, by the way, with even on this live stream, if you're asking start-sit questions, let me know, is this a PPR league? Is this a half PPR league? Is this a non-PPR league? Because that will affect the answer. It should affect how you're thinking about things, because that's how the fantasy points are scored. Like, it does matter. So definitely input that in the app as well. Start Ertz or pick up Njoku. I'd pick up Njoku. I'd start Njoku. I'm nervous about Ertz coming off the calf injury. He was questionable all week. It seemed at one point doubtful. Now it looks like he's going to play. But, I mean, these calf injuries, these could get re-aggravated really easily. He's over 30 years old. And maybe they just ease him in because they know these could get re-aggravated easily. And Njoku is going to play almost every snap, I think, for the Browns, too, as the number 2 passing option. And, again, outside the top 5 tight ends, like, you're just praying. We're all just praying at the bottom of the barrel tight end that you just fall into the end zone. And Njoku has a pretty good chance to do that as a guy that's going to be out there pretty much every snap. He probably has a better chance even than Ertz with Ertz's injury. Sutton or Michael Thomas, I would lean towards Sutton over Michael Thomas. It's definitely close. By the way, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, again, I'm doing something slightly different this year where the last 30 minutes of the live, I'm only on YouTube. So I am technically still live on TikTok, but I'm not really looking at the TikTok chat for the last 30 minutes of the stream, but I can pull up your comment on the YouTube live. So come to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. 3rd year using Walter. Wow. Thanks, Alessandro. Really appreciate that. Really do appreciate, by the way, guys, if this stream is helpful for you at all, we are heading towards the end of the stream, which is crazy. We've been live over 3 hours, almost 3.5 hours now. Every Sunday morning, by the way, I'm live for basically when I wake up right until right around kickoff. Today, I will be ending the stream right around 12:30 so I can get my own TV set up ready for kickoff. But I really do appreciate 5-star reviews for the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Android app store. It helps us out so much. Cooks or Mike Williams? I lean Mike Williams over Cooks. It is close. I wouldn't be shocked if Walter tells you Cooks over Mike Williams because Cooks does have a lot less target competition than Mike Williams. But again, I want pieces of this Chargers-Raiders game, so I'm going Mike Williams. All right, we are about to go into the rapid fire section of this game. I do want to refresh Twitter really quickly. Make sure we're not missing any breaking news. Oh man. Yeah, you got to be pretty nervous. I don't know if you guys don't follow WalterPicks on Twitter, by the way, you can find that in the YouTube description. Go look at the last tweet from WalterPicks because that's pretty concerning. Probably the most concerning thing I've seen out of this 49ers Bears game, and definitely like after just watching this one clip. And I don't want to overrate this one clip too much, but it is Trey Lance. Maybe it's Justin Fields. I think it's Trey Lance. The ball just fully slipping out of his hand, trying to throw the ball. Yeah, don't start Ayuk. Don't start Donald Mooney. I don't think at this point. Bateman, Miles Sanders, Robert Woods. It's got to be Bateman, I think, in this one. I would go Bateman in this one. Melvin Gordon or Breece Hall. I'd go Melvin over Breece. I'm not starting Breece this week. Nico Collins, Burks, London at flex. That one's really interesting. I think I would go Drake London. And I'm really, really excited to watch Traylon Burks, man. I think he could really surprise a lot of people, but I'm not confident in him week 1. I like Nico Collins a lot, one of my most drafted late wide receivers in best ball, but I'm not starting week 1 either. I think I would go Drake London. I have Claypool on my bench if one of MT leagues overall, thoughts on him? Yeah, I'm starting MT definitely over Chase Claypool. I'm nervous for Claypool and Pickens because I think only one of them is going to be able to carve out that number 2 receiver role, and I don't know which one it's going to be. So both come with a lot of risk, in my opinion. Hey, Sam, pick one, Cooper, London, or Watkins. I'd rank them in that order, I think, Sean. I'm actually starting Watkins over London in one of my leagues, but I don't feel great about recommending that to people. I think London projects better than Watkins still. I want some action on week one, Sammy Watkins, but I'm not starting him over Amari Cooper. No chance. Zeke, Javonte, and Kamara pick two. Yeah, it's Zeke and Kamara, I think. Actually, I don't know. I might play Javonte over Zeke. You're definitely playing Kamara. You got to play Alvin Kamara. There's no question about that. With the matchup for Zeke in this situation, in the matchup for Javonte, I'm okay going Javonte over Zeke. I think Javonte could have a really big week against the Seahawks. Edmonds or Dillon, half PPR. I'm going Edmonds over Dillon in PPR and half PPR. Tony, Mooney, Amari. Guys, we got to bench Mooney at this point with how bad the field looks in Chicago. I think you go Tony and Amari. Christian Kirk or Michael Thomas full PPR. Walter projecting 13.6 for both. Yeah, I'm going Christian Kirk. I really like Kirk this week against Washington. There's a little bit of rain in that game too. If that's enough to scare you off of Kirk, that's okay. But it's not enough to scare me off of Christian Kirk. So yeah, I'm okay going Christian Kirk, Michael Thomas over Michael Thomas. Thoughts on Elijah Moore today? I really like Elijah Moore today. I have him in some of my DFS lineups. Let me pull up my DraftKings lineup again. I'll show you my picks against the spread at the bottom of the screen here too. But yeah, I really do like Elijah Moore. MT or DK, I'm leaning towards Michael Thomas over DK Metcalf. It certainly is a close one though. I like Elijah Moore more than David Montgomery. Elijah Mitchell more than David Montgomery, just by a small amount. But I just trust the 49ers rushing attack much more than the Bears. Drake London or Melvin Gordon in a PPR league. If you're going for the floor, it's Melvin Gordon. Again, he's probably going to get at least minimum 10 carries, maybe a few targets as well against a really bad Seahawks defense. So you're locking in touches. This is why usually in the flex slot, I do like leaning running back because you're locking in touches and you don't get locked in touches at the receiver position. But Drake London definitely has a higher ceiling than Melvin Gordon. So ask yourself, Josh, do you want to lock in at least 10 points or do you want to shoot for 20 plus points? If it's the latter, Drake London. If it's the former, I'd go Melvin Gordon. Chris Godwin or Drake London or George Pickens. Yeah, we're not starting Chris Godwin this week, guys. You don't start him. Do not start him. And I don't really want to start George Pickens in week one either. So I think I would go Drake London. Again, here's the guys that we are not starting these guys this week. Do not start these guys. And honestly, I think we should add at this point. I'm okay adding both Darnell Mooney and Brandon Ayuka, the bazooka, to this game. And again, go follow the WalterPicks app on Twitter. The link is in the description. If you want to see why I just add Mooney and Ayuk to this list, is just go watch that one video and tell me you feel good about Darnell Mooney and Ayuk in fantasy this week with the quarterbacks maybe not even being able to throw the ball at all with how wet the conditions are in Chicago. And again, I don't usually overrate the rain, but I will react to the extremes in the weather. And it does look pretty bad right now in Chicago. So I'm okay siding with some of these other guys in the Mooney and Ayuk decisions. Same thing with Drake London, though. I'm okay starting them in some situations. Pretty much all these other guys, though, I'm definitely benching. Lazard, Kittle, Dobbs, playing. Put them on the bench. James Robinson, Chris Godwin, also coming off injuries. I want them nowhere near my starting lineup, to be honest. I'm not even considering starting them, but I am excited for them if they can return to full health and get a big workload. But we don't know that's going to be the case in week one. Jalen Tolbert, I want nothing to do with him in week one. And Garrett Wilson, same thing. Damon Harris, same thing. I'm out on all those guys in week one. MT, Cooks, or CH non-PPR. I feel like this MT and Cooks one is really close. In a non-PPR league, though, I don't hate Clyde in this situation. And if this is a PPR league, Clyde's not even in consideration. But in a non-PPR league, you really need touchdowns, and carries are a lot more valuable. So I honestly might go CEH in a non-PPR format. All right. Let me take a sip of water. Let me get a sip of coffee because we're about to go rapid fire here. And Ryan, I'm going to start with this one. So I'm okay starting Trey Lance still. The weather is definitely concerning, but it's just going to mean more rushing attempts for Lance. And again, there's only two quarterbacks this week that have a realistic chance at over 100 rushing yards. There's only two QBs. It's Lamar Jackson and it's Trey Lance. And that's a huge deal. So yeah, I'm okay still starting Trey Lance. I'll stand by my Trey Lance ranking here. I'm starting Trey Lance. I think he's my number 9 ranked quarterback. Obviously, Josh Allen already played which would have pushed him down to number 10, but he already played. So he's number 9 of the quarterbacks left. All right, rapid fire here. Can you pick 2 full PPR? Big Mike, T, DJ. Big Mike reminds me of Michael Orr. Big Mike, T, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. Yeah, definitely not Kmet. Out of these guys, it's Big Mike and DJ Moore, I think, for me, or T Higgins and DJ Moore. Really, all three of those receivers are really good options. But yeah, I want pieces of this Chargers Raiders game, and I really do like DJ Moore a lot too. So I think I'll go Big Mike. Football Sunday is back. I've been loving the app, using it for my second year. Love to hear that. I need help for my flex. Dylan, Olave, Collins, 16-man PPR. Also update on MT. Yeah, so Michael Thomas is playing. That does downgrade Olave a little bit. I would definitely play AJ Dillon. I'm assuming it sounds like only one of these guys, right? I need help for my flex. Yeah, I would go AJ Dillon. Lock in the touches, man. Especially a 16-team league. Like the bigger your league is, too, I think the more incentivized you lock in the touches and the safety at flex with the running back options like AJ Dillon or like Tony Pollard. I do like Olave and Collins though in a 16-man PPR league. That's like some decent depth. I'm really bullish on Olave too. Like long term, I think he was the most ready NFL ready rookie receiver in this class. And this is a really good rookie receiver class. So I do like Olave long term, but let's see how he looks against the Falcons in week 1. I'm okay going with AJ Dillon in this situation. And thanks so much for subscribing, by the way. I really do appreciate that. And guys, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on the YouTube live too. Helps us out a ton. And if you're watching live on TikTok, I do respond to a lot of the TikTok comments in the first 3 hours of the stream. But in the last 30 minutes, which we're in now, I only respond to the YouTube comments because I'm able to go a little faster and pull them up on screen. So if you are watching live on TikTok, come to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio, and you'll get a chance to get your comment pulled up on the screen and answered. Juju or MT? I'm leaning Juju over MT. I think he's just much safer and maybe even has a similar ceiling. Marquise Brown or Leonard Fournette at flex. That one's really tough. I like locking in the touches. I have Marquise Brown as my number 7 receiver this week, though. Like he could really go nuclear against the Chiefs. But Fournette really has a high ceiling as well. I don't have him as my top 10 running backs. He's probably number 11 or 12, though, for me. So I'd probably lean Fournette over Marquise Brown, but it's definitely really close. Terry or Sutton, full PPR. Again, super close one. I think I have McLaurin ahead in the projections. I think I'd go Terry McLaurin, probably over Sutton. Pick one: Bateman, Damian Pierce, Christian Kirk. Yeah, it's Christian Kirk. I really like Christian Kirk this week. I think that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a much bigger day than people realize. Lance or Prescott PPR. I'm still going Lance over Prescott in a PPR league because of the rushing. Obviously, PPR doesn't really matter for quarterbacks, but I do appreciate Mr. Josh, given the context. But yeah, I have Lance 1 spot ahead or 2 spots ahead of Dak Prescott. Amari Cooper definitely has to be played over Marcus Valdes-Scantling. And I get it. You want a piece of the Chiefs game, but Amari Cooper is so obviously the top receiver for the Browns that even with Jacoby Brissett, you gotta expect him to outscore Marcus Valdes-Scantling. Rashad Penny, Travis Etienne, Antonio Gibson. I think I would go in this order. I think I would go them in this order. Penny, then Etienne, then Gibson. I think someone else earlier asked about Penny and Etienne too. I like both guys more than Gibson this week. I like Brandon Cooks a little bit more than Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not playing Zach Ertz this week. Someone asked again about Zach Ertz. I'd play Hawkinson over Ertz. I would play Brady over Lamb. Again, you can see my quarterback rankings below. Let me pull up my running back rankings now too, so you can see those. Not that I don't think anyone should be benching any of these running backs. Thomas, Breece Hall, or Brandon Cooks, half PPR. Need a big boom after Akers. Yeah, then go Michael Thomas or Brandon Cooks. Honestly, Brandon Cooks is, I think, a little bit safer of a bet than Thomas. But Thomas against the Falcons, man. If you're looking for a boom, I'm okay going Michael Thomas. If you did start Cam Akers, RIP to everyone that had Cam Akers, by the way. I mean, Cam Akers is looking. I'm full panic mode, definitely on Cam Akers. Like it seems like some people they're trying. Oh, it's only week 1. Maybe Cam Akers, gets a bigger role throughout the course of the. I'm fully panicked on Cam Akers. I don't have him on any teams, but if I have him, I'm willing to sell ultimately low on Cam Akers because I think he's better chance that he's on the waiver wire in like a month than he's in starting lineups. What's some good defense options? It's the Broncos, it's the Browns, it's the Bears, and it's the Giants. Those are like in order, probably what I would go for. In order to of who's likely to be available in your league is probably that order. But I do like all those defenses. Saints or Broncos D? I'm going Broncos D over Saints D. Can you put the QB list back on? Yeah, let me pull up the QB list again. Trade Burks for Dameon Pierce and Alec Pierce. I wouldn't do this, Luke. I would not fall into this trap. You're giving up the highest upside player in this trade for sure. Dameon Pierce does have some high upside, but I'm relatively out on Dameon Pierce compared to where he's getting valued right now, because I don't think he's going to have a very big receiving role in this offense that's likely going to be trailing in a lot of games. I think Rex Burkhead has this receiving role in the backfield. I think he's going to get the third down role, and at a minimum, he's going to get most of the receiving work. And Treylon Burks, people are very down on Treylon Burks right now, but that could shift really fast if they do manufacture Burks touches in his offense, which I think they're going to. They spent a really high draft pick on him. It might not be like in week 1, but as the season goes on, guys, Treylon Burks, he's a beast after the catch. He could be a top 24 wide receiver in fantasy football. I would go AJ Green over Zach Ertz, the corpse of AJ Green over the corpse of Zach Ertz. Hey, Sam, Tua or Trey Lance with those bad conditions in Chicago? I'm still going Trey Lance over Tua, and I like Tua. I do. I'm actually starting him in a Superflex league this week. I think he's underrated, but the weather conditions in Chicago could only mean more rushing for Trey Lance. Trey Lance could go over 100 rushing yards today. Like, very possible that happens. So, yeah, I'm okay going with Trey Lance. Let me actually see. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, I'm still starting Trey Lance. Bateman, AJ Dillon, or Pollard. I'd probably go in this order. I'd probably go. Actually, I think I lean a little bit more towards Pollard over Dillon. I think he's going to have more receiving work. Those two are so close. Someone was asking about this earlier. I think I might have said the exact opposite thing because it's so close. AJ Dillon, I think, maybe has a slightly better chance at a touchdown than Pollard. Obviously, both guys in similar spots. Like, they're backup running back on their own team, but they will have a role this week. I just think Pollard has a more clear receiving role than AJ Dillon. So if it's a PPR league, I'm okay going with Pollard over AJ Dillon, and I would definitely go Bateman. Sam, big fan since before the app was even available. Remember talking about it in development? Oh, yeah, Zach, man. It's been a long time. It's super exciting to see how far it's coming. We were number 6 in the sports app ranking, Zach, like a week ago. Absolutely insane, man, how far we've come. And I couldn't have done it without everyone's support. I'm sure a lot of people on this live, too, have supported the app, so I really do appreciate everyone's support. Mike Davis or Edmonds? Come on, Zach. It's got to be Edmonds, man. It's got to be Edmonds. You can't start Mike Davis. And, like, if this is what ends up coming back to haunt me in week 1, I'm okay with that. Honestly, Edmonds is so much more talented than Mike Davis. He has such a better situation than Mike Davis. And Mike Davis, sure, maybe he could score a touchdown, but it's probably going to be Lamar that scores the touchdown, or Kenny Drake that scores the touchdown. I think Mike Davis, he's going to be out there to pass block and to get, like, short yardage situations. I want nothing to do with Mike Davis this week, just like I wanted nothing to do with Mike Davis all of last season. And there is a DraftKings lineup for us. I'm taking a really high-risk approach in week 1, and I'm really betting on Trevor Lawrence being much better than people expect in week 1. I'm betting on Trevor Lawrence in week 1, and I'm stacking him with Evan Ingram in like basically all of my DraftKings lineups, which is super high risk. Obviously, Evan Ingram has made a career out of letting me down, but I'm betting on him one more time in week 1 against Washington, who allowed the most passing yards per game to quarterbacks last season. I do have CMC in a lot of my DraftKings lineups too, not in this one. I do have Christian Kirk in this one as well. I'm in on the Jaguars offense today, just in general. Pierce or ETN, I would go ETN. Michael Thomas or ETN, I would go Michael Thomas, I think. In order for who to play, Debo, Amon-Ra, DeAndre Swift, I would say Swift, Debo, then Amon-Ra, probably in that order. All right, let's get back to some of the questions. We got about 10 minutes left in the stream. Bateman or CEH? I'd probably go Bateman over CEH. Pollard or Jacobs? Yeah, I'm a little out on Josh Jacobs. He's like the one guy in this game that I keep telling people not to start. He could easily score touchdowns. He's probably going to touch the ball more than Tony Pollard, but I think Tony Pollard's for sure going to get more receiving work than Josh Jacobs. So if this is a PPR league, I'm okay going Pollard. If it's not a PPR league, though, definitely go Josh Jacobs. Kenyon Drake or Damian Harris? Yuck, Parker. I think I'd go Damian Harris over Kenyon Drake. Again, there's so much risk with Mike Davis and Kenyon Drake, and I'm not starting Damian Harris in pretty much every situation, but in this one, I probably would. KJ Osborne, Rex Burkhead, or Nico Collins in the flex, 32-person league. Yeah, it's got to be Osborne, I think, or Nico Collins. Not bad options, honestly, at the flex in a 32-person league. I would probably go Osborne or Nico, though. Honestly, Osborne's not Osborne's the guy that stands out to me the most in that list. Sam Winston with MT or start Mike Williams with no stack. I'd go Mike Williams over Michael Thomas personally. Juju or Mooney, I'd go Juju over Mooney. Again, you got to be really concerned about Mooney all of a sudden this week. And I actually do have some player props on him. Those are looking like dust right now with how bad the rain is in Chicago, how bad this field looks. Hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, I'm out on Mooney right now. So I'd probably go ETN over Thielen is really close to. I'd probably go ETN though, then Thielen, then Mooney. All really close. Definitely playing Saquon over ETN, Kyle. Definitely playing Saquon. Let me pull up my running back rankings again. There should not be a single running back in these top 10 running back lists that's on anyone's benches this week, unless you're in like a 4-person or 6-person league. Like all of these running backs need to be started. You need to start them. And Zeke, I would honestly add to this list too. You pretty much need to start Zeke in like all situations. I wouldn't panic on Zeke. I know it's a bad matchup, but it's week 1, guys. He's fully healthy. Can we get the wide receiver list? Yeah, let me pull up the wide receiver list. There's also some really interesting names on this wide receiver list. The most interesting of which is probably Marquise Brown, who I've ranked number 7. Guys, Marquise Brown, he was top 10 in the league in air yards last season. He's going to be running even probably more air yards this season with a better deep passer. Lamar Jackson, as much as I love Lamar, and I think he's the best rushing QB of all time, I'm very bullish on Lamar this season. Kyler Murray's a better deep passer than Lamar Jackson. That is good news for Marquise Brown, who has very little target competition to start the season. Rondale Moore picked up a late injury this week. He's out. DeAndre Hopkins suspended for the first 6 games. He's out. Chase Edmonds off to Miami. He was one of the best receiving weapons they had last season. He's out. Like Marquise Brown against the Chiefs too. The Chiefs are going to put up yards. They're going to put up points against the Cardinals defense. I think the Cardinals can do the same thing against the Chiefs defense. There's another one of these games that you want pieces of this game. Can we get DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Mike Williams? Love the stream. Year 3 with you. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that, man. All 3 of these guys are really good. I'd say DJ Moore is the safest and Mike Williams has the highest ceiling, though. So I would go with one of those 2 guys. Probably DJ Moore is honestly who I would go with. I think I would go DJ Moore over Sutton. Yeah, I think I would go DJ Moore in this situation. But it's definitely close with Mike Williams. I do want to start Mike Williams. Sam, good morning. Good morning, man. It does not feel like morning to me. I'm not going to lie. It's more like good afternoon for me. I've been up 4 hours at this point. I think we're on hour 4 of this live stream. But good morning, man. Good morning. Non-PPR. Higgins, Sutton, Deontay Johnson, A.J. Brown. You got to start A.J. Brown. Again, look at the rankings down here. We got A.J. Brown. He's number 9. You got to start A.J. Brown. From there, it's really close. In a non-PPR league, you're really looking for touchdowns, which makes me lean a little bit more towards Sutton and Higgins than Deontay Johnson. In a PPR league, I think I would say Deontay Johnson. In a non-PPR league, I'm cool with going with Sutton or T. Higgins. I think it's super close between those 2. I feel a little bit more confident about Sutton scoring a TD, but I mean, I'm not going to bet against Higgins either. Really good options though here at wide receiver. Will the weather impact Trey Lance? Yes, but I don't think necessarily in a negative way. The weather's pretty clearly, as the videos keep coming out. And again, if you don't follow WalterPicks on Twitter yet, at WalterPicks app, link is also in the YouTube description. Follow us because we just posted a video that I hadn't seen yet on my Twitter feed of Trey Lance trying to throw the ball. He cocks it back and the ball just falls straight out of his hand. That's how wet the ball is and the field conditions are in Chicago. But more concerning than that is, I think, just like the mass puddles on the Chicago field. Again, an absolute embarrassment for how bad the field looks in Chicago. I don't care how bad the weather is. It should never look like this on an NFL field. Hopefully no one gets injured because of how bad this field is. But it's going to be tough to run routes, I think, too, on this field. So all that being said, it might lower the passing volume for Trey Lance, but it could probably just as well increase the rushing volume. So I'm not fading Trey Lance at all based on all this weather news in Chicago. Thielen or Bateman, I would go Thielen over Bateman, I think, but it's really close. Dotson or Tolbert, love this one. I'm benching Tolbert 100%. I have no confidence in Jalen Tolbert. There was a report the other day that he could be a healthy scratch. He's not going to be a healthy scratch, I don't think. I think that was a little bit of a reach and not a real report. It was more of just a reporter speculating. But I think Noah Brown's the number 2 receiver, and I think even Noah Brown's probably behind Tony Pollard in the receiving game, who's behind Dalton Schultz, who's behind CeeDee Lamb. So now we're talking he's maybe the 5th option, whereas Jahan Dotson, he might be the number 2 option for Washington. I'm in on Jahan Dotson this week. I think he could be one of the best rookie wide receiver performances this week. I have him in some DraftKings lineups because he's so cheap, and I'm running a lot of Trevor Lawrence Evan Ingram stacks. I've Dotson in a lot of those too. So I would go Dotson, I think. Hey, Walter, Komet, or Albert, Donnie. First time listening to the stream, I assume. Thanks for tuning in, man. Classic mistake. My name's actually Sam. Walter is the AI algorithm that I helped build that powers the WalterPicks app, which also can answer all your start-sit questions for completely free. So definitely check that out. And don't worry about it, man. It's a classic mistake. I would lean towards, with this weather news, I'm okay going Alberto over Komet. Definitely a little bit more concerned for Komet given the weather going on in Chicago. Pickens or Dubs in place of Mooney. Oh, God, Marino, I'm not doing that, man. As much as I'm nervous about Mooney, I'm not putting either of these guys in over Mooney. And sure, both these guys have an interesting ceiling, but Marino, you don't want the donut or the close to donut that Pickens and Dubs could bring. And I don't think Mooney's, even though how bad this weather is, I think the 49ers are going to put up points. The Bears are going to have to try to throw the ball at times in this game, and it's probably going to be to Mooney. So I'm still playing Mooney over Pickens and Romeo Dubs for sure. Hey, Sam, pick 3. MT, Elijah Moore, Keenan Allen, Jaylen Waddle, full PPR. It's these last 3 guys. Start these last 3 guys. Elijah Moore, Keenan Allen, and Jaylen Waddle in a full PPR league. Those are 3 stud wide receivers. A.J. Dillon with Lazard out or Eli Mitchell in the rain. Thanks for everything. I'm okay going Eli Mitchell in the rain over A.J. Dillon. I think Eli Mitchell has a pretty good shot at over 100 yards today. So I'm okay doing that. A.J. Green or Mondre at flex and PPR. It's Mondre. It's Mondre's season. And I'm as pessimistic of a Pats fan as you will find. The 2 things I'm optimistic about for the Pats this season, though, I'm hoping Mac Jones can take a small step forward. And I think it's Mondre's season. SZN season. I'm in on Mondre. So, hey, Sam, will Kelsey go over 77.5 yards? I don't think he averaged this many yards per game last season. That was also with Tyreek Hill on the squad. And the Cardinals are also, they were really good, I think, against tight ends last year, but their secondary was still really weak. Last year, I'm looking at it right now. Travis Kelce averaged 70 yards per game, which was second most in the league, only behind Mark Andrews, who averaged 80 yards a game. I don't feel great about this line. This feels like a pretty fair line to me. I don't think there's any edge here, really. But he definitely could go over 77.5 yards. Juju or Rashad Penny at flex PPR league. I want to say Juju over Penny. I do really like Penny. But again, I really like the floor for Juju in PPR this week against the Cardinals, whose secondary is nothing to be scared of. So I lean towards Juju, but again, Penny's been really good when he's gotten touches, and he has no competition for touches this week. I still think the Seahawks get crushed, though. And I want pieces of this Chiefs-Cardinals game, so I think I would go Juju. Komet or Hunter Henry, I think I would still lean Komet, Frankie, in this one. And again, I'm nervous about the pass catching options for the Bears and for the 49ers. And I know Hunter Henry had some moments last season. He could easily score a touchdown. I like Komet, though, just more overall. As the number 2 pass catching option for the Bears, I don't feel good about starting Hunter Henry. Do you have high hopes for James Conner? I do have really high hopes for James Conner, especially in this first week against the Chiefs. It wasn't very good last year, and there's just no elite weapons outside of Marquise Brown and James Conner for the Cardinals. I think James Conner's pretty much locked in to 20-plus touches, and I mean that's all I need to hear to have a lot of high hopes for James Conner. It could be a lot of targets too. And here we go, Brody. Again, you got to make your layups. We're not even. I mean, the year's 2022. Tony Pollard has been number 1. He was number 1 in the NFL in yards per touch last season. You scroll down. I'm still scrolling. All right, there's Mike Davis. He was number 48 in yards per touch last season. And there's almost no way Mike Davis gets the target volume Tony Pollard gets. This one's not close. In my opinion, it has to be Tony Pollard. And again, maybe Mike Davis, he gets a 1-yard carry and falls into the end zone and outscores Tony Pollard. But I'm willing to bet against that, man. And Mike Davis is not someone I want anywhere near my starting lineups this week. Hey, Sam, Gibson or Edmonds in PPR leagues. This one's, again, super close. I lean Edmonds, though, over Antonio Gibson. I would probably go Gesicki over Komet. I don't love Gesicki, though. He was on my do not draft list. Thanks, Brody. I got you, man. And I do appreciate if I'm able to help you at all in this live stream. We got only a few minutes left in this live stream. By the way, thank you so much for tuning in. This is one of my favorite things I get to do every single week. I can't wait for like 6 straight hours of football that we're all about to watch. I really do appreciate, though, if you can toss us a 5-star review in the iOS or Android app store. It helps me out so much. It takes you 2 seconds. It's completely free, obviously, to do as well. Week 1, Sammy Watkins or Travis Etienne at flex. Tyler Love, the Week 1 Sammy Watkins denotion here, because this isn't the normal Sammy Watkins that we're getting, guys. This isn't starting Sammy Watkins or Travis Etienne. This is week 1, Sammy Watkins versus Travis Etienne. And maybe I'm a little biased here, but I do take that into account because, again, over 10% of the 8 years that Sammy Watkins has been in the league, over 10% of his fantasy points, closer to 11%, has come in week 1. Like, this week 1 Sammy Watkins thing is no joke. He's catching Rodgers as the top. He's catching passes as the top pass catching option for Aaron Rodgers this week. All that being said, though, man, I'm not starting CTN. I am starting him over Drake London, though, in one league. So, like, I do want some action on week 1 Sammy Watkins. I think I have him in a few DraftKings lineups too. Obviously, the floor is still really low, though, for Watkins. It's much lower than the floor for Etienne. Hey, Sam. Love that the lives are back. Thanks, Dante. Start 2, bench 1. Amon-Ra, Juju, Scary Terry. Yeah, I think I bench Amon-Ra. I don't feel great about benching Amon-Ra. I feel like I've told too many people, honestly, on the stream to bench Amon-Ra, but I want Juju in my lineups, and I think Scary Terry is just a super safe bet overall. And I think the Eagles' defense is a little bit scary. The Cardinals' defense is not scary. Like, Juju, he's got a really safe floor. And just being a part of this game, I think, is an interesting ceiling, too. And Scary Terry, sort of similar situation against the Jaguars. I'm a little bit scared about the Eagles secondary. So, yeah, I'm out on them. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the first Sunday morning live stream. Time is the most valuable thing we have. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I will be back live Thursday night and again Sunday morning throughout the rest of the season. Guys, best of luck in week 1. And do not take week 1 for granted, man. Let's enjoy the football on our TV screen. Really, best of luck. And thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good one, guys.